In a world crawling with zombies, the only things that matter are supplies and bigger guns. But our main character, he's already stacked. Shiaoyang saw the apocalypse coming and prepared for doomsday. He built a fortress, hoarded supplies, and gathered his crew to chill while the world burned. But even his massive stash wouldn't last forever. That is until a system appeared, dishing out quests. Completing tasks earns him loot boxes with sweet rewards, resources, and power-ups to make him even more OP. And this epic story began, as most do, with a brutal betrayal. Our hero is dangling from a chain in a rundown warehouse. And below him, a VIP party of zombies just waiting for the main course to drop. Xiaoyang's garbage girlfriend Jing taunts him from above, bragging about how she already murdered all his friends. Our poor guy reflects on his life, realizing his fatal mistake was trusting the wrong people. He blames himself, screaming at the woman and promising her a death she won't forget. But you know, empty threats don't mean much when you're about to become zombie chow. She just clings to her new sugar daddy, crying about her hurt feelings. The chubby new boss decides it's time for the show to begin Xiaoyang's live feeding. To twist the knife, he thanks our boy for leaving behind a fortress full of goodies. It's enough to keep them comfy for months. And with that, our main character falls right into the zombie mosh pit. The freaks instantly swarm him, tearing him apart as he writhes in agony, completely helpless. As Xiaoyang's screams fade, he makes one final vengeful vow. If he gets a second chance from the regression gods, he'll dedicate his new life to destroying Jing and her fatso boyfriend. And what do you know? The gods were listening. In the next moment, our hero wakes up in his old bed. Standing before him is Kui Jing, yelling at him for not putting her name on his house deed. What a romantic. Xiaoyang just tunes out her screeching, trying to process what the hell is happening. It hits him like a truck. He's traveled back in time right before the zombie plague destroyed everything. The crushing weight of that betrayal returns as he stares at Kui Jing, the two-faced snake who majored in professional victimhood. Her betrayal didn't just get him killed, it wiped out his family's fortune. Honestly, who even needs a zombie apocalypse? This woman is a walking catastrophe all by herself. So let's recap what she did. It was your standard zombie outbreak. A virus hit and people started getting hungry for their neighbors. Using his connections, Xiaoyang built a safe zone and helped tons of survivors. Everything was going great until this professional apologizer showed up, crying for shelter. She looked so helpless and lost. Being a good guy, our hero felt sorry for her and let her in. It was the single worst mistake of his entire life. Playing the hero cost him everything. She immediately abused his trust, sneaking her own crooked crew into the safe zone. And now this same woman is standing right here yelling at him for money. The audacity is off the charts. Our boy is giving her the iciest death glare imaginable. He wants to snap but knows patience is key. Still, he's had enough of her whining and shoves her right out the door. The slam is so satisfying as she stands there utterly confused. The little puppy she thought she had on a leash suddenly grew fangs and kicked her to the curb. Back inside, Xiaoyang checks the calendar. He has exactly 1 month to prepare before the end of the world kicks off. Again. Suddenly, a screen pops into view. The apocalypse system has been activated. His first quest, own land and stockpile a year's worth of food. I'm guessing this system is a big fan of doomsday preppers. And the reward. 10 whole points, which he can spend in the system shop. Seeing the massive grin on his face, you know exactly what Xiaoyang is thinking. He's thrilled about his new cheat code for surviving the apocalypse. Checking the store, he finds 3 items available. An enhancement potion, a survival kit, and a protagonist supply box. I like the sound of that last one. Things are already looking way better this time around. Xiaoyang painfully recalls how broke he was at this time, saving every last penny to pay for Kui Jing's ridiculous dowry. He'd been skipping meals, practically starving himself just to save a few bucks. And all of that, for a girl who ended up stabbing him in the back anyway. Fed up, he grabs his phone, figuring he should order real food since the zombies are coming to eat everyone else. That same night, he's practically worshipping his dinner, treating his expensive takeout like a 5-star experience. My man is so hyped for some quality pork, the moment he takes a bite, he gets a divine awakening and a 6-pack. Okay, just kidding. But that's how good it tasted. He starts inhaling the food like a Dickensian orphan who just found a feast. And the next thing he knows, his phone is blowing up. Xiaoyang checks at a call from his ex's best friend, Wen Shuya. In classic toxic bestie mode, she starts screaming at him for ghosting her friend. He's so over her drama that he just hangs up mid-rant. Instead, he focuses on his true mission, buying land. His goal is to build an impenetrable fortress, a stronghold that's easy to defend with access to water and a forest. So the next day, our boy gets down to business. He strolls into a real estate company and finds a consultant to help him out. She greets him warmly, asking if he's looking to buy or rent a property. But before he can even speak, their chat is cut short by her superior, who tells her to go handle grunt work instead of dealing with clients. This is the company's sales manager, Ju. He shoves her aside and banishes her to the back, even though she was doing her job just fine. Manager Ju is a top-tier corporate jerk who calls Xiaoyang broke to his face. Our hero immediately fires back, calling out the manager's disrespect. But instead of apologizing, the manager just doubles down on his insults. He sneers that people like Xiaoyang can't even afford a public toilet, so they shouldn't be taken seriously. Xiaoyang is ready to absolutely destroy this man's ego. He whips out an American Express card and coolly announces he's here to buy land. The entire office goes dead silent. The shock is so real you could hear a pin drop. They've just realized they hit the customer jackpot. The consultant Zhao Ning quickly invites him to a private room for a full briefing on his options. This whole reversal is driving Manager Ju insane. He's convinced this kid is just a broke bluffer. In the other room, Zhao Ning presents him with a list of properties to buy. But our boy isn't here to browse a catalog. He lays out his exact requirements. First, the land must be near the mountains with a fresh water source. Second, it needs to have a good transportation system. And last, he wants a factory or a huge house already built on it. Hearing his precise needs, Zhao Ning racks her brain for options. Manager Ju decides to swoop in with a recommendation designed to humiliate our hero. He mentions a plot in the East District but says it's an incomplete project riddled with unfinished factories and other issues. That's exactly why Zhao Ning didn't want to suggest it. But the arrogant manager doesn't care. He thinks Xiaoyang is just making up ridiculous demands because he has no money and no real intention of buying anything. To that, our boy calmly asks if the East District plot actually meets all his requirements. Zhao Ning confirms it does, but again warns him about the abandoned factories and the fact the last project leader ran away. Looking over the details, a huge grin spreads across Xiaoyang's face. This is it. This plot is perfect. Easy to defend, already enclosed by barbed wire and difficult for anyone to attack. And the unfinished factories, for him that's a massive bonus. He immediately agrees to buy the plot and asks for the contract. The consultant is completely floored, bowing her head in disbelief that her client is buying a plot full of abandoned ruins. Xiaoyang doesn't give a damn. He just wants that contract signed so he can make the manager eat his words. Hilariously, in the next scene, Manager Ju is screaming at the bill, questioning how anyone could possibly make such a huge deposit. It makes no sense to pay millions for a plot covered in rundown factories, and here's the best part. Xiaoyang shows up to remind him of their deal. Since the land is sold, the manager now has to eat a fresh pile of, As Xiaoyang walks away, even the other customers are laughing at the manager, live streaming his meltdown and waiting for the show. They're all ready to volunteer to serve him his meal. But let's get back to our boy. The apocalypse system gave him 2 quests. Mission 1, spend the bride money on land. Check. Next up, stockpile a year's worth of supplies. But just then, Xu Jiang spots him wondering what our hero is up to. Our boy then glances over at a truly ridiculous scene unfolding before him. Some poor sap manager Jay is on his knees, getting force-fed on a live stream. Oof. Now that is a fate worse than death. That lovely image is replaced by a much more seductive one. Qiu Jing in all her curvy glory. Her phone buzzes. It's Shuang, who immediately spills the tea about Xiaoyang's little real estate shopping trip. And oh boy, that lights her fuse. Her one and only question is, how in the world did he buy land? And with what money? Xu Zhang lays out all the details, guessing he used the bride money. Qiu Jing is absolutely livid. How dare he use times her times money for times his times personal projects? But instead of fanning the flames, Xu Xiang simply tells her to go ask the man herself. She continues to screech, but I'm just going to hit fast forward here. Nobody has time for that. Back to our guy who's busy plotting his next move. The only problem is, building a fortress requires a mountain of cash. His moment of peace is suddenly annihilated by a furious banging at his door. He probably thinks the FBI found his browser history. But nope, it's just the terrible 2. Quite possibly the most annoying women on the planet. And they're raging about how Xiaoyang spent Qiu Jing's money. Our dude is completely baffled, wondering what in the world is even happening. Qiu Jing doesn't give him a chance to speak, immediately accusing him of stealing her money to buy land. And get this, she even claims ownership of the land he just bought. As you can imagine, Xiaoyang finds this hilarious. First, he smacks her with a fat stack of cash. Then he informs her that a woman like her will never see a single cent from him. Then he drops the ultimate bombshell. He knows all about her secret affair with Xu Jiang. That shuts her up real quick. The bestie of the year quickly jumps in, trying to do damage control. She plays the innocent card, claiming it's all just a simple misunderstanding between a couple. Our boy isn't buying it for a second. He calls her out for cheating with her sugar daddy, slams the door in her face and tells her to get lost. But instead of feeling guilty, the only thing bothering Qiu Jing is how he managed to find out their secret. That's your first clue that this woman's priorities are seriously messed up. She doesn't even care that she got caught. Even her bestie is in shock, having no idea the affair was even happening. She's also disgusted it was with that old creep Shiaoyang. Even she realizes they've lost all leverage against Shiaoyang. They'll have to retreat and cook up a new plan. Now remember how I called her the bestie of the year? You're about to find out why. Turns out she's a snake in the grass just waiting for her chance. She's thrilled they're fighting because now she can swoop in and claim Shiaoyang for herself. Anyway, enough about those two horrible people. Let's get back to Shiaoyang, who's arrived to inspect his unfinished factory. The construction foreman explains that it needs a ton of renovations and some serious defense systems, so it's going to take time. The defense plans are so over the top that even the foreman is like, "Are you planning on fighting God or something there?" Our boy isn't interested in excuses. He wants it all done in 1 month. The foreman tells him flat out that a month is impossible. Even with their whole crew, it can't be done. But then he adds that for the right price, anything is possible. For a rush job of this scale, they'll need at least 20 million, without even batting an eye at the price. Our boy just smiles and asks if that's all they'll need. The leader says Shiaoyang will also need to put down 5 million up front to get things started. Our boy is totally on board. He says he'll transfer the cash in a week as long as they start working right now. The foreman is absolutely stunned. He's probably trying to figure out if Shiaoyang is the secret son of a billionaire. Oh, and our hero adds one condition. If he fails to pay the land, deed automatically transfers to them to cover the costs. The ridiculously good deal is sealed. But right at that moment, their chat is interrupted by none other than Chu Jing's friend. She instantly gets all chummy, grabbing his arm and asking what he's up to. Our boy's already fuming. He remembers this snake from his past life, the one who helped Chu Jing steal his entire family fortune. He'll deal with her later his way. For now, Shiaoyang just asks how she even found him here. She dodges the question brightly, asking if this is his new project. Then she wonders if he's building a fancy villa on it. Done playing nice, Shiaoyang yanks his arm free and tells her it's none of her business. And that just makes her angrier. How dare he be so rude when she's totally head over heels for him? Ignoring her completely, Shiaoyang turns to the construction crew and tells them to expand the area for the gate. Feeling snubbed, she scowls. This was supposed to be a golden opportunity, and she's failing to seize it. She knows his relationship with Chu Jing is in the toilet, which means she can still make a move and snatch this land from him. I'm starting to think our main character is a magnet for the absolute worst kind of women. Back at his apartment, Shiaoyang uses his house as collateral for a loan, but it's still not enough for the initial payment. He desperately needs a mountain of cash. He even considers scam selling his place to a few different people, since it won't matter when the apocalypse hits anyway. What are they gonna do? Sue him in zombie court. His peace is shattered when an old man starts banging on his door, screaming for him to open up. Apparently this is his neighbor, Grandpa Lee, and from the looks of it, he's got money. The old guy is so rich he already owns the first 2 floors, and now he wants Xiaoyang's place to complete the set. The only reason our boy didn't sell in his past life was because he saw it as his future wedding house. But given how that turned out, and with this geezer screaming at him, he's starting to change his mind. Grandpa Lee accuses him of going out, clubbing an accusation Xiaoyang completely denies. Instead of wasting time on a pointless argument, our boy offers to sell the house to the old man right then and there. The old geezer's mood flips 180 degrees, stunned to hear those words coming from the kid. But Xiaoyang adds a condition. Since his new place won't be ready for 6 months, he needs an upfront payment of 5 million to pay off his current home loan. It's actually a genius scam if he just repeats this with a few more buyers. Xiaoyang is fully prepared to slam the door if the old man refuses. But at the last second, the geezer caves and accepts the deal. He insists on a contract, though, just to keep things official. A simple contract doesn't bother our boy one bit, especially since he knows this old man will be dead long before he can ever move in. Anyway, the plan is working. He'll soon have 5 million from Grandpa Lee. Add that to his own 3 million, and he's got a starting fund of 8 million. Plus, since he completed the first requirement, he can now claim his mission reward. Next scene, our boy is basically speedrunning the grocery store. He's become the Max Verstappen of shopping carts. The people around him are whispering, wondering if this kid is mentally stable. And their reaction is totally justified, considering Shiaoyang is juggling about 7 different carts, all packed to the brim. Everyone assumes some doomsday prepper scammed him into believing the world was ending. Shiaoyang ignores these fools and successfully completes the second task. Now he has to decide where to spend his points. Boosting his stats is an option, but getting the protagonist's toolbox is far more efficient. Without a moment's hesitation, he dumps all his points into the toolbox. The reward is a glowing mystery box, which reveals a powerful space ring that can store items in a pocket dimension. Our boy is ecstatic to get a legendary item. Now, he doesn't have to worry about his food supplies ever spoiling. And if you thought gathering 1 year's worth of supplies was insane, well, the system levels up. the challenge now demanding 10 years of supplies for more points. This massive shopping spree catches the store manager's eye, and security arrives to handle the lunatic. To his surprise, the guard is Yang Tao, and he's shocked to see Shiaoyang. Quick background check. Yang Tao was an annoying bully back in their school days. He picked on weaker students, including our hero, who always refused to back down. Let's just say their history is rocky. And now this same loser is screaming at Shiaoyang to put all the supplies back and stop making a scene. Our boy just flashes a fearless grin, saying some things never change, like Yang Tao still being Captain Douchebag. And he assures him the purchase is definitely happening. But the security manager just sees a kid messing with him. He demands he pays up now or face the consequences. An entire hour later, 4 cashiers finally finish ringing up his mountain of items. The grand total comes out to nearly 57,000 yuan. Immediately, Yang Tao pressures our hero to swipe his card. Acting like he's just pulled off a masterstroke, Shiaoyang taps his card with total confidence. To the manager's complete disbelief, the payment goes through, shattering Yang Tao's ego. Utterly humiliated, he gathers his goons to leave. But our boy's not done yet, calling him back for one last thing. Shiaoyang points out that he was treated with some serious disrespect. So, he wants a proper apology, or he'll return everything on the spot. This makes Yang Tao's blood boil, thinking the kid is intentionally pushing his luck. But in this day and age, cameras are literally everywhere, and going viral is just a click away. That's why the other customers corner the rude manager, telling him to apologize now or become a TikTok celebrity for all the wrong reasons. Things are going perfectly for Shiaoyang, who reminds his old classmate that saying sorry won't kill him. In fact, a little respect might just convince him to buy 10 times more. Yang Tao scoffs, calling his bluff. So our boy calmly decides to prove him wrong again by showing his balance. When he swipes the card, the look on Yang Tao's face is absolutely priceless. He can't process how this guy has 7 million just casually sitting in his account. With no way out, the humiliated Yang Tao is forced to apologize. The bully finally caves, bowing his head and admitting he was wrong. To add insult to injury, our hero pats his head and tells him not to be a jerk for no reason. As he's leaving a curious, Yang Tao asks what he needs all that stuff for. Using the most legendary comeback, Shiaoyang shuts him down, saying it's none of his business and he's got big plans. The now humbled manager mentions he'll need a wholesaler for purchases on that scale. This catches our hero's attention. He turns and asks if Yang Tao has any connections. The guy confirms it, mentioning their old leader Zhang Shangj is now in the wholesale business. Yang Tao even makes a call on the spot, telling him a huge client is on the way. Shiaoyang is surprised to learn this goon is still working under the same boss from their school days. He can only imagine how much dirty money they've made together. A little while later, Yang Tao brings him to the boss's turf. A car screeches to a halt, stopping just inches away from them. Out steps an arrogant punk who walks like he owns the world, Zhang Shengj. He demands to meet this supposed big client. Yang Tao tries to jog his memory, reminding him that Shiaoyang was their old classmate. But of course, years have passed, and this tough guy doesn't remember a thing. He squints at our boy's face. And then it clicks. It's the one kid who always fought back and never followed their orders. He immediately tries to diss our hero's outfit, calling it a cheap knockoff. It doesn't help when Shiaoyang pretends not to even know the brand's name. Hearing this, Zhang Shengj is convinced he's just wasted his time. This kid is no VIP client. He literally kicks Yang Tao, boasting that he can size up a person's wealth with just one look. To mock the boss, Shiaoyang sarcastically mentions his aura is so weak it wouldn't scare anybody. Provoked, Zhang Shengj grabs him by the collar, but our boy stands firm, repeating his words. Hilariously, the only insult Zhang Shengj actually gets mad about is being called illiterate. He completely misses the part where Shiaoyang called him out for acting so high and mighty. Anyway, Yang Tao tries to break up the fight, but the poor guy just gets kicked again for interrupting. The furious boss warns Shiaoyang that he's made a grave mistake. He thinks he can walk out of here in one piece without buying a ton of merchandise. But Shiaoyang stands his ground and decides to show him his bank account. The boss's jaw drops. This kid is about to drop 1 million yuan, like it's nothing. But to take it even further, our hero declares he's actually buying 5 million worth of goods. The first million is just a down payment to get the ball rolling. Suddenly intrigued, Zhang Shengj asks exactly what kind of goods he's after. Our boy's shopping list is simple: if you can eat it or drink it, he wants it. Now you'd think a big shot client would get the red carpet treatment right. Wrong. This sleazy boss sees a sucker and tries to offload a mountain of nearly expired junk. He thinks he's hit the lottery. Inside the warehouse, the boss shows off his goods, offering a measly 10% discount if our guy buys the whole lot. But our hero isn't just some rich kid, he's all about quality. He inspects a bag of peanuts and immediately calls him out. This junk is about to go bad. The boss's scam is totally exposed. The owner is absolutely floored. This kid actually knows his stuff. In a panic, he slashes the price by 50%. But our boy just scoffs. If he's dropping 5 million, it's for premium goods, not trash. although he does have a special plan for all this expiring food. The boss is clueless, but with the discount still on the table, our main character flips the script. He'll take all the expiring goods, on the condition he pays in 1 month. The owner is tempted, but he's worried the kid will bail once the food officially goes bad. Just as he's about to refuse, our hero throws down the ultimate collateral, his own house. Okay, now the boss is seriously curious. What kind of business actually times wants times expired food? Our boy just smirks, dropping a cryptic little hint for the boss. In a few days, he says even this stuff will be a luxury. That ominous line sends a shiver down the boss's spine. True to form, our hero doesn't explain, just seals the deal and promises to send the address. Just then his phone buzzes. It's a buyer for his house. He wraps things up at the warehouse, leaving them to wonder. Did they just get totally played? Even the boss can't wrap his head around how a normal kid is dropping millions without breaking a sweat. In the next scene, the buyer actually deposits $400,000. He even agrees to let our hero stay in the house for the next 3 months. I mean, you guys get what he's doing, right? He doesn't care about consequences when the world's about to end anyway. Still, he's surprised the old man is so desperate he didn't even inspect the house before sealing the deal. So naturally, he has to ask what the big rush is. The man explains it's for his granddaughter. She's transferring schools and they need a new home for her. They just saw the house online and made an offer. Hearing their desperation, our hero jokingly asks if he should raise the price. The poor guy practically shrinks in fear, but he's just kidding and sticks to the original price. The contract is signed, the deal is done. The old man is incredibly grateful for his kindness, but this whole exchange leaves our protagonist feeling devastated. It's a cruel shame that innocent people like this old man and his granddaughter have no idea what's coming. As a final act of kindness, he stops the old man and asks for his current address. Cut to the next scene, he's back at his apocalypse-proof construction site. The first payment cleared, but the foreman is already itching for the second installment. Our boy assures him the money is on the way and asks for a progress update. Turns out the fortress is already 80% complete with reinforced doors and structures for ultimate defense. The warehouse is also looking sharp, all cleaned up and ready to go. Satisfied, he gives the green light to deliver the goods. Soon the trucks roll in and everything is carefully stocked. Our hero is so generous he's paying the laborers $2,000 each just for this job. While the crew celebrates their payday, our boy gets to work efficiently categorizing every single item. He makes sure nothing perishable will cause a problem. By evening, the massive sorting job is finally finished. He gazes upon his masterpiece. 10 years worth of supplies officially stocked, plus he scores another 20 system points. He immediately checks the system store and sees a brand new box has appeared in the options. The best part about this system, he gets access to superpowers times before times the zombie apocalypse even starts. He spends 10 points to buy the mystery box and unlocks a new ability called Mind's Eye. Its one simple purpose is to sniff out hostility from others. Super handy for deciding who to trust in the coming apocalypse. With that, a new mission appears, armed to the teeth. The goal is to load up on weapons, John Wick style, which was exactly what Shiaoyang planned to do anyway. That very night, we dive into society's underbelly, the black market. Shiaoyang weaves through the crowd, listening to sketchy dudes haggle over antiques. Every lowlife in the city is here, including Big Mac Attack himself, arguing with a vendor over a ridiculously priced bracelet. Watching him buy fake jewelry only confirms it. Fatso is a total scammer, and Jing has no idea she's wearing cheap knockoffs. As he scans the stalls, something finally catches Xiaoyang's eye. He approaches a vendor selling an assortment of melee weapons. Our boy is looking for the good stuff. The owner suggests a knife sharpener or maybe a baton if he wants something blunt but sturdy. Xiaoyang scoffs, demanding something even harder than that. The only thing harder than a baton is probably the rock's head. The shop owner just assumes this kid is another time waster with no intention of buying. But then his jaw drops as the kid transfers 200,000 yuan straight to his account, proving he means business. Suddenly intrigued, the seller asks Xiaoyang to watch the stall while they talk in a more private setting. Cut to the back room where the guy shows off some homemade guns for 2,000 yuan, admitting they probably can't even kill anyone. Of course, Xiaoyang turns them down. He's preparing for zombies, not a chicken apocalypse. The seller then points his attention to a replica revolver. This one goes for about 5,000 yuan. But again, the kid isn't impressed at all, especially after dropping a 200,000 deposit. The mention of that deposit makes the shop owner pause. He realizes this kid isn't just here to spend 200 grand. Nope. That was just 10% of what he's willing to drop on this shopping spree. In fact, he's ready to spend a full 2 million on hardware for the job. This insane offer makes the seller wonder what kind of life this kid leads. I'm telling you, he's becoming the John Wick of the zombie apocalypse. With no time to waste, he tells the seller to cut to the chase. Realizing it's time to bring out the real catalog, the guy carefully secures his place, making sure no one is spying on them. He assures Xiaoyang he came to the right place and can connect him to a supplier with high-quality professional-grade weapons. The real exchange is set to happen in a couple of days. But walking out of the storage room, Xiaoyang bumps right into Captain Chubby again, who suddenly thinks he knows Xiaoyang's secret. He assumes our boy sold off his family heirlooms on the black market to get rich, but he has no idea Xiaoyang couldn't care less about his taunts. In fact, this idiot is the perfect test subject for his new ability. Activating his mind's eye, he first reads the seller's intentions, which seem genuine enough, but the tub of lard in front of him, not so much. So Xiaoyang fires back, saying just like those trashy bracelets, Xu Xiang also took in Jing, another piece of secondhand goods. Someone call an ambulance for that savage burn. That one comment is enough to set Xu Xiang off. The seller asks if they know each other, to which our boy replies it's better to just think of him as an enemy. Having already become fast friends, the seller offers his support, promising to teach this old fart a lesson for messing with his new client. Xiaoyang leaves completely satisfied, while Xu Xiang is on the verge of a meltdown. A group of scary-looking dudes with batons corner him, throw him to the ground, and proceed to tenderize him like a steak. This beating only fuels his hatred for Xiaoyang, and he swears he'll get revenge. 2 days finally pass. A truck full of glorious new weapons arrives, completing his mission, and even unlocking a bonus reward. The bonus is a physical enhancement potion. It even has a ×2 multiplier, making it way more potent than anything in the system store. Wasting absolutely no time, he loads the injector and jams it right into his arm. A few seconds later, he can feel it. He's already surpassed the strength of an average man, which is 5 points. He's now at 7 points, a solid 40% increase in physical power. Next, he checks the store, which now has a survival kit and another enhancement potion. He decides to go all in on his strength stat. He buys the other physical enhancement potion and injects it. By the end, our boy is rocking 8 physical points, making him 60% stronger than the average guy. Time for a quick power check. He spots a hardened rod and grabs it. Xiaoyang unleashes a kick so fierce it bends the metal and cracks the wall behind it. With this much juice, the coming zombies are about to catch these legendary hands. Next, he activates the spatial ring, which instantly slurps all the weapon crates into another dimension. Xiaoyang checks his mental clock. The apocalypse hits in 2 days. Time to tie up loose ends, which reminds him of the old man. Even after being betrayed countless times in the future apocalypse deep down, Xiaoyang is still a decent guy. So he decides to drop off a massive care package to help the man's family survive. But after that, they're on their own. Moments later, Xiaoyang arrives at the old man's apartment. Just finding the rundown building was a challenge in itself. As he climbs the decrepit stairs, our boy realizes the old man must be truly down on his luck. Right before knocking, he figures it's easier to just materialize the supplies first. Less awkward questions. His magic ring summons the crates right on the doorstep, and then he finally knocks. The old man answers, ready to apologize about the rent, but stops dead when he sees Xiaoyang. And he's not alone. The kid brought a mountain of supplies with him. Our boy cuts him off, saying there's no time to explain and they need to move the stuff inside now. Later, the old man is just amazed by Xiaoyang's ridiculous stamina. Our main character gives the place a quick scan and notes that the apartment is actually pretty secure. He then warns the old man that what he's about to say must stay between them. Xiaoyang tells him to be wise with the supplies because a massive change is coming to the world. Suddenly, his eyes fall on a photo of the old man's granddaughter. His heart stops. It's Shanshan, a friend from his past life. He has to be sure, so he immediately asks her grandfather about her. The old man is stunned that Xiaoyang knows her name since he never even mentioned it. A wave of concern hits Xiaoyang as he asks where she is. Turns out she's in her hometown in the middle of transferring schools. In the previous timeline, he remembers finding her filled with regret over her grandfather's death. The old man had sacrificed himself to save her. As his friend Xiaoyang refuses to let that tragedy happen again. First things first, he drops a bombshell. The grandfather won't be able to move into his place. The poor guy starts to panic, but Xiaoyang calms him down by casually explaining the literal end of the world. A zombie apocalypse is starting tomorrow and nowhere is safe. He needs the old man to get his granddaughter from school immediately. As you'd expect, this is a little too much for the old guy to take in. But unfortunately, Xiaoyang is fresh out of time for gentle explanations. He simplifies it. Think of a global famine. Starvation is about to become the new reality. To prove his point, Xiaoyang demonstrates by making all the furniture and crates vanish back into his ring. Shanshan's grandfather is utterly speechless until our boy explains he has powers, including the ability to see the future. That's why they have to trust him and they need to leave for Shanshan's school this instant. In the next scene, they're already in the car speeding towards the school. The second they arrive, Xiaoyang asks for her dorm, and the two split up to find her. Well, it seems Shanshan is currently busy getting slapped by a jealous psycho because some random guy likes her. Shanshan insists she has nothing to do with the guy, but that just earns her another slap for making excuses. The bullies are enjoying themselves. Right until Shanshan's grandpa rushes onto the scene, the old man demands they let her go. But in response, a bunch of high school punks show up to threaten him for interfering. For his granddaughter, the old man charges in without a second thought, facing down all three of them. One of the thugs smirks as he lifts a baseball bat to cave the old man's head in. Before the bat can even connect, Xiaoyang's hand shoots out and stops it cold. He taunts the punk for playing gangster. The idiot tries to talk tough, but Xiaoyang replies with a kick so fast it practically turns the kid's hair blonde. He drops like a sack of bricks, leaving his friends wondering if they just picked a fight with a monster. In a brilliant move, they try to surround him, thinking that'll make a lick of difference. Our boy is more than happy to oblige. The goon with the club swings from his blind spot, but whiffs completely as Xiaoyang ducks like it's nothing. Now that his strength is boosted, his reflexes are on another plane of existence, letting him react in a flash. To return the love, he grabs the guy's collar, introduces his face to the concrete, and puts him straight to sleep. Meanwhile, the group's leader tries a sneaky knife attack from behind. Too bad for him, Xiaoyang pivots and delivers a brutal kick to a very, very sensitive area. Just so we're clear, a pro kick to that spot is guaranteed to drop anyone with a world of pain. And in this case, Xiaoyang successfully sent these idiots to dreamland. Next, he approaches the girl who messed with Shanshan. A quick slap to the face serves as his personal contribution to gender equality. The girl is literally seeing stars. Our boy then grabs the other one, eager to show her how it feels to have your hair pulled. He presses a cold blade to her neck, and she starts crying immediately. Then with a flash, the blade swings as the woman screams in terror. For a second there, it really looks like our hero just got his first kill. Even Shanshan's face screams. He actually did it, but nope, he just gave her a little trim. You know, when you tell the barber just a little off the top and they end up giving you a military buzz cut. Yeah, that's her right now. She screams bloody murder, vowing she'll never forgive him. But let's be honest, our boy couldn't care less. He even acts like he did her a favor, getting rid of all that split-end weight. Hilariously, he tells her she'll understand in a few days. For now, he tells Shanshan it's time to go. She has no clue where they're headed, but she follows him without question. Soon they're on the road to a new location. In the car, Grandpa explains the whole situation, telling her about a coming famine apocalypse. Shanshan is completely baffled, thinking her grandpa fell for another phone scam. He swears this time it's real. Watching their cute little argument, our main character is just glad she's happy in this life. Xiaoyang then signals to her that he's the one who told her grandpa everything. The Shanshan of this timeline has absolutely no idea who he is. So he properly introduces himself. She thanks her new big brother for dealing with the bullies, but he just shrugs. They won't be surviving in a few days anyway. The poor girl is still totally lost, with no idea what's about to hit the world. Xiaoyang explains he only called it a famine so her grandpa could understand it easily. This gives the poor girl a glimmer of hope, making her think maybe everything will be okay. And then our boy crushes that hope. Famine was the nice word. The real word is apocalypse. According to the news, it's already starting. Shanshan whips out her phone and finds tons of videos about a new rabies outbreak causing people to go crazy and attack each other. The more she watches, the more her terror grows. Seeing the horrifying state of the infected, Xiaoyang corrects himself one last time. The apocalypse is beginning now. Shanshan learns that tomorrow a toxic smog will break out, covering several provinces. This mysterious smog will permanently change every living thing it touches. A large part of the population will transform into zombies instantly, and from that moment on, they'll hunt the survivors. Once an uninfected person is killed, they'll rise again as one of the undead, adding to the horde. He's glad she at least knows what a zombie is. Still, the whole situation is just too insane for her to process. But our boy knows she'll get it soon enough, especially when the world descends into chaos in about a week. Right now, though, they have a more immediate problem. Traffic. Xiaoyang is shocked to see even the emergency lane is gridlocked. The roads are a parking lot. Shanshan starts to panic, fearing zombies will get them while they're trapped. Xiaoyang reassures her that the real nightmare hasn't started just yet. But even if the main event is a day away, the chance of a small local outbreak right here is terrifyingly high. And speaking of danger, some idiot decides to force his way through. He ends up slamming right into our boy's car, who is instantly pissed and ready to fight back. He blocks the jerk from getting into the emergency lane. The guy pulls up beside them and starts screaming obscenities at Xiaoyang. They quickly realize they're dealing with some arrogant rich kid in a fancy Mercedes. Grandpa advises to just let it go, but our hero has zero patience today. He's happy to send this road rager on a one-way trip if he doesn't back off. A full hour later, traffic finally clears up and the standoff is over. Shanshan suddenly points out that same driver from before, and he's speeding up to cut them off again. Even Xiaoyang is amazed by this guy's persistence. The dude swerves in front just to taunt them. Grandpa chimes in saying it's too dangerous and they shouldn't sink to his level. But Xiaoyang is fresh out of cares to give. After all, traffic violations won't matter much when the world ends. So he just casually rams the dude's car, sending it spinning off the road with a crash. The trust fund baby stumbles out of his car and immediately calls the police to report Shiaoyang. He's clearly the type to hold a grudge. Anyway, cut to our heroes arriving at Shiaoyang's massive private facility. Shanshan's grandpa is completely stunned that this is where they'll be living now. Shiaoyang tells them to rest up because starting tomorrow their entire lives are going to change. The next day, our main character is enjoying the sun when Shanshan shows up looking refreshed after finally getting a decent night's sleep. Shiaoyang is hyped to give her the grand tour of the Doomsday Fortress he built. As he shows her around, he points out the reinforced concrete walls and a remote-controlled gate that's practically indestructible. He lays down the #1 rule: no one gets inside the fortress without his explicit permission. This makes Shanshan worry about what will happen to other survivors, thinking Shiaoyang might just leave them for dead. To answer her concerns, he leads her to a separate area, explaining how an apocalypse brings out the absolute worst in people. Because of humanity's dark side, they have to be cautious. A moment of kindness could easily get them all killed. To handle any potential survivors, he set up a buffer zone. It's a temporary shelter to help people while he's gone. But he repeats nobody gets into the main base. With that settled, he takes them to see the food storage facility. He explains the new food protocols, then turns to them for a final inspection. Activating his eye of insight, he checks their true intentions. Seeing that both of them are completely trustworthy, he's relieved to have found good allies. Next up, Shiaoyang materializes some weapons, calling them the key to survival. Grandpa gets a shotgun, and Shanshan scores a high-tech crossbow. The only instruction is to make sure these weapons never fall into enemy hands. Alright, it's been a minute, so let's check on the system's quests. Xiaoyang's next mission is to find his old partner Zhang Qi from his previous timeline. The big question is, where is he? But that's no problem, because the system helpfully points him to the exact city his friend is in. He puts Shanshan and her grandpa in charge, reminding them one last time not to break the rules. Then he heads out to recruit another member for his team, hoping to build his crew before the apocalypse truly kicks off. The scene shifts to a KTV where a bunch of guys are hanging out and singing karaoke. They head out for a bathroom break where Zhang Qi accidentally bumps into a girl and quickly apologizes. Naturally, her angry boyfriend doesn't care about apologies and just kicks him. Zhang Qi goes flying. His friend immediately runs over to check if he's okay. Our boy Glasses here gets bold and stands up to the meathead who hit his friend. This just makes the guy even more furious. He grabs Zhang Qi's friend and starts messing with him. Zhang Qi begs the guy to spare his buddy. As this is going down, a waiter is watching from the sidelines. The waiter is already sick with a cold and now he has to deal with this mess. He quickly steps in to stop the fight. The annoyed rich kid acts all tough and grabs the waiter too. The waiter subtly signals for the two of them to run for it. Zhang Qi and his friend don't hesitate and make a break for it. They scramble back to their karaoke room having barely escaped. Their other friends are shocked to see them burst in like that. Captain Glasses explains the whole situation, how they ran into some thugs and got their butts kicked. They only got away thanks to the waiter. Hearing this, the other two guys get seriously ticked off. They're fired up to go back and teach that guy a lesson for messing with their crew. Zhang Qi tries to be the voice of reason, saying there's no point in starting more trouble. Oh, how wrong he was. Remember that waiter. Yeah, the poor guy's been turned into a bloody mess. The rich jerk brought backup, and they're all here to party on Zhang Qi's group. The thug leader orders his goons to grab them. Outnumbered, Zhang Qi and his friend can only stare at the floor. But one guy in their crew isn't about to go down quietly. He steps up to say something and gets a bottle shattered on his head for his trouble. And so Chen Chong-no, that's really his name, is left with a bleeding head. Just then, our main character pulls up outside the bar. He had a feeling Zhang Qi would be right in the middle of this mess. Chen Chong is down hard. And with that much blood, he needs an ER like yesterday. The thug leader looks to his girlfriend, who points at Zhang Qi, basically signing his beatdown warrant. But shockingly, Chen Chong rockets off the floor and tries to attack the leader. If another goon hadn't blocked him, that leader's face would have been completely rearranged. The leader's surprised by his guts, so he smashes another bottle on his head. So creative. Man, I feel bad for this kid. Chen Chong eats dirt a second time as his friends cry out. Seeing his friend get wrecked fires Zhang Qi up. He lunges into action and is immediately restrained. Well, that was fast. The final member of their squad is basically quivering in a corner. The waiter is barely conscious while the thugs are busy wailing on Zhang Qi's group. Zhang Qi throws a punch, but it whiffs completely, not even taking one guy down. Suddenly, something snaps inside the waiter. With bloodshot eyes, the guy goes berserk, launching himself into the fight and chomping down on a thug's shoulder, horrifying everyone. The thugs are completely clueless. Why did the waiter suddenly go full-on zombie mode? They try to pull him off, but he's got some kind of monstrous strength. The zombified waiter then turns and sinks his teeth into another guy's arm. He's a total animal, easily knocking the thug to the ground. Then to everyone's total shock, this rampaging beast is effortlessly handled by some random dude. And that random dude, it's our boy, of course. He shoves the waiter's face aside and tells everyone to freeze. The thugs are stunned. Just a moment ago, that waiter was mopping the floor with them, and now this kid has him pinned to a wall like it's absolutely nothing. The thug leader demands to know who Shiaoyang is, but he's ignored. Shiaoyang just asks Jiang Qi if he got bitten. Luckily he didn't, but Jiang Qi has no idea why he's being asked that. Our hero just tells him to follow him now. But the thug leader isn't done playing games and blocks their path. Just then, one of his own bitten goons clutches his head in agony. Our hero knows exactly what's happening. The infection is spreading fast. This guy is about to turn. Shiaoyang asks if the rabid waiter bit his shoulder. The goon says yeah, completely oblivious. Our hero realizes this guy must have already been infected, and with a bite that close to his head, it's game over. Shiaoyang drags the zombie waiter, shoves him in the bathroom and slams the door. The wild beast immediately starts ramming the door. Luckily, these early-stage zombies can't figure out doorknobs. He turns his attention back to the thugs. Our hero cracks his knuckles ready for a beatdown and asks Jiang Qi which one he wants him to take out first. Hilariously, Jiang Qi has no clue who this guy is. Pissed off, the thug leader rushes in to punch his lights out, but he gets totally humiliated. Shiaoyang grabs his face and smashes it right into the ground. The infected goon attacks next, but he's also dropped with a single smack to the face. His friend rushes over, wondering how a simple punch was so powerful. The downed man's body begins to twist as Shiaoyang invites the others to get some too. He figures the only way they'll learn is by catching these hands. Turning to Jiang Qi, he gives a simple order: take your friends to the private room and wait. Jiang Qi doesn't argue, he just helps his friend out. The thugs are done fighting too. They know they don't stand a chance. But Shiaoyang wasn't about to let this guy just walk away. He calls the thug out a drunk who almost got his brother killed with his recklessness. To serve up some instant karma, he shoves the thug back inside and slams the door, sealing them both in. The thug leader tries to yank the door open, but it's locked from the outside now. What happens next is just plain gruesome. His own lackey, now a full-blown zombie, lunges for the nearest warm body. In the end, Shiaoyang gets a front-row seat to their screams as they're eaten alive. A staff member finally shows up to see what the racket is. Shiaoyang tells him to lock the door tight and call the cops. He warns him about a dangerous patient with a rabid infection. The staff guy freezes until our hero yells at him to just do his job. He quickly locks it with a key. With that handled, our boy leads Yoongi's friends outside. The other staff members are buzzing about the noise, wondering what on earth is happening in that room. They heard a rabid flu patient was inside, but nobody knows the real story. Hearing flu, they rush to check the security cameras. But when they get to the monitor room, their faces twist in horror. Every single person in that room has turned into a flesh-eating monster. They're ripping each other apart, prompting an immediate call to the police. Luckily, our main character and his crew are already out of that death trap. He gets them all into the car, and they peel out of there. Even though Jiang Qi is grateful, he still has no idea who this guy is. Shiaoyang calmly introduces himself, explaining he was hired by a confidential client to protect them. One of the friends points out that the rabid flu doesn't exist according to the internet. Shiaoyang just points back to the room, asking if what they saw was also a conspiracy theory. The nerd then nervously asks if there's a cure. Unfortunately, as far as our hero knows, there's no medicine for this. In fact, this is just the beginning. The world is about to descend into total chaos. And speaking of chaos, zombies are already attacking people on the streets. The infection is spreading like wildfire, and this is just a small local outbreak. Most of the infected are still in their incubation period, just waiting to wake up. Things are about to get way worse, so Jangi and his friends must follow his instructions to the letter. They all agree, just as a mission completion message pops up. With this, he unlocks new items in the system store. Some of them are supplies that will definitely come in handy later. But the most interesting item is a post-apocalyptic cultivator box that just won't disappear. Seeing that all 3 boxes look promising, he plans to open them back at his fortress. But first, he needs to build some trust. You see, in the original timeline, Jiang Qi's friends were all killed by zombies because one of them sold them out. The traitor is hidden somewhere among these 3 friends. It's basically a real-life game of Among Us to find the imposter. Anyway, let's check in on Kui Jing. She seems terrified of going to the supermarket because of the news demanding her supplies be delivered right now. To her absolute horror, someone starts violently banging on her door. Panicked, Qing quickly hangs up on Xu Zhang. She peeks through the peephole and breathes a sigh of relief. It's just her best friend who nearly gave her a heart attack with that entrance. The bestie tells her their first-floor neighbor was dragged away in an ambulance by police. It looks like he was infected too, which explains all the chaos in their building. She asks Kui Jing if Big Mac Attack delivered the supplies he promised. Spoilers, he hasn't. So she switches tactics, deciding to stroke Shuang's ego with a bunch of lies. The plan: tell that fatty that Xiaoyang is hoarding a massive stash of supplies. Jing is confused how her friend knows this. Turns out she had one of her guys spying on him and learned he's been ordering supplies by the truckload. Jin can't believe her ex knew about the apocalypse ahead of time. Her bestie convinces her to tell Shushang everything, so they can raid Xiaoyang's supplies and get rich. Yup, these two have the moral compass of a rock. Back at his amazing fortress, Zhang Qi is completely speechless. He can't believe someone actually built a real-life fortress. Enjoying the reaction, Xiaoyang says, everyone has that look the first time. Shanhen and her grandpa are overjoyed to see him back home. He assures them not to worry, everything's under control. Then he introduces his new acquisitions, Zhang Qi and his crew. Turns out these guys are their new housemates. He quickly gets them acquainted with Shanshan and her grandpa. If Xiaoyang trusts them, that's good enough for everyone else. He tasks Grandpa with the grand tour and laying down the house rules. But one of the newbies immediately requests weapons. For protection. And just like that, this guy lands himself on Xiaoyang's personal watch list. He already suspects there's a mole in the group. Nerd Eyes tells his buddy Ying to cool it, warning him it's a terrible idea to ask for guns when they haven't earned any trust. Xiaoyang smoothly promises them weapons in a few days, but for the time being, their priority is nursing the injured Chen Chong back to health. Inside the fortress, everyone gets a much-needed shower and a change of clothes. Ying, however, is seriously ticked off at his friend's meddling. He's convinced they'd be armed by now if his buddy hadn't interfered. This guy genuinely believes they're being held captive, not being protected, but Nerd Eyes tries to inject some common sense into the conversation. He points out that Xiaoyang literally saved their butts, so maybe they should hold off on the accusations. They're dying to know more about him since all they know is that some mysterious client hired him to be their bodyguard. But Ying is being a total pain for no reason, complaining that they're not even treating Chen Chong for fear of a potential infection. Hilariously, his paranoid theory is that Xiaoyang's group is secretly planning to harvest their organs. And to stop this imaginary organ heist, he declares they have to make the first move. Nerd Eyes reminds him that if he's wrong, they'll be backstabbing their saviors. But Ying doesn't give a damn. In fact, he's on a massive power trip and wants to seize control of the entire fortress. His genius plan: take out the girl and the old man while Xiaoyang is gone. Zhang Qi and their other friend just stare at him in total disbelief. They're just now realizing that their buddy is a complete psycho. Ying quickly tries to play it all off as a big joke, trying to ease the sudden awkward tension. Four Eyes again points out the obvious: if Xiaoyang really wanted their kidneys, he wouldn't let them roam around so freely. Little do they know, Yiming is a snake who plans on making his move anyway. He's obsessed with taking over, believing that in this world only the ruthless survive. Later, Xiaoyang meets with Shanshan and her grandpa, who confirm Chen Chong is recovering in the infirmary. And just as he instructed, they've locked everything down nice and tight. Our boy is pleased. He thanks them and tells them to get some rest because tomorrow the real chaos begins. One last thing. He warns them to be wary of Zhang Qi's friends, suspecting one of them is a traitor. That night, our hero heads to the supply warehouse. It's time to do a little shopping in his system store. First up, he opens the cultivator box. Then he purchases the sugar, oil, and protein supply box. And finally, he unlocks the armed deterrence box. Buying all three at once triggers a huge reward: 50 corn seeds and tons of other valuable food. He even scores 1,500 rounds of ammunition, so he won't be running low anytime soon. The rewards are absolutely insane. This massive haul gives him a supreme advantage in the apocalypse. The next day, trouble comes knocking. Remember that rich punk who swore he'd get revenge? Well, he's back with his goons and they're here to party. He orders his lackeys to smash the gate open, but honestly, it's pretty pathetic. Despite all their effort, they can't even put a dent in the massive gate. The boss is furious, unable to believe how tough the door is. So they pull out the Molotovs and let them fly. It doesn't take long for the whole place to erupt in fiery chaos. As the firebombs rain down, Shanshan and the others scramble to put out the flames. This whole situation just proves Xiaoyang was right. He predicted things were about to get a lot crazier. But you know our boy. He doesn't back down from a fight. He brought a rifle just for dealing with pests. He heads up the watchtower to get a good look at the uninvited guests. Shanshan's grandpa is the first to realize it's that same rich jerk from the highway. At the same time, the thugs spot them on the tower. The snob starts roaring, demanding that Xiaoyang come out and face him, or he'll burn the entire fortress to the ground. Cool as a cucumber, Shiaoyang warns them they have 5 minutes to get lost. His calm response just makes them angrier. They threaten to burn his fortress down with 2 whole crates of Molotovs. Suddenly, a new mission alert pops up for our boy. Grandpa panics and suggests a simple warning shot. And what's the mission, you ask? To eliminate the threat currently knocking at their door. Our hero scoffs. A warning shot? You don't warn scumbags who are already mid-crime. Knowing these thugs have zero morals, our boy takes aim. He can't let them threaten innocent lives any longer. With that thought, Xiang pulls the trigger, completely vaporizing one guy's arm. The man drops screaming in agony. Shiaoyang was aiming for his head, but it's been a while. His aim's a little rusty. Still, taking off an arm was more than enough to send a message. They scatter like terrified rats, even though they were the ones who came looking for trouble. But Xiaoyang isn't about to let this drag on. He knows they'll just be back tomorrow, so he mercilessly guns down every last one. The survivors drag their boss into a car, screaming at the driver to floor it. I'm telling you, this guy is secretly John Wick. It's so refreshing to see a main character who isn't a total idiot. Even with a car, they can't escape his automatic rifle. The way he handles that gun, with terrifying skill, makes the old man seriously question the kid's past. Well, for these goons, it's a tragic end. Their car is toast, and so are they. They came knocking for the Grim Reaper, and boy did he answer. Next, Xiaoyang tells Shanshan's grandpa to have his crew clean up the mess. But then an idea sparks in his mind. The apocalypse is just getting started, right? Why not let these bodies rot here? They'll make for some excellent zombie target practice later. So he calls off the cleanup. The bodies stay right where they are. But what our boy doesn't know is that Shuang is on his way along with Qijing and her so-called bestie. Qijing is visibly annoyed by her friend's constant flirting with the big oaf. At long last, they pull up to the fortress. Qijing tries to bring her friend along, but she suddenly gets cold feet. She has to come. She's the only one who knows which factory is Xiaoyang's. When she refuses, Qijing just ignores the whining and drags her out of the car. As the two girls approach, Shuang signals his team to get into position for the main event. On his signal, he'll ram the gate and the rest of his team will storm the place. Back with the girls, the snake of a best friend wants to know why she was forced to come. Qijing reminds her they're cut from the same cloth. She knows exactly what she's plotting. The friend gives a lame excuse, saying she's just acting that way to manipulate Xiaoyang. Then, they both freeze, staring at the ground littered with corpses. You don't need to be a detective to know a massive shootout just happened here. They're both completely terrified. Their first instinct is to run, but then it clicks. This group must have also been after Xiang's supplies. This makes them wonder. Did Xiaoyang die in the battle? Not that they really care, as long as his supplies are still up for grabs. They consider running back to get Xu Jiang. But Qijing decides they should press on and try to sneak inside themselves. The girls reach the main gate, but it's a thick, sealed fortress. There's no way they're getting through. A new thought appears. What if Xiaoyang actually survived? From a tower above, Shanshan's voice cuts through the air, asking who they are. They immediately put on a friendly act, pretending to be our boy's best friends. Shanshan quickly reports to Xiaoyang, which only makes Qijing fume. She thinks he's already found a new girl. Her friend warns her to drop the jealous act. They're dealing with armed people here. But Qijing is confident Shuang can handle it. He brought his own guns after all. The only real obstacle is the gate. Once they're past that, it'll be a walk in the park. Xiaoyang comes over to see for himself, wondering what on earth Qijing and Wen Shuya are doing here. Without a second thought, he activates his Eye of Insight to check their true intentions. On the surface, they're all smiles and sweetness, but his skill reveals nothing but distrust and malice. They put on a show of concern, but our boy just scoffs at their pathetic little act. He doesn't stop there, casually calling out the fatso Shuang and his goons hiding in the shadows. The two witches are completely shook their faces, a perfect Pikachu meme. Without another word, he fires a warning shot. Qing and Wen Shuya are floored. They can't believe he'd actually go this far. The best friend keeps her cool, reminding Qingjing that freaking out won't help against a guy with a gun. But where's the fun in that? A quick death would be a mercy they don't deserve. Suddenly, one of the corpses on the ground twitches, then rises as a full-blown zombie. And he's not alone. It's that crazy virus from the news, bringing the dead back with a vengeance. And our hero just smirks. This is exactly what he wanted to watch them get torn apart by the undead. Qingjing and Wen Shuya absolutely book it. They sprint for their lives, desperately trying to reach Shuang, who's clueless, until he sees the zombie horde chasing them. The two of them are practically crying, begging their big boss to save them. Shuang definitely didn't plan on meeting the infected out here. Time for a change of plans. He orders his men to fall back, leaving the two women as zombie bait. But Qingjing is too full of rage to go down. In a flash, she hurls her purse at her own bestie, tripping her flat on her face. Helpless and on the ground, the zombies descend. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and she's the main course. As she's being ripped to shreds, Wen Shuya screams a final curse at Qingjing, promising her a fate even worse. Meanwhile, the backstabber makes a run for it, completely convinced she made the right choice. As this horror show unfolds, Xiaoyang gets a system notification. Another threat eliminated. Shanshan, however, is just traumatized. And with that, a new mission pops up: clear out the remaining zombies near the base. Shan Shan can't process it. The virus actually brings people back from the dead. The apocalypse, it's really here. Xiaoyang explains that mutations will become common, and anyone infected will turn even after they die. Realizing his team needs a briefing, he calls an emergency meeting. Cut to the meeting room where everyone is gathered to figure out their next move. Xiaoyang lays down the law: stay sharp, lock this place down, and let your bodies adapt to the viral source. If they adapt successfully, the risk of mutation drops. But Jiang Qi is still freaking out about his injured buddy. Chen Chong is laid up in the infirmary, but it's not looking good. The infection is winning. Outside, the city burns. The world is descending into pure chaos. Elsewhere, a man named Jiang Shengji tells his family to lock the doors. He's heading to his warehouse for supplies. His number one rule: don't open the door for anyone. Right on cue, a loud banging starts. He signals his family to be quiet, grabbing a golf club as he creeps toward the door, ready to tee off on any zombie's head. But he sees it's just Yong Tao and lowers his guard. Worst mistake ever. Yong Tao brought his whole crew to jump his former boss. They immediately beat him to the ground. After all the kindness he showed him, this is how his own employee repays him. Of course, Yong Tao sees it differently, claiming he was treated like dirt the whole time. Jiang Shengji can't believe it. He even paid the guy's down payment on a house. But gratitude isn't in this dude's vocabulary. Yong Tao just scoffs, saying his boss is so rich it was practically pocket change to him. He's here for one thing: the warehouse keys. When the boss refuses, the scumbag goes straight for his family. Yong Tao grabs the wife by her hair. The little boy screams at him to let his mom go, but what can a kid do? The monster doesn't hesitate to slap the child across the face. Jiang Shengji absolutely loses it, roaring at him for touching his family. Being the total piece of trash he is, Yong Tao gives an ultimatum: cooperate or they get hurt worse. Next thing you know, they've dragged him all the way to the warehouse. He unlocks the door, but when they get inside, Yong Tao's face falls. The place is practically empty. The boss just smiles. Their best client, Shiaoyang, bought them out completely, right down to the expired snacks. Their supplies were practically hitting rock bottom. But the name Shiaoyang sparks a dangerous idea in Yong Tao's mind. If they could just snatch the goods from our hero, they'd be feasting for the next 10 years. Of course, the boss knows that's a terrible plan. He's clashed with Xiaoyang before and knows the guy is no pushover. He even suspects our hero knew about the apocalypse beforehand and prepared for everything. So Yang Tao cleverly dodges the mission and forces his old boss to do the dirty work instead. Jiang Shengji is totally confused until the scumbag threatens his family. Now, if he fails to get Xiaoyang's supplies, they'll take it out on his wife and child. The poor guy is trapped between a rock and a hard place. Back at the fortress, things are looking bad for Jiang Qi's friend. He's turned into a mindless animal, completely feral. The group watches in despair as their friend becomes this pitiful creature. Finally, Yiming cuts through the silence, suggesting they end his misery. His cold logic immediately makes Xiaoyang suspicious again. Jiang Qi can't believe what he's hearing from Yiming. But the guy is dead serious, arguing there's no point keeping an infected person around. In his eyes, they're already dead. And if he ever broke loose, he'd take them all down with him. His words are brutal, but they're true. Xiaoyang agrees there's no cure and no way to bring him back. To test Yiming's resolve, our hero offers him a blade, wanting to see if he has the guts to back up his words. Yiming is startled, then it clicks. Xiaoyang wants him times to kill his infected friend. His entire body shivers at the sight of the steel, as our hero eggs him on. You're the one who wanted a weapon, he reminds him. Now pick it up and give your friend a peaceful end. But before he can act, Jiang Qi snatches the blade from his hand. He understands the heavy weight of this decision and volunteers himself. Our hero warns him, if you do this, you become a murderer. That's not a line you can easily uncross. But Jiang Qi is resolved. He trusts Xiaoyang. Seeing his determination, Xiaoyang nods, allowing him to proceed. The very next moment, the blade is raised, seconds away from delivering the final blow. But shockingly, at the last second, Xiaoyang stops him. Just when they all agreed, he suddenly changed his mind. It turns out Chen Chong's condition is special. Xiaoyang realizes he might still have a use for him. A system alert had just popped up, notifying him of a rare mutation in the zombie. Alone in the room, our hero checks his status. Chen Chong is nothing but a savage beast now. But Xiaoyang is completely unfazed. He gets right in the monster's face and reminds him, you still have one last job to do. The next day, a car slams head-on into a pole. It's the boss who's having such a crappy day. He can't even drive in a straight line. Luckily, he's close enough to the fortress to walk. But then things get worse when a hideous zombie ambushes him. In the struggle, the boss gets a nasty bite on his arm. He shoves the beast down, runs to his car, and grabs a pipe. The man then goes absolutely berserk on the zombie's head. He doesn't stop swinging until the creature's skull is reduced to a pile of mush. But he wasted too much time on one zombie, and now more are closing in. Despite his new injury, he pushes onward towards the fortress. Speaking of which, our hero's crew is locked and loaded. They're all geared up to clear the zombies around the base. Shan is struggling with her bulky protective gear. It's uncomfortable as hell, but it's totally necessary. Shiaoyang warns them that zombies have incredible explosive power. For rookies with no combat experience, it can be overwhelming. He says they can take the gear off later. Outside, they lock onto a single zombie as their first target. Shiaoyang tells his team to get ready. They're in striking range. Suddenly, the zombie spots them and lets out a roar, charging forward. As it barrels towards him, Shiaoyang reminds his team of their training. Cover each other, keep your distance. He easily sidesteps the lunge and shows them exactly how to create an opening after a dodge. The best places to hit are the creature's temples and the nape. Yup, think Attack on Titan. The neck is their weak spot. And look at Fori bravely smashing his weapon right into a zombie's face. Except, instead of a cool slice, he just ends up hurting his own hands. I was just starting to hype him up, and he loses all his cool points in one move. Shiaoyang just sighs. Attacking the skull is useless. It's the dumbest move you can possibly make. That mistake also gives the zombie a perfect opening. Four Eyes barely blocks in time, quivering and praying for backup while the zombie tries to take a bite. At least Shiaoyang was mildly impressed with his desperate defense. Alright, next up is Zhang Qi, who goes straight for the monster's neck. Bullseye. A clean hit on the weak spot. This gives the team an opening to just wail on it. Our boy then reminds everyone one hit isn't enough, you gotta make sure it's dead. Zhang Qi glances back, asking how the newbies are holding up. Our main character just scoffs. They can figure it out. Suddenly, a zombie lunges from his blind spot. Zhang Qi screams, a warning. The mindless beast is just inches away from his shoulder, but even so, Shiaoyang casually spins around and grabs it by the head, showing absolutely zero fear. And of course, this becomes another lecture on situational awareness. The team is just stunned by his god-tier reflexes. Okay, enough of the small fry, let's see what the boss is up to. The boss is over here having a full-blown meltdown, spotting a bunch of vehicles parked right outside his fortress. He starts spiraling, thinking another crew already took out Shiaoyang. Then he overhears voices. He recognizes Xiaoyang's voice and sneaks closer, spying from behind a car to see what's happening. He absolutely can't believe it. Shiaoyang and his team are wiping out zombies like it's a walk in the park. But this poor fool forgot about Shuya's zombified corpse, which crawls out and grabs his leg. Seriously, this girl does not know how to stay dead. She yanks him off his feet, sending him crashing to the ground. Completely defenseless, the boss braces for the end. When suddenly, the zombie's head just explodes. It was Xiaoyang arriving with a perfect hero's entrance. The boss shoves the headless corpse aside as our boy asks what he's doing here. Before he can even explain, Xiaoyang spots the infected bite mark on his arm. He aims his gun right at the boss's head, stating coldly, "You're already a lost cause." The boss begs him, "Wait, just hear me out before you shoot." Xiaoyang is willing to listen, but he's not letting the guy get any closer. Filled with despair, the boss knows his time is up. The clock is ticking until he turns. But the last thing he wants is for his family to suffer the same fate. He reveals that a psycho named Yong Tao is holding his family hostage, demanding Xiaoyang's supplies in return. Now this boss has done some pretty shady things in his life, but he's never stooped as low as this Yong Tao guy. He knows his innocent family won't be spared. That's why he's on his knees begging Xiaoyang to show mercy and save his family. Our protagonist is conflicted. The guy is a selfish jerk, no doubt, but he did help deliver those supplies. What's more is that even though his team is well made, the ratio of men to women is a bit lopsided. Xiaoyang figures some improvements could be made there. He gets even happier when a system mission pops up. Protect the boss's family for a sweet 25 points, on top of his current mission to clear all undead outside the base. Fine. Xiaoyang agrees to take responsibility for the boss's family. Hearing those words, the soon-to-be zombie collapses to the ground, eternally grateful for this act of mercy. But now, it's time. The boss knows he's about to turn, and he'd rather die as a human than a monster. Understanding his grim situation, Xiaoyang orders Shanshan to grab a motorcycle from the storage room. She has no idea what he's planning, but she runs off to get it anyway. As for our hero, he tells the boss to get far away from everyone to a place where no one can reach him. He doesn't explain the plan, but the boss accepts his strange advice without question. The boss thanks him one last time. In the next scene, we see him racing off on the bike. He can feel himself turning, and his final thoughts are only of his family. With him gone, Xiaoyang turns to the mountain of dead zombies. He pours gasoline over them and burns every last one to ashes. The team has officially completed their first real training session. Xiaoyang and his crew were feeling pretty cocky about taking down a few stray zombies. But a small horde or a full-on zombie wave? Yeah, they'd be toast. They need way more practice for that. So, Xiaoyang tells the team to follow him. And surprise, surprise, They're at another one of his storage rooms. Our boy puts the old man on guard duty for the armory because he's heading into the city tonight. Of course, Shanshan's grandpa is practically having a heart attack about him going into that death trap. It sounds completely insane. Jiangqi and Four Eyes even offer to be his backup, but our main character shuts them down flat. This mission is way above their current pay grade. Their job is to hold the fort. With that settled, he's already in his car, locked and loaded for the hunt. For the first time ever, the system store is completely empty, and even the refresh is lagging. This time, he throws down some points for a manual refresh. And bam! He's greeted by a bunch of shiny new loot boxes he's never seen. Among them are a black tech box, a life-saving box, and an ominous armed threat box. Also, every time he manually refreshes, the cost doubles. He's gonna have to be smart about this feature. Shiaoyang decides to risk it all on these fancy new crates. For now, he just buys the black tech supply box, leaving him with only 6 points. He pops it open and discovers a physical enhancement potion. And this one gives a 5-point increase. That's a massive jump from the last one. Aiming for superhuman status, Shiaoyang injects the potion. His body absorbs its power, making him stronger than ever before. Turns out our boy is headed straight for the boss's house. Inside, the man's wife and child are trembling in fear, praying for a miracle. A moment later, Yang Tao and his thugs barge into the room as the defenseless woman asks what they want. This piece of trash smirks, telling her they're here to have some fun while her husband is away. The poor woman desperately tries to fend them off, begging them to leave her alone. We cut back to these thugs, tearing at her clothes without a shred of decency, while her son bravely tries to push one of them away. Right then, a man with a ponytail known as Li shows up. He asks what all the noise is. One of the goons grins, saying they're about to party, and invites Li to join. But Ponytail Guy is all business. The job isn't done, he says, so there's no time to fool around. They need to focus up. The goon gets annoyed, whining about why it's a big deal since they've done this stuff loads of times. Ponytail Li looks like he's about to explode, seeing this idiot just doesn't get it. He reminds the creep that this is Jiang Shenjia's wife and kid they're messing with. He warns him that if she gets desperate and ends her own life, her husband will have nothing left to lose. He'll hunt every last one of them down. But he gives the gorilla a little hope, saying once they've dealt with the husband, they can come back and work her to the bone without a single day of rest. The thug calls Li a party pooper, but agrees to back off for now. With that, the goons finally start to leave. One of them gives her a sickening look, telling her to just wait. The mother and son are left helpless, with nothing to do but cry. As night falls, the streets are crawling with the undead. And through it all, our boy is just cruising in his car. He's taking a moment to process his latest gains. With 13 points in stamina, he's now more than twice as strong as a normal person, and his reaction time is insane. He's weaving through the destroyed streets, drifting around corners like a pro, feeling the adrenaline pump with every turn. The whole area is swarming with zombies, so our boy decides it's time to ditch the car. The city center is just ahead, and driving would be like ringing a dinner bell. Time to go stealth. Just then, he hears roars. He turns to see 2 zombies charging right for him. Our guy doesn't even flinch. He dodges the attack, slams his shoulder into one monster, and sends it flying into the other like a bowling pin. In an instant, he summons his sword and charges back in going full throttle. With a single swing, both zombies lose their heads. They've become nothing more than training dummies for his new power. He's amazed at how easily he's overpowering them now. There's no doubt in his mind he's more than twice as strong as any normal human. On top of that, his instincts are razor sharp. With his enhanced hearing, he can pinpoint that his destination is only about 800 meters away. Meanwhile, a horde of zombies is mindlessly pounding against the glass doors of a grocery store. Inside, the last few survivors are desperately trying to barricade the entrance, piling anything heavy they can find, praying it holds. A terrified kid named Brad asks his dad if this is the end. The father tries to play it cool, saying these freaks can't possibly get in. And hey, even if they do, they'll get to see his mom again. A total win-win. Naturally, this pep talk helps no one, and the kid just wails louder. The nearby officer is speechless at this man's amazing parenting skills. He's seething over the ridiculous nonsense the father just spouted. But the dad just fires back. Hey, if I thought before I spoke I'd be managing a building somewhere. At this point, even the officer is starting to think they're completely doomed. Just as despair sets in, gunshots ring out, a zombie's head explodes, sending the kid tumbling in shock while his dad just stands there utterly confused. The officer tells them to clear the barricade and see who's out there, warning them to be silent. Peeking outside, they see the coast is clear. All the nearby zombies have been taken care of, so they cautiously step out. The kid suddenly yells out, pointing at something. A mutant. His father immediately asks what on earth he's talking about. The son explains it's a leveled-up zombie, way stronger and faster, just like in all his games and comics. The father is completely unimpressed by his son's gamer knowledge. Are you seriously still thinking about games? No wonder your grades are terrible. The officer cuts in, telling the father to shut it. Who the hell cares about grades right now? He urges them to hurry and stay alert before that so-called mutant decides to pop up. By the way, this clueless father's name is Old Song. We'll be calling him that from now on. As they push forward, the officer reminds them again to stay sharp as they make their way towards their base. But when they reach a crossroad, they freeze. Across the street, a lone figure is just standing there. And who else could it be but our main character busy fiddling with his system window? The kid immediately shrieks, "That's the mutant zombie," but the officer, having a few more brain cells, can clearly see he's just another survivor. Looks like their little scene finally caught our hero's attention. He smirks at the kid's wild imagination, telling him he's been playing way too many video games. A wave of relief washes over the officer. Thank God it's a person. He carefully walks over to our boy, saying it's not safe to be alone. He suggests they stick together if they want to make it. He officially invites him to join their group. Shiaoyang, our hero, asks who they are and what they're doing out here. The officer explains they were on a supply run, and that more survivors are holed up at Rangyang Garden. The name Rangyang Garden clicks for Shiaoyang. He remembers that Junyu Mansion should be right around here. Old Song pipes up, confirming it's just across the road. He then tells Zhang to come along, insisting there's safety in numbers. With Officer Lee's gun and their zombie fighting experience, they're sure they can protect him, if only they knew who they were talking to. But our hero doesn't boast. He just humbly agrees to tag along as they cautiously move out. Old Song gets curious and asks Zhang Xiaoyang why he's headed to Junyu Mansion, trying to find someone important. Family, a girlfriend, maybe Zhang simply says yes, and Old Song keeps pushing. Old Song then lays it on him thick, reminding him it's the end of the world. Whoever you're looking for, he says, is probably already dead. You better get ready for that. The officer grimly agrees. If the zombies didn't get them, then the beasts might have. The word beasts immediately piques Zhang's interest, and he asks what he means. Officer Lee explains there's a gang of violent thugs holed up in the Buyu Mountain Villa east of the city. They prey on other survivors. His group had a run-in with them once, and lost many of their own people. The man doesn't elaborate, simply warning everyone that these days you have to be careful of other humans too. Suddenly the kid screams, "Officer, look out!" The cop whips around just in time to see a zombie mid-lunge. He puts it down with a few clean shots. Officer Lee gasps for air, his heart pounding. He seriously thought he was a goner. But the gunshots were like a dinner bell for every zombie nearby, and the officer's face goes pale with panic. Just then, his eyes land on an abandoned bus. Everyone makes a mad dash for it. Zhang Xiaoyang smirks, already 5 steps ahead. Running around like a headless chicken would just attract more of them. But a bus. It's a metal coffin, sure, but a defensible one. The only catch is, if they get cornered, it's game over. After running the numbers, Zhang gives this desperate plan a solid 70 out of 100. As everyone piles in, Officer Lee yells for him to get a move on. In a single leap, Zhang is inside, and Officer Lee slams the door shut right behind him. The officer tells everyone to stay sharp and check the seats for any undead hiding in the back. But the kid yells that the zombies aren't giving up. They're swarming the outside, making Officer Lee grit his teeth. Looks like their quick getaway didn't shake the horde after all. The zombies start drumming against the bus, trying to smash their way in. With every second, more of them show up, and the officer struggles to hold the door. Yeah, this poor guy is definitely not strong enough for this. That's when Zhang casually places a hand on the door and shoves it closed with enough force to send zombies flying back. Officer Lee just stares, his jaw on the floor. He can't believe the insane strength he just witnessed. Zhang then lays out the plan. He'll hold the door, and everyone else should smash the windows and fight back. Surprisingly, the desperate officer agrees. It's time to put a little faith in this mysterious newcomer. In an instant, they shatter the windows, and Old Song immediately starts playing Whack-a-Zombie with the climbers. The others hold on to Old Song, making sure he doesn't take a tumble while leaning out. Officer Lee, however, is being stingy with his ammo. He's saving his last few bullets for a real emergency. Right then, Zhang Xiaoyang pulls out a crossbow and tosses it to the officer. The cop is completely baffled, wondering where on earth he pulled that from. Zhang just shrugs, saying he found it earlier. With their new toy, Old Song and Officer Lee join the fray, clearing out the undead with bolts and brute force. After a tough battle, the last zombie falls. They can finally step out of their temporary metal shelter. The kid is now feeling like a total legend, convinced they just flipped a death sentence into a cakewalk. He's totally sure it's not a coincidence. They must be the chosen ones of this apocalypse. Our guy just rolls his eyes and tells everyone to stay alert and not repeat the same dumb mistakes. Meanwhile, back at the base, everyone's worried about Zhang Xiaoyang's group. Lu Yiming volunteers for the night watch. The guy with glasses immediately gets suspicious, asking why he's suddenly so eager to help. Lu Yiming, clearly annoyed, tells him to shut his trap, insisting he's always been serious about his duties. His friend immediately backs off, wondering why Lu Yiming is so defensive over a little joke. Regardless, Uncle Shang decides that if Lu Yiming is stepping up, everyone else should get some rest to take advantage of his help. Uncle Shang then tells Lu Yiming to wake everyone if anything, and he means times anything times goes wrong. As the night grows quiet, Lu Yiming sits alone, thinking about how late it is. He knows everyone is probably asleep by now, which means it's time to get to his real objective. He wants to take care of business before our main character gets back. At the same time, the old man is fast asleep with the armory key resting right by his pillow. The old man is so out of it he doesn't even stir as Lu Yiming quietly slips into the room. As Lu Yiming reaches for the key, the old man's eyes snap open. Turns out he wasn't as deep asleep as he looked. The old man grunts, "What in the world are you doing?" But before he can say another word, Lu Yiming lands a solid right hook on his jaw. With the key secured, Lu Yiming makes a break for it as the old man screams for him to bring it back. The shouting wakes up the entire base, and the old man yells that Lu Yiming stole the key to the weapons room. They all sprint after the traitor, but the genius throws a bunch of junk in their path to slow them down. And hilariously, everyone just stops. They could easily hop over the tiny obstacles, but they just stand there like NPCs hitting an invisible wall. On his way, Lai Yuming spots the nursery and thinks, might as well go all in. He saunters into the room where Chen Chong, the zombie, is conveniently strapped to a bed. But as he gets closer, the zombie suddenly swings with a free hand. Lai Yuming is shocked that hand was supposed to be tied down. Did they use rubber bands to strap this guy up? But this twist actually makes him smile. It saves him the trouble of untying the zombie himself. Meanwhile, the others finally clear the obstacles, only to find the hallway is an absolute disaster zone. They can't believe Li Yuing went through all this trouble just to unleash their pet zombie. The old man is kicking himself for not realizing what a snake Li Yuming was, but Shan Shan cuts in saying, "Regrets are useless now. They have to deal with the problem at hand. Since all the good weapons are locked away, their only option is to shove this zombie back in its room." Uncle Shang decides to use the strategy Zhang Xia taught them. Be careful, and most importantly, don't get bitten. With that brilliant plan in mind, they cautiously approach the zombie. Zhang Qi immediately grabs the monster by the neck while the others pin its arms. The old man offers his expert contribution by pointing and yelling, "Get him back in there." On a count of 3, they shove the zombie back into the infirmary and slam the door shut. Once it's locked, one of them asks, "Hey, was that a little too easy?" Everyone was thinking the exact same thing. But the old man bursts their bubble, reminding them they wasted too much time. That little brat probably has all the weapons by now. And speak of the devil, Li Yuming appears, asking who the old man is, calling a little brat. And wouldn't you know it, the jerk is holding a gun. He complains that the storeroom only had one weapon, but hey, it's more than enough for them. After this, he'll take all the time in the world to find the rest. Li Yuming points the gun at them, ordering everyone back into the room. Zhang Qi tries to reason with him, reminding him that it was Shiaoyang who saved them all. But Li Yuming just scoffs, saying our hero always acts so high and mighty. Just because he saved us doesn't mean we have to be his slaves. The old man just calls the guy an ungrateful punk. Meanwhile, inside the infirmary, Chen Chong looks like he's brewing up a plan of his own, ready to crash this party. But before that can happen, we cut to Rongxiang Garden. Officer Li is giving our main character precise directions to find Jinyu Mansion. He warns him that the area is a maze perfect for zombie ambushes, so he better watch his step. Officer Li tells Zhang Xiaoyang to return to Rongxiang Garden as soon as he finds his people. He also gives him a pro tip: use the side gate, not the main one. It's much safer. Zhang thanks him, promising to remember the advice as he heads off on his next quest. Someone suggests they should help him out since he did save their lives and all, but Officer Li shoots that down, saying they have no clue what's waiting inside Jinyu Mansion. One wrong move and they're all zombie chow. Another guy asks why they're just letting Zhang walk into a death trap. Officer Li replies that he's warned him as much as he can. All he can do now is feel sorry for the kid. Although he adds they shouldn't forget that Zhang is clearly no amateur. Meanwhile, the area is crawling with zombies. And inside the mansion, the thugs holding Zhang Zhen's family are getting antsy that he isn't back yet. Another goon says he doesn't care. He's been holding back for too long and plans to take it all out on the wife tonight. It seems these morons are actually waiting for a dead man to come home. One of them, however, seems to have a single working brain cell, realizing that Zhang might actually be dead. The other disgusting thug adds that when they grab her, they'll tie her up so she can't try to end things herself. They figure the world could end any minute, so they might as well enjoy the time they have left. Meanwhile, the poor woman trembles in fear overhearing their vile plans. Ponytail, the leader, gives his buddies the go-ahead, but tells them to be careful not to actually kill the woman, especially not while they're doing anything nasty. But just then, Ponytail spots something strange outside. And just like that, the zombies outside mysteriously drop dead. A total mystery to that idiot, but we know exactly who's pulling the strings. Ponytail, our resident genius, peeks outside thinking, could it be a rescue team? But before he can take another step, his life subscription is officially cancelled. He walks out and is met with a swift dagger to the throat. His head goes one way, his body goes the other. Meanwhile, the creeps inside are ready for their prize. They get this disgusting look on their faces as they start unbuckling their belts. They rip the son away from his mother and slap her hard across the face when she screams. The kid gets thrown aside, but this little guy has some serious guts and is ready to fight back. But the thugs just boot him out, slamming the door behind him. Problem solved, right? Just then, Ponytail's headless body finally collapses. The kid is frozen in shock, but the real showstopper is the silhouette in the doorway. No need to panic though, because it's our boy Jiang Shiaoyang making his grand entrance. Jiang looks at the kid and asks if Jiang Sheng is his dad. The boy stutters for a second before nodding. Back in the room, the thugs are tearing at the woman's clothes while she struggles desperately. One of them, feeling extra cocky, slaps her again, telling her to scream for them. But she refuses to make a sound. She won't let her son hear her suffering. The lead scumbag decides it's his turn, but before he can do anything, the door blasts open. One of the goons thinks it's just the brat coming back for more. Before he can finish that thought, his head is sliced clean off. Instant silence. His clueless buddy asks why he's just standing there like an idiot and tells him to kick the kid out. What he doesn't see is that his friend is already headless and about to hit the floor. The others are completely baffled. That's when Jiang Xiaoyang grabs one of them and smashes him against the wall. The dude who was just happily unbuckling his belt stammers, "Who are you, Jiang?" isn't in a talking mood. Instead, he delivers a vicious kick right to the guy's face. Lights out. Permanently. The scene flips back to the fort where Lai Yuming has a gun on everyone. He gives them one last warning to get in the room. The old man tells everyone to just listen to the lunatic for now. But Shanchan isn't having it. The old man insists, saying he'll think of something, but for now they have to obey the guy with the gun. Li Yuming just lets out a disgusting smirk, telling them there's nothing to figure out. He brags that they have no idea how ruthless he can be, and that he's about to establish his dominance, starting with the old man who won't shut up. The other two try to calm him down, but right as they're speaking, they hear a click. The lock on the infirmary door turns and the door swings open, and to everyone's absolute shock, it's Chen Chong. He somehow used the key to free himself. They can't believe a berserker managed to unlock a door. It's clear Chen Chong wants a piece of Liu Ming, and his death glare says it all. Liu Ming quickly aims his gun, determined to put down this gate-opening monster. He pulls the trigger, but it jams. The look on his face screams, "I am so screwed." Before he can react, the monster lunges, tearing him to pieces, and finally ending the reign of the guy who's been a pain for chapters. Not only that, but Chen Chong drags his lifeless body back into the infirmary. Nobody has a clue what's going on. All they can do is stare in total disbelief. Chen Chong then grabs the key, tosses it aside, and locks himself back inside. He leaves everyone just standing there, completely bewildered. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiaoyang has dealt with the trash and frees the wife. He calls the kid over, but the protective mother holds him back, asking what Jiang wants with her son. Jiang doesn't bother explaining. He just tells the kid to come here. The kid trusts him, telling his mom it's okay. Jiang then hands him a dagger and says, "Kill these scumbags." The thugs instantly realize their fate and start begging for their pathetic lives. Even the mother protests that he's just a child, but Jiang says he's not a kid anymore. From this moment, everything changes. He tells the boy that from now on, he is the one responsible for protecting his mother. It was time to find his courage and eliminate the monsters who hurt his mother. The thug's disgusting smirks flashed in his mind. Fueled by rage, he charged the bastards, and in the end put them all down, finally avenging his mom. His mother could only watch in sheer horror as her son was completely consumed by fury. He knew killing them wouldn't bring his father back. Overwhelmed, he asked Jiang if his dad was really gone for good. Sadly, Jiang gave him a solemn nod. The weight of it all was too much. The bloodied knife clattered to the ground. He rushed to his mother and hugged her for dear life, just looking for some comfort. Desperate to protect her son, she begged Jiang to take him away, offering anything in return for his safety. But the boy refused, wanting to stay and protect her. So Jiang just invited them both to tag along. He revealed he'd promised a man named Zhang Shenhe he would keep them safe. With that, the mother and son followed Jiang closely, stepping past the bodies of the defeated thugs. The kid was scared of the corpses, but even more terrified of the monster who killed them. Jiang, cool as ever, just said, "That was me. Oh, by the way, the kid's name is Shuai and his mother is Xiaoli. Just so you know." Suddenly, Jiang held up a hand telling them to stop. Hearing something suspicious, he turned to Xiaoli and asked where Building 8 of Banyan Garden was. The mother pointed out that he was already facing it and wondered why on earth he was asking. The scene shifts to Building 8, where looters are demanding supplies. They swore they would spare everyone if they just coughed up their resources. Inside, our team was holed up, debating if they should believe them. Officer Lee immediately shot that idea down. He knew those animals wouldn't keep their word and would kill all the men. The thugs outside kept on shouting, giving them 10 minutes to cooperate or die. Inside, one woman considered begging them for mercy. but another snapped back, refusing to become a plaything for those animals. The big guy silenced them both, telling them not to worry. He promised they weren't surrendering and told them to guard the hall, confident the looters couldn't get through. Meanwhile, outside, the looter leader was smirking, feeling pretty good about his crew's firepower. His lackey knew, however, that their strength wasn't enough to bust in since the survivors' leader was armed. Not to mention they were all hiding. But the leader just smiled, saying they didn't need to force their way in. Instead, he ordered his men to cut off the water supply and just wait them out. While these geniuses were plotting, Shiaoyang was nearby watching them from the shadows. Shuai innocently asked if they were the bad guys, and Zhang confirmed they were. Which is pretty hilarious coming from the kid who literally just took out 3 grown men with a dagger. You'd expect some serious character development, but nope, he's still got that childish charm. Zhang then reminded Shuai that these were the same kind of trash who bullied his mother, and that's why they had to be dealt with. Meanwhile, Officer Li told everyone to guard the stairs, while he checked on the guys downstairs. Officer Li crept to the window and peeked outside, spotting 7 armed men, 3 of them packing guns. But then, a loud gunshot echoed, catching Officer Li off guard. The rest of the group was totally confused. As we know, however, Shiaoyang was lighting them up with bullets and one of the thugs went down. The others were clueless about who shot them. That's when Officer Li spotted Zhang gun in hand walking forward. My guy just opens fire, and one of the goons takes a direct hit to the head. When they saw him just standing there, they started shooting back with their pistols. But Zhang just kept walking totally unfazed. Not a single bullet came close. He just smirked at these amateurs. He raised his gun, aiming for the boss hiding behind a concrete block, but his bullets just pinged off it. The frustrated boss screamed at his lackeys to start shooting while he had the chance. One of the goons finally stood up straight, determined to take Zhang down himself. But Zhang's aim snapped sideways, the gun's barrel now fixed on the next guy and with a single bullet. He paints the wall red. The squad leader smirks from his cover, thinking our boy must be out of ammo. Feeling cocky, he makes his move aiming straight for Zhang. But Zhang Xiaoyang just gives him an ice-cold stare, standing his ground without a hint of fear. The moment the thug fires, Zhang dodges the shot with inhuman speed. He snatches the gunman's arm and in one fluid motion twists the weapon right under the bastard's chin. Without a second thought, Zhang pulls the trigger, ending him instantly. And just like that, the entire squad of thugs has been cleaned up. Time to loot the boss mob. Zhang starts searching the leader's body for anything useful. Afterwards, he heads into the building, only to find a few stragglers still lurking around. The remaining goons charge at him, desperate to take him down. But Zhang doesn't even flinch. He stays planted, totally unfazed, as 3 quick gunshots echo through the room, each finding its mark. The thugs drop like flies. Watching all this, Shuai is practically vibrating with excitement, blown away by our main character's skills. His admiration level is through the roof. Just then, a system window pops up. New objective: recruit survivors from Rongyang. Completing the mission comes with a sweet reward. Zhang Xiaoyang asks who these people are, and Officer Li explains they're from the Baquishian villas south of the city. Officer Li quickly calls over 2 men in yellow jackets, Lu Cha and Chen Ji, telling them to give Brother Yong the rundown since they escaped from the south. The 2 guys reveal that a heavily armed gang has fortified the Baquishian villas, and they've taken nearly all the survivors from the south. This gives Zhang Xiaoyang pause, triggering a memory from his past life. He wonders if this is where Lai Shuxian and Quijing settlements were, and if this gang is responsible for their fall. He asks the guys if this means Baquishian is the only survivor camp left in the south. The man explains that it wasn't always this way, but the smaller settlements couldn't fight back against the gang's weapons. Whenever they took over a place, they'd kill half the people and kidnap the young women, and anyone who joined them. A dark look crosses Zhang Xiaoyang's face. He knows exactly who's behind this. Noticing his certainty, Officer Li asks him what he means. Zhang points out the 3 thugs he just dropped all had handguns. He tells them to grab the weapons and any spare mags, because more are definitely on the way. He even hands over his own rifle to Officer Li, leaving them with 5 magazines. Zhang explains that the Baquishian crew won't take this loss lying down, but with these weapons, 10 men shouldn't be a problem. He tells them to hold the fort for a couple of days. He'll regroup back home, then return to deal with that trashy crew personally. One of the survivors is in disbelief, asking if Zhang is seriously planning to fight Baquishian. He points out that the gang has dozens of members, if not more, and taking them on is a suicide mission. Officer Li agrees, trying to convince Zhang it's not worth the risk and that they should just find another place. Our boy just reassures him, saying not to worry. He's already got some personal beef with the Baquishian crew. Besides, in a few days, he's coming back with a bigger vehicle to move everyone to the old Tea Leaf City in the east. He's building a base there and says he'll need all the help he can get. With that, Zhang turns to leave, giving a casual goodbye. He takes Xiaoli and Shuai with him. The scene then cuts to a much darker, more ominous location. Bodies are scattered everywhere. A single guard stands watch. This can only be the infamous Baekhuixian. Inside the mansion, we meet the leadership. Wen Gay, the orange-haired boss, demands to know why the Jinyu Entertainment Center supplies haven't been secured yet. Xiaoli, a heavy-set man, pipes up during the meeting saying he already sent men over, and they should be back by now. Little does he know his men have been permanently deleted. Another guy named Kai reminds the fatty that some important people live over at Jinyu Mansion. He warns him that they can't just steal supplies from there without facing consequences. Xiaoli scoffs, saying his men were ordered to bring back anyone they found alive. The boss's face turns thunderous, his disappointment with Xiaoli obvious to everyone in the room. Fuming from yet another failed mission, Xiaoli grovels under Wen's glare, promising to finally get it right while Kaid just smirks. Absolutely loving this train wreck. The second Xiaoli steps out for air, one of his goons sees his foul mood and asks why he looks so crushed. Xiaoli just snaps back, demanding to know if the 7 guys he sent out have returned. His lackey reports that a team went to check an hour ago, and the entire squad has been completely annihilated. The news sends a chill down Xiaoli's spine. He can't wrap his head around how regular people took down 3 armed men. Panicking, he orders his subordinate Taozi to round up every single person who can fight. This time, failure is not an option. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang is finally rolling back to base. The moment Shanshan hears the engine, she knows in her gut that her big brother Yang is back. As Zhang crosses the threshold of his fort, a system window pops up. Mission accomplished. Shanshan greets him warmly, but Zhang's eyes immediately scan the crowd, noticing Lu Ying is nowhere to be seen. My man is absolutely thrilled that his gut feeling about that snake was 100% correct. Everyone is floored to learn Zhang was onto Lu Yiming the entire time. Zhang then points to Xiaoli and Shuai, telling the others to get them settled before meeting him in the infirmary. Once he's alone with his crew, Zhang reveals he knew from day one that Lu Yiming was up to no good. He admits he wasn't positive it was him, but he was certain one of Zhang Qi's buddies was a total scumbag. Zhang Xiaoyang then tosses a huge gun to Zhang Qi. As Bleachhead inspects the ammo, he realizes they're just rubber bullets. The old man's gears start turning, and he immediately asks about the kid Chen Chong who's in the infirmary. Zhang strolls confidently towards the medical bay, casually mentioning that Chen Chong isn't your average zombie. Nope, he's a rare mutant, something our hero had already figured out. He'd tested his theory by asking the zombie to blink 3 times. And to his shock, it actually worked. Zhang explains that post-apocalypse, some infected have a tiny chance of becoming rare mutants. These guys usually have way more brain power and potential than your standard zombie. They might even remember bits of their past lives, making Chen Chong a super-duper rare case. Zhang then swings the door open, revealing Chen Chong standing over the trader's head. The zombie gives a little wave when he sees Zhang. Zhang tells him to quit playing nice, saying there's no need to hold back anymore. It's time to take out the trash. As the mutant starts dragging the snake away, Bleachhead asks if he remembers him. The zombie freezes his foot, faltering as he stares at Zhang Qi. Nobody has a clue what's going through his zombified mind. Suddenly, he swings a fist at Bleachhead, who dodges just in the nick of time. Looks like Chen Chong is just messing with his old pal. Zhang Qi sighs, realizing that even as a zombie, the guy's still a total prankster. Later, Zhang Xiaoyang finds himself staring at his system screen. Yang Qi has unlocked a hidden achievement called Mutual Companion, which dumps a nice load of system points into Zhang's account. Zhang is pleasantly surprised. A hidden achievement? He'll take that bonus any day. Curious, he peeks into the shop and spots something new, a level 2 high-tech supply box. But man, that price tag is steep. Zhang isn't sure about blowing 50 hard-earned points on a gamble. Instead, he decides to pop open his 2 remaining boxes to clear out his inventory. He opens both and scores 2 totally unexpected items. The Lifesaver box gives him an interdimensional infection blocker. It offers a chance to stop otherworldly infections, though it can't reverse a full-blown mutation. But the Armed Deterrent box blows his mind. It contains a Barrett M82 sniper rifle. It even came with a full clip of ammo. Zhang can't believe his insane gacha luck. Not only did a level 1 box drop a game-changing weapon, but that blocker is a legit lifesaver. The thought of preventing someone from turning is a massive deal. This incredible stroke of luck has him feeling invincible. Now he's dying to open that level 2 box, but he knows he has to stay focused on the mission. His current objective is recruiting survivors from Rongxiang Garden, and he's ready to tackle it tomorrow. Outside, Chen Chong unceremoniously yeets the snake out of the fort. Traitors aren't welcome here. As the sun rises, everyone gathers on the training grounds. From the elderly to the kids, every single person is armed and ready for a fight. Zhang laid down a new rule from now on: target practice is a mandatory daily grind. They popped off rounds at bottles, each hit glowing with light. The cans dented impressively, but oddly enough didn't explode. Zhang then turned to Uncle Shang. He told him to get Zhang Qi, rally the crew, and clear out more rooms. He was planning a rescue mission at Rongxiang Garden today. The old man instantly agreed. Jiang also tapped Chen Chong for the escort duty. His mutant zombie power would be a huge asset. A while later, they spotted their ride, an abandoned bus currently swarming with the undead. Jiang cleared the zombies like it was nothing, while Chen Chong yeeted the remaining creatures right out the door. With the bus secured, Jiang tossed Chen Chong the keys. He told him the mask could come off for now, no need to hold back. But he warned him that once they reached Rang, that mask had better be back on, unless he wanted to scare everyone to death. The mutant just grunted in response. Meanwhile, back at Biquishan, Xiaoli was gearing up with his gang of goons heading for that same garden. This time, Xiaoli was leading the attack himself. He was dead set on crushing Rongyang Garden for good. He couldn't imagine losing, not with this much firepower and this many men at his back. Their truck roared to life, peeling out of the compound and gunning it towards Rangxiang Garden. After swiping a zombie-infested bus, Zhang Xiaoyang slid into the driver's seat and got right to it. He spotted more zombies blocking the highway and didn't even consider tapping the brakes. Our boy turned those mindless monsters into road pizza like the absolute unit he is. Using his enhanced reflexes, he drifted the massive bus through a graveyard of abandoned cars like it was his personal racetrack. Over at Rangxiang Garden, the apartment building looked deceptively quiet. Inside, the survivors, led by the ever-reliable cop, Big Bro Lee, were carefully rationing their food, trying to make every bite last. Their quiet meal was shattered by the roar of an engine echoing from below. A kid excitedly thought Brother Xiaoyang had returned for them. But Big Bro Lee knew better. He grabbed his AK-47, motioned for silence, and went to scout the situation himself. Cautiously, he peeked over a windowsill with a perfect view of the street. But what he saw wasn't a savior. It was a squad of thugs, hungry for payback. They were checking their gear, searching for building number 8. Once confirmed, Lu Zong gave the order to move in. Big Bro Lee was sweating bullets. Just when they thought rescue was near, the scumbags from Bichu Mountain had to show up. Old Song aimed his pistol, ready to teach these idiots the same lesson all over again. Now that a few of them had guns, the survivors were feeling a little too brave. Big Bro Lee barked at the wannabe heroes to quit dreaming. They were facing an army that had them beat in every way possible. He reminded them to stick to the plan. He'd set up an ambush from the rooftop. Outside, the Bichu Mountain goons spread out, getting into position to terrorize the building's occupants. Led by Li Shuzhang, they all raised their weapons, taking aim at the windows of building number 8. Old Song glanced outside and immediately screamed for everyone to hit the deck. The morning peace was ripped apart by the thunder of automatic gunfire. Every window in their sights exploded into shards, forcing Old Song to dive for cover. After that first volley, Xu Zhang had a lackey bring him a megaphone. He told the others to keep the windows suppressed while he negotiated. If anyone so much as peeked, they were to be shot. Xu Zhang arrogantly started his speech, demanding the survivors inside listen up. But before he could get another word out, the guy next to him had his brain scrambled by a high-velocity bullet. The thugs froze. A hidden sniper was the last thing they expected. Before they could react, another goon dropped to the ground, clutching a fresh bullet hole in his leg. High above on the rooftop, the muzzle of an AK-47 smoked as the thugs below scrambled for their lives. Big Bro Lee had found the perfect sniper's nest, and his enemies were all in plain sight. The Beachway Mountain Gang's intel was absolute garbage. They were told the survivors had one pistol. Even after looting the 7 idiots who died last time, that should have only been 4 dinky handguns. The panicked thugs looked to their boss for a plan. They were terrified of being picked off by a ghost. His order was simple: retreat. But these guys aren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed. They took that order a bit too literally, scattering like headless chickens instead of pulling back together. And as you might guess, sprinting through open streets with a sniper around is a fantastic way to die. The cop on the roof was a stone-cold killer with that AK. The boss cursed his dumbass lackeys for their suicide run. He counted down from 3, and the rest finally fell back like their lives depended on it. Because they did. While his men became target practice, Boss Lee stayed tucked safely behind a wall. The sniper on the roof barely had to adjust his aim, picking off the fleeing thugs one by one. He was racking up headshots and body shots like it was a video game. From the very beginning, Boss Lee's master plan was to use his men as meat shields until the sniper ran out of ammo. A truly scumbag move. And just as he'd hoped, the sniper had to reload. Xu Zhang's fat ass booked it to the car and made it safely. An entire battalion, now down to just 4 people. And tough luck for the last guy who was a few seconds too slow. Li Shuxiang was already flooring it. He wasn't about to get domed for some disposable goon. Catboy took a high-caliber bullet to the brain. Lights out. The other 2, who were lucky enough to dive into the cargo bed, flattened themselves immediately, terrified of suffering the same fate as literally everyone else in their crew. Back on the main road, Zhang Xiaoyang's magic school bus was still blazing through the freeway like he was playing Mario Kart. Our boy was cool as a cucumber, navigating his way back to rescue his new friends. Considering the roads were basically abandoned, seeing another car speeding towards him was a huge surprise. Shiaoyang could have chased them, but he was focused on the mission. Right now, earning points was his #1 priority. After a few minutes of smooth driving, he arrived in front of building number 8. Chen Chong, the friendly zombie, and Shiaoyang hopped off the bus and immediately saw the aftermath of the battle. The young man was impressed. The rifle he left behind had clearly been put to good use. He instantly connected the dots. The car he just passed must have been the fleeing raiders. Chen Chong stared at the fresh, bullet-riddled corpses scattered on the ground and started drooling, growling like an animal. Xiaoyang just smiled and asked his zombie pal if he was hungry. He gave Chen Chong the green light for an all-you-can-eat human buffet. Better he gets a feast than leaving the meat for the mindless zombies wandering around. The second he got permission, Chen Chong grinned like a kid who was just handed a $20 bill in a candy store. Xiaoyang told the boy to have fun just as long as he met him back at Building 8 after his meal. Chen Chong didn't waste a single moment and sank his teeth into the juicy neck of the nearest dead thug. He savored the taste of blood and flesh. As soon as he swallowed, a powerful new energy coursed through his body. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang strolled through the bloody battlefield like he was taking a leisurely walk in a park. Based on how cleanly the thugs were wiped out, he was impressed with how decisive Li Hongla was when it was time to kill. A kid poked his head out from a broken window, and his face lit up the moment he saw Xiaoyang. After confirming it was their savior, the rest of the survivors appeared enthusiastically, waving him over. With the super cop leading the way, the survivors packed up and met the young man downstairs. Big Bro Li formally thanked Xiaoyang for lending him the counter-strike weapon that saved all their asses. As it turns out, before this dude retired, he was an expert marksman. Their happy reunion was interrupted by a loud, monstrous roar from nearby. It was followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. The survivors froze in absolute terror when they saw what was shuffling towards them. It was their favorite badass zombie Chen Chong, limping over with a strange look on his face. Big Bro Li was the first to react. He grabbed his trusty AK-47 and snapped his aim toward the approaching zombie. Xiaoyang calmly pushed the rifle down and told everyone to chill out, saying this guy was one of them. He claimed the beast was on their side, but no one was buying that ridiculous story. I mean, can you really blame them? Xiaoyang pointed to the all-you-can-eat corpse buffet nearby, telling his pet zombie to get his fill. Big Bro Li was both amazed and horrified. He stuttered, asking if Xiaoyang could somehow talk to zombies. The young man just said Chen Chong wasn't your average zombie. It's complicated, so he told everyone to hop on the bus, promising to explain on the way. As they headed for the bus, Xiaoyang told his zombie pal to eat up and get back quick. Chen Chong just flashed an OK sign, too busy with his gory feast to care. After stuffing every last one of the Beachway Mountain thugs into his gut, Chen Chong casually grabbed his muzzle and snapped it back on. The survivors just stared, unable to process the insane scene before them. The kid couldn't wrap his head around it. How could a mindless monster be self-aware enough to put on its own muzzle? Xiaoyang warned the kid not to let Chen Chong hear him call it a muzzle unless he wanted to get slapped. Loki, the kid, was starting to think this mutant zombie was actually kinda cool. After his one-man banquet, Chen Chong hopped onto the bus like a totally normal dude. But after eating so many people, he'd bulked up quite a bit. The whole bus groaned and tilted to one side the second he stepped on. This time, Chen Chong even managed to grunt out a few slurred words as he handed the muzzle key back to his bro. Even Xiaoyang was shocked. He never expected Chen Chong to start talking this soon, even if it was just a single word. He ate a total of 6 bodies. He must be evolving again. But right now, Xiaoyang's main goal was getting home to cash in his points and upgrade the base. He jumped into the driver's seat, telling everyone to buckle up because he was about to go from 0 to 100 real quick. Meanwhile, back at the Beachway Mountains, HQ Lai Shuzhang had to report his epic failure to the higher-ups. He got an earful for being a useless idiot who couldn't get a simple job done. He tried to argue his case with Boss Lin, claiming he was sent in with bad intel, and it wasn't his fault. Nobody told him the survivors were packing automatic rifles. Boss Lin wasn't buying his pathetic excuses. I mean, let's be real, a small-town cop with an automatic rifle in this country, it sounded completely unbelievable. The big boss was insulted that Shuzhang would cook up such a ridiculous lie, but the guy stood his ground, asking them to send someone to the battlefield to prove he wasn't lying. The boss's right-hand man had heard enough and kicked the moron to the floor. That was Lai Shuzhang's cue to scram. Turns out Mr. Right Hand had been sick of Shuzhang's incompetence for a long time. Since the fool cost them a ton of men, he figured they could just solve the problem at its source by killing the idiot. But another executive, Boss Shu, called out the real reason for his grudge. This creep right here had been eyeing Shuzhang's girlfriend for a while. The slimy fox suggested they just share the girl after they get rid of him like she's community property. Boss Lin just smiled. He liked the idea, but told them not to be hasty. They had to wait for the perfect moment. But little did these scumbags know, Lai Shuzong hadn't actually left. He was right outside the door listening to their disgusting plan. He gritted his teeth, consumed by rage. This dude really needs to get out of this snake pit. A few hours later, he was back at his fancy house throwing an epic man-baby tantrum. Frustrated with his own failure, he started smashing up his own place like a complete moron. His girlfriend ran out to see what was wrong, trying to calm the fat loser down. He just told her to start packing their bags because they had to leave immediately. She asked where they would go, but he had no answer. All he knew was that this place wasn't safe for them anymore, and they needed a new plan. Boss Lee called his assistant Qingzi, who came running like a good little dog. He ordered him to gather their remaining men for a midnight departure. His girl could tell something was seriously wrong, and she had a very bad feeling about it. Anyway, back to the characters who actually matter. Shiaoyang pulled up to his base, parking the giant bus in one of their huge indoor garages. The survivors from building number 8 stepped out their jaws, dropping at the incredible scale of Shiaoyang's apocalypse fortress. With everyone safe and sound, the survivor recruitment mission was officially complete. The system tasked him with rescuing 5 people, but he came back with 8. On top of the 25-point reward, he got 5 bonus points, bringing his new total to a nice 66. Xiaoyang told his zombie pal the plan. Tomorrow night they'd hit the southern district, just the 2 of them. Big Bro Lee, ever the eavesdropper, piped up asking what was so special about the southern district. The young man played it cool. He just had some old scores to settle with the folks at Bichu Mountain Villa. As night fell, Xiaoyang barricaded himself in his room, eyeing a shiny level 2 high-tech supply crate worth 50 points. He finally had enough. Without a second thought, he smashed that purchase button, eager to see what his first level 2 prize was. The second he redeemed it, his points plummeted down to just 16. A blinding light engulfed his body as Xiaoyang prayed the gacha gods wouldn't screw him over. And, for once they listened. The level 2 crate delivered big time, gifting him a physical enhancement serum. This massive syringe was packed with a miracle drug that could boost his physical power by 20 points. With zero hesitation, he slammed that needle straight into his arm and let the juice flow. The pain was way worse than he expected. But now his physical stat was at a solid 33. That made him over 6 times stronger than an average person. And it wasn't just about raw muscle. His senses were now razor sharp. He felt a mosquito buzzing and snatched it clean out of the air by its stinger. This new super reflex was definitely going to come in handy during a fight. He released his death grip, and the terrified mosquito zipped out of the room. It was safe to say Xiaoyang was thrilled with his reward. At sunset, he went on his usual patrol with Brother Chong around the base. In an open yard, he saw Li Hongli running shooting practice. After a quick look, Xiaoyang headed for the south of the city. But first, he formally asked the old cop to take over the training, since he was easily their best sniper. Old Li proudly accepted the job, thrilled to put his specialty to good use. With that sorted, Xiaoyang walked and Brother Chong limped their way to the bus. While their bus was breaking every speed limit known to man, trouble was brewing at the enemy camp. That useless gangster, Liu Xiang, PM Cell, was already planning his escape, feeling the heat closing in. Unfortunately for him, his genius escape plan was about to go up in flames. The big bosses from Bichu Mountain Villa rolled up to his driveway, blocking every exit. And in the lead car was a very familiar, treacherous face. With a smug smile and a gun in his hand, Boss Shu confronted Boss Liu about his late-night travel plans. Like a pro, Boss Liu spun a lie on the spot. He claimed he was just gathering his men to sneak into Rangxiang Garden and finish the job. But no matter how smooth he was, his lies weren't working this time. One of his own men had already been caught and spilled his guts. Everyone on Boss Liu's team instantly recognized the snitch's lifeless body, still trying to look innocent. Boss Liu pretended he'd never seen the corpse in his life, hoping his dumb act was convincing enough. Tired of the performance, Boss Shu gave the order, and his men showered the traitors in a storm of bullets. Boss Liu could only stand there and tremble as he watched his men get wiped out one by one. Right up to the end, he kept playing dumb. Luckily, Boss Shu knew exactly how to shatter his act. He told Liu Xiang to take a good look at the passenger sitting in their car. The gangster caught a glimpse of karma personified. Qiu Jing, the witch who always betrays her way to the top, had done it again. Boss Kai just couldn't believe this idiot. The moron was still acting dumb even after Qiu Jing had ratted out their entire escape plan. He really should have seen it coming. That girl latched onto him right after making Xiaoyang's life a living hell. Of course she was going to betray him too. Finally, Boss Kai looked to Boss Zhang for the final order. Boss Zhang gave a silent, casual nod, sealing Liu Xiang's fate. The method they chose was nothing short of barbaric. They threw a noose around the fat man's neck and had their strongest goon pull until he took his last defiant breath. It was a miserable and painful way to die. His corpse was left hanging at the gates of his own mansion as a grim warning. Under the cloak of darkness, a bright blue bus pulled over nearby. Xiaoyang and Brother Chong crept toward their target, only to find out they were a little too late to the party. The plan was to take out Lu Zong tonight, but someone beat them to the punch. The scum definitely had it coming. Still, Shuzong hated missing out on the kill. He flicked a single pebble from the ground, sending it flying with deadly precision. The rope snapped. Watching this loser's pathetic end gave Xiaoyang a great idea for his own entertaining revenge plot. Meanwhile, back at the Boyi Mountain Villa, nasty screams echoed from the top floor. Kui Jing thought she could betray her way to the top. Turns out she was dead wrong. Her snitching only got her a one-way ticket to a den of sadists. To Boss Jiang, she was just a toy to be passed around. A twisted prize for him and his partner. Truly disgusting individuals. Luckily, their judgment day was just around the corner. Boss Kai glanced out his penthouse window and froze. His guards were scattered below, all dead. Then a loud banging rattled his door. But it was just a distraction. The real threat was already inside. With a knife in hand, Xiaoyang looked like the Grim Reaper himself. Boss Kai felt that chilling steel press against his throat. One wrong move, and it would all be over. No time for last words. A swift slice, and Kai was choking on his own blood. One down. Boss Jiang was floored. 1 second he was doing that thing. The next, his partner in crime was a corpse on the floor. Kui Jing, however, recognized the killer instantly. It was Zhang Xiaoyang. Not wasting a moment, he launched the knife. It flew true, and Boss Jiang died, pants down with his throat wide open. The second, his body crumpled, Kui Jing let out a blood-curdling scream. But she wasn't delusional enough to think he was her savior. No, his presence only brought a deeper, colder dread. Xiaoyang gave her one last look of pure contempt and headed for the door. He calmly unlocked it, wondering what that trash Li Shu would think. The door swung open, revealing the mutated fatty. The gangster was long gone. Now only a mindless, flesh-hungry beast remained. It lunged right for Kui Jing's neck. The witch begged for her life, but her pathetic cries were completely ignored. With his revenge complete, Zhang Xiaoyang simply closed the door on the pair who'd betrayed him in his past life. Outside, he met up with Brother Chong to handle the cleanup. All these dead guards would make a fine meal for his mutant buddy. But Brother Chong was still stuffed from their last outing. Tonight, he could probably only manage one body. Hey, it's better than nothing. While Brother Chong enjoyed his snack, Xiaoyang's enhanced hearing picked up something interesting nearby. In a building just outside the villa, a group of terrified survivors were being held captive. Watching them was a monstrous chef and his creepy goon. The goon snatched a little girl, planning to make her tonight's special. But the chef just scoffed. The little girl was way too scrawny for his tastes. He wanted the plump little boy clinging to his mother. The chef dragged the child away as his mom pleaded desperately. Tired of her protests, the chef simply swatted the woman aside. The mother could only cry and beg for her son's life. It was all she could do. She looked to the other survivors for help, but they all turned away, just glad it wasn't them. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. 3 huge holes blasted through the entrance. The guards instantly raised their weapons. As far as they knew, only their bosses had guns with that kind of power. The gunshots saved the boy for now. As the ruined door creaked open, the guards took aim. A few seconds passed, but nothing happened. Getting impatient, the chef yelled for a guard to check it out. The man cautiously peeked through the doorway. The moment he was in range, a hand shot out and grabbed him by the neck. One down without even being seen. Seeing that monstrous arm, the guards panicked, thinking it was a zombie attack. Without hesitation, they opened fire, wasting every last bullet on thin air. Brother Chong just toyed with them, zipping around the room too fast for their pathetic aim to follow. When the shooting finally stopped, Brother Chong smashed through a boarded-up window. The planks splintered like nothing. His eyes locked onto the chef right in the center of the formation. Brother Chong didn't even break his stride, snapping the chef's neck in midair. He landed and immediately launched himself toward the next goon. In just a few seconds, the untrained thugs were completely wiped out. Once Brother Chong's deadly dance was over, the survivors he'd just saved were cowering in absolute terror. A zombie had just stormed in to murder all the bad guys, but left all the captives untouched. As the dust settled, Xiaoyang casually walked in, giving Brother Chong a thumbs up. Nice moves even with the mask on. The mutated badass replied hoarsely that the mask makes everything look cooler. And you know what? He's not wrong. Brother Chong for president, maybe. But hearing a zombie talk just freaked the survivors out even more. Kids buried their faces in their mothers' chests, and everyone kept a very, very wide berth. Xiaoyang broke the awkward silence, assuring them, "Don't worry, Brother Chong is friendly." But a little girl wasn't buying it. She'd seen super monsters like him kill everyone without a second thought. That little comment immediately caught Xiaoyang's attention. He knelt down and gently asked what she meant. She whispered about super monsters. The girl's mother explained they'd seen another special mutant back in Day City. This was bad. Xiaoyang thought he had at least another month. To make things worse, Day City was dangerously close to their base camp in Old Tea Leaf Town. He gave Brother Chong a quick warning about another potential rare mutant nearby. You see, some mutants get to keep their memories and sanity, which makes them way more dangerous than a normal zombie. The downside is that unstable mutations almost always lead to pure, uncontrollable violence. Hearing about the dark path he could go down made even Brother Chong a little anxious. Noticing his friend's concern, Shiaoyang slapped his back. "Hey, you're one of the lucky ones. And with me around, you'll stay sane." Shiaoyang then turned to the survivors and asked if there was anyone else trapped in the villa. They said a few were locked in the sales office and the basement. They decided to check the basement first, since it was closer. When Shiaoyang cracked open the steel door, the stench of blood hit them like a physical blow. Everyone recoiled from the gruesome scene hidden behind that door. This was the Villa Bastard's personal slaughterhouse. No wonder there were no other survivor camps anywhere near here. Still, the sheer number of victims just didn't add up. A few survivors mentioned seeing the goons regularly transport large amounts of mystery meat out of the city. Looking at the bodies, Shiaoyang could guess the kill count. With this much product, they had to be involved in something much bigger. Since the basement was clearly not a 5-star hotel, the only place left to check was the sales office. It was about a kilometer away from their position near the south gate. This was where new arrivals were processed. Anyone deemed useless was sent straight to the basement butcher shop. Suddenly, a notification popped up for Shiaoyang. A new mission series, Subpar Utopia. The goal was to expand and improve his community score. The goons at the sales office, meanwhile, had no idea their little kingdom had already been overthrown. They'd heard some gunshots earlier, but just figured the bosses were having fun with some live target practice again. Cloaked by the darkness, Brother Chong easily took care of the pathetic security detail. Inside, they found a few unfortunate women. Judging by the scene, it was easy to guess the horrors they'd endured. They heard the fight outside. Some had already given up hope, while others still had a little fire left in them. When the door finally opened, it wasn't some sleazy thug, but a young man with a sharp, determined look in his eyes. Shiaoyang led the women out, adding them to the large group of survivors he'd rescued that night. They walked out of the building, the ground littered with the corpses of the morally bankrupt guards. The young man promised them all a safe haven, a real home to replace this hell on earth. There was only one rule: everyone had to work and contribute to making the community better. For people who had just escaped the tyranny of the villa, literally any other option sounded like paradise. With everyone in agreement, Shiaoyang led them to his ride, and they all piled onto the bus. Thankfully, he'd been smart enough to bring a big vehicle this time. Before long, they arrived back at the base camp. Shanchan and Zhangqi were waiting for their return. Seeing the boss hesitate at the gate, Zhangqi held his position waiting for the plan. Shiaoyang unveiled his new sanctuary to the survivors. But he wasn't just letting anyone in. In this new world, a little paranoia keeps you breathing, and thankfully, they all understood. For now, they'd be crashing in temporary prefab houses guarded by iron fences. It wasn't the main fortress, but compared to the rest of the city, this place was a 5-star resort. The old town had plenty of unfinished buildings and open space. With time, this place would be a real paradise. Seeing his sincerity, the survivors couldn't help but thank their new savior. As a new day dawned, a fleet of vehicles thundered up to Butte Mountain Villa. The fleet's lady boss was already running out of patience. That worthless Jiang Qingwen wasn't answering any of her calls. Her gut told her something was very wrong. So, the boss lady stepped out to see for herself. And just as she expected, she was greeted by a lovely scene of blood, gore, and decay. The bodies from last night had already reanimated into mindless puppets. Among them was the familiar face of Li Shuxiang. He roared, attacking the living on pure instinct. The lady boss barely gave the creature a passing glance. She crushed them effortlessly with her bare hands, then pulled out a knife and began carving them up. With the building crawling with undead, it was clear her lieutenants were dead too. This was a huge blow to their human meat supply chain. Someone had to clean this up, but first they needed to find who was responsible for this mess. And blood would definitely be shed. A full sweep confirmed it. Not a single living person was left. They immediately reported back to Lady Boss Rui. The good news: there was still plenty of product left for the day's shipment. All her men had to do was load the bags of meat onto the truck. Meanwhile, Boss Rui considered her revenge. Surveying the scene, she discovered tire tracks leading away from the villa. A perfect trail to follow the man who wrecked her operation. Back at the fortress, Shiaoyang was reviewing his latest mission. Despite welcoming so many new people, his community score was still stuck at a pathetic 2 points. He figured a larger population should be the key, right? Luckily, he had plenty of land to build on. That snobby guy who sold him the deed actually did him a huge favor. But there was another, more pressing matter. The rare mutant that had appeared in the neighboring town. Taking Shanshan and Zhangqi with him, the boss went to the prefab area and was welcomed like a hero. After settling into homes with actual amenities, some survivors even dropped to their knees in gratitude. Xiaoyang was just there for info on that super monster. The mother explained they saw it at Horenfa Market in Decor City. Their group had been looking for supplies when they stumbled upon the creature. People were torn apart as she grabbed her daughter and made a run for it in the chaos. They got separated and ran without stopping until they reached Bui Mountain Villa. They thought they'd found salvation, only to fall into a den of even worse monsters. Now that he had the location, Shiaoyang was ready to roll. Shanshan and Zhongyi immediately tried to talk him out of this crazy risk. They argued they had more than enough supplies. But he wasn't going for a supply run. Decor City was less than 2 kilometers away. He couldn't just ignore a major threat lurking right on his doorstep. Hearing his plan, the survivor who actually saw the monster begged him not to go. Shiaoyang just assured everyone he knew what he was doing. He just needed Brother Chong to go pay the creature a little visit. Right now, a group of pretty capable-looking survivors was scouting that same market for supplies. They found a giant supermarket and got excited about the potential haul. It's always wise to lower your expectations. That supermarket was probably already picked clean. The survivors walked into the supermarket confident they could handle anything. They were immediately swallowed by total darkness. Once their eyes adjusted, they saw the place had been looted, but there was still stuff left. To scout for other people or zombies, the group cleverly started making noise. Then they went silent, listening for any sign of movement. Seconds later, a few zombies shuffled out, but the stragglers were calm. They dealt with the undead like seasoned pros. With practiced care, the squad made short work of the monsters. Honestly, they were just relieved to see a few zombies. It seemed the main horde had been lured away by the last poor souls who tried to raid this place. But this was an experienced crew. They never let their guard down while scavenging. Little did they know a far smarter beast was lurking in the shadows, watching them like a hunter cornering its prey. Pushing deeper into the supermarket, they felt like they'd hit the jackpot, enough supplies to last for years. While the others drooled over canned goods, their leader found herself drawn to a pristine bed display. For a moment, she let her guard down, gleefully flopping onto the soft mattress. Some even joked about making this place their new home. It had everything they could ever want. While the group explored, 2 senior members stepped out for a smoke. They knew as much as they wanted it, this mall was a death trap. This place is a nightmare to defend. Too many entrances. And with a stockpile this huge, it would be a magnet for every raider in the city. Thankfully, a 2-story building nearby looked much more defensible. Too bad settling down requires being alive. The hunter finally emerged from the shadows. It was time to feast on living flesh. One of the scavengers managed to scream for help, catching everyone's attention. He bolted back inside, but there's no outrunning a super mutant. The beast's claws pierced through his back and burst from his chest. In one brutal fluid motion, the mutant ripped the man apart like wet paper. The survivors froze in absolute terror. Someone screamed, "Retreat!" but their legs had turned to jelly. They fought the fear and forced themselves to move. Their pathetic attempt to escape was a tragedy in motion. They fell one by one, the slowest runners picked off first. Every step was a prayer for survival, but the apex predator was closing in. A few seconds passed. Only a few meters were gained. In a flash, everyone was slaughtered except for the girl boss. She ran without looking back the exit, and the light of the outside world finally in sight. She pushed with every last ounce of her strength. Unfortunately, running from death in high heels is not exactly a winning strategy. At this point, that's just on you. The super mutant loomed over her, savoring the fear of the creature that had just eaten her friends. She cried out, raising her arms in a futile attempt to shield herself. But when she looked up, she saw a different super mutant. This one had a seriously cool mask. Instead of tearing her to shreds, this guy just walked right past her. Behind the masked mutant, a young man appeared, telling her not to be afraid. That's right, Zhang Xiaoyang and his crew had arrived just in time to save the final girl. To her shock, she recognized him. He was the kid who bought a massive property from her agency before the world ended. He recognized her too. If he remembered correctly, her name was Ning Wanwan. Their fateful reunion was cut short by the wet sound of tearing flesh. Wanwan warned him about the monster rampaging through the mall, but he just calmly assured her it was being handled. She turned around and saw 2 inhuman beings locked in a tense standoff. The mall mutant saw Brother Chong as a rival. But to our boy, this thing was just another obstacle to be crushed. For both of them, this was the first time they'd ever met another of their kind. They were both thrilled to finally test their strength against a fellow freak. The mall mutant struck with its long claws, missing Brother Chong's family jewels by inches. He cackled, wondering if eating another mutant would trigger some kind of power-up. While the freak was laughing, Brother Chong unleashed a devastating roar of a strike. The force was so immense, it slammed the mall mutant's head straight through the tiled floor. Okay, playtime was over. The freak was forced to take this masked opponent seriously. Brother Chong raised his foot over the monster's head. In this situation, kicking a guy while he's down is completely justified. But unfortunately, the naked freak was fast rolling out of the way just in time. With that same twisted laugh, the mutant thanked the humans who fueled his evolution, allowing him to grow stronger every single day. Brother Chong's instincts screamed of incoming danger. The mall mutant launched itself at him, looking more savage than ever. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged dozens of earth-shattering blows. For the first time, Yoongi saw Brother Chong losing ground, and he started to worry. Shiaoyang, on the other hand, was grinning. If they'd let this mall mutant level up any longer, it might have become an actual final boss. To tip the scales, the young man stepped in and manifested an AK-47 out of nothing. He casually told Brother Chong to hold the beast down for just a single second, so they could finish this up. As always, the ultra-reliable super mutant obeyed, focusing on locking the monster down and negating its speed. The roar of gunfire echoed through the mall. A single bullet tore through the monster's forehead, cracking its skull and turning its brain to mush. However, one little headshot isn't nearly enough to stop a super mutant's rampage. Still, that bullet definitely got its attention. The beast instantly switched targets to the gunman. Jungi's jaw dropped. He'd never seen anything survive a clean shot to the dome. If one bullet won't work, then how about 100? Time to switch to full auto and let the magic happen. High-caliber rounds began tearing huge chunks out of the mall mutant. The beast looked like moldy green cheese before it finally fell twitching as the last of its life faded away. Xiaoyang suggested that Brother Chong should eat the super mutant. You never know, it could trigger a huge power-up. To the young man's surprise, eliminating a threat like this also boosted his community score and advanced his current mission. And since they were in a completely untouched supermarket, they might as well do some shopping. It'd be a waste to leave empty-handed. This was a perfect job for Xiaoyang's storage ability. Who needs trucks when you can just suck everything into a separate dimension for easy transport? It's a bit grim, but instead of letting these straggler bodies turn into zombies, they might as well be dessert for Brother Chong. Meanwhile, while the cat was away, some rats came out to play. Boss Rui and a few of her lackeys followed the tire tracks to scout the enemy's location. From a safe distance, they carefully analyzed the stronghold's defenses. Boss Rui's right-hand man concluded that they had a decent number of people, but terrible weapons. Their only real advantage was that tough warehouse. If that was all they had, it was a real head-scratcher how they defeated Jiang Chunjun and Lin Guangkai, and the entire Bichu Mountain Villa. Boss Rui guessed they must have used some dirty tricks, probably lured a zombie horde or something. Overflowing with arrogance, Boss Rui thanked the heavens for serving her such juicy prey on a silver platter. For now, their plan was to return, regroup, and gather all their forces before launching a surprise attack. With that, the scouts turned around and left. Heading in the opposite direction, Xiaoyang's group was on their way back. Jungi was telling Wanwan that their base camp has mattresses and even hot showers. In this day and age, seeing other cars on the highway is a very bad sign. The group tensed, readying their weapons. 2 cars were speeding towards them from the opposite direction. Neither group slowed down, but for a split second, Xiaoyang and Boss Rui locked eyes, their auras clashing. A new mission was triggered. For Villain Nemesis Volume 1, Xiaoyang had to resist the invasion for a reward of 50 points. He had a gut feeling that the invaders were the sketchy people in those cars. To confirm, he found Shan in the watchtower and asked if she saw any suspicious activity around their perimeter. The young woman said a car had passed by far in the distance, but it never got close enough to raise any red flags. That was all the confirmation Xiaoyang needed. He immediately called for Uncle Shang and Old Li to gather everyone for an important meeting. Meanwhile, at the southern suburbs coal plant, business was going great. Lured by a choppy radio broadcast, a new group of survivors was trekking toward the plant. The broadcast advertised a safe zone, a settlement looking for able-bodied workers. The survivors, however, were on high alert. People who've survived this long are never careless. At last, they spotted a car driving toward their destination. The car pulled over. It was Boss Rui and her goons fresh from their scouting mission, ready to welcome the survivors fooled by her broadcast. The second the survivors laid eyes on her. Assets. All their common sense flew out the window. They immediately wanted to be part of whatever she was building. And Boss Rui knew exactly how to use her womanly charms to lower their guard. With a disarming smile, she invited the group into her base. As they walked, the survivors exchanged sleazy, knowing glances. They were escorted into the camp and were stunned by how spacious and organized everything was. At last, a place they could call home. But of course, one of the survivors just had times to use the bathroom. Boss Rui graciously offered him their indoor toilet, and the poor idiot completely bought it. She didn't just show him the way, though. Boss Rui stayed and watched the whole show. Her eyes were laser-focused on his equipment, as if she were inspecting it for quality. Taking this as a flirty invitation, the survivor told her to stop being shy and have a taste. He bragged about his performance, but one lightning-fast step and a quick stab shut him up for good. Boss Rui doesn't waste time. The poor bastard never saw it coming. She'd actually considered recruiting him if he was packing some serious heat, but after seeing his little friend, The decision to kill him was easy. Imagine getting offed for being undersized. Outside, her crew had already cleaned house. Every survivor lured by the radio was now bleeding out. Back at the fortress, everyone answered Zhang Xiaoyang's summons. They gathered to discuss the coming war. Old Li scoffed, wondering what moron would be dumb enough to target them. The enemy was a complete mystery, and an attack could come at any second. So Zhang Qi and Brother Chong would stick with the boss to clear the southeast building. They needed a place to stash the refugees and fast. Leaving them in the temporary housing was a death sentence. Shan Shan and a few others immediately volunteered to help. Even the twins, who looked nothing alike, were all in. Swept up in the moment, Lil Shuai volunteered too, earning an eye roll from his mother. Ning Wanwan also eagerly offered to join the clearing operation. While they were out, Uncle Shang and Old Li would hold down the fort. Everyone else was to gear up. And just like that, with Shiaoyang leading a small army, marched out to pave the way for victory. The second they entered the building, all hell broke loose. It was a zombie popping party. This intense hunt was forging them into the killers they needed to be for the war to come. After the first wave, Shiaoyang called for a break to check on everyone. He warned them again, the next few days were going to be rough. Their current mission was to secure this building completely. When the refugees were brought inside, they immediately asked how they could join the fight. The more he thought about it, the more Shiaoyang liked the idea of more fighters on his side. So he promised to send over handguns and bullets later that day. During the attack, the two buildings would use walkie-talkies to coordinate. Meanwhile, back at the coal plant, Boss Rui was overseeing her private catering service. Her number 2, looking like he walked straight out of an anime, and her number 3 were drooling over the fresh meat. Boss Rui, however, was still seething that Beachway Mountain got taken out. From now on, they'd have to find their own food. Naturally, number 2 and 3 weren't happy. Luckily, they knew exactly who to visit for payback over in the east suburb. Tomorrow morning, Boss Rui and her number 2 would lead a team to wipe those losers off the map. As night fell at the fortress, Zhang Xiaoyang finally had time to check his system. With 46 points in the bank, he scrolled through the new daily crates. A level 2 awakening power supply crate for 25 points. His eyes lit up. There was also a level 2 farming crate and a level 1 sugar oil and protein crate. The 2 level 2 crates alone would cost him 40 points, but he felt like treating himself. He opened the most expensive crate he'd ever bought and was rewarded with the overload skill. It could boost his physical stats by 25%. The downside, he'd be completely wiped out when it wore off. But with his already monstrous strength, a 25% boost would launch him into superhuman territory. He could now unleash 8 times the strength of an average man. Xiaoyang was just dying to test this new power out. The night passed quietly. The day, however, was about to get very loud. A whole fleet of death machines rolled out of the coal plant heading east. Boss Rui gave her boys the plan one last time. First, they'd drive through and mow down any refugees they found outside. Once number 2 smashes the door, everyone else drives in, using their modded cars as cover while laying down suppressive fire. Speaking of number 2, the weirdo was so hungry he forgot to put on a shirt. While this freak show drew closer, the fortress was on high alert. Old Li climbed to the highest point he could find. The view was worse than the watchtower, but from down below, he was basically invisible. That's why Xiaoyang put Old Li on Overwatch. The man was a sniper for years before becoming a cop. Old Li just scratched his head and corrected him. He'd only filled in as a sniper for a few months. Still, he could hit a target 500 meters out, provided the wind behaved itself. That skill was about to be crucial. You see, Xiaoyang had Zhang Qi bring something special up to the roof. The kid eagerly pried open the heavy crate, revealing a pristine Barrett sniper rifle resting inside. Old Li's eyes went wide. Where on earth does a young man get his hands on military-grade hardware like this? Dodging the question, Xiaoyang stated they only had 10 rounds total. Every shot had to count. Old Li picked up the beast of a gun, feeling its weight and the heavy responsibility it carried. Everyone else was already in position. According to Xiaoyang, the enemy could arrive at any moment. Perched in the watchtower, Shan Shan spotted something and immediately radioed the group. Peering through his scope, Old Li confirmed it. A whole convoy of enemies was barreling toward them. Inside their modified cars, Boss Rui's goons were puzzled. The area outside the wall was completely empty. Instead of scouting ahead, Boss Rui barked an order to floor it and punch right through. They were too close to stop now. They'd be sitting ducks. So the fleet charged, aiming for the cover of the wall. The moment the enemy entered their range, Shan Shan gave the green light. Open fire. From all along the wall, they unleashed a storm of lead from their rifles and AKs. The fools from the coal plant never expected such intense resistance. Bullets tore through windshields and flesh. This was their surprise attack, but they were the ones who were completely caught off guard. Boss Rui couldn't believe her brilliant plan had been discovered. But it was far too late to retreat. She screamed at her men to keep pushing forward even as they were being mowed down like grass. Amazingly, the reckless charge worked. Some of her troops actually made it to the base of the wall. The real objective was getting number 2 and his gigantic automatic saw to the main gate. Faced with the reinforced door, number 2 went to work, its massive blade tearing into the metal. Shanshan relayed the new threat over the radio. In the watchtower, the defenders raised their guns and opened up. To give him cover, Boss Rui and her goons returned fire with their own submachine guns. Under the heavy fire, the inexperienced defenders in the watchtower were pinned down. Even Fatty Xiao took a bullet to the shoulder. Luckily, the wound wasn't lethal. The enemy had decent firepower and skill. Suppressing them wouldn't be easy. The older survivors tried to rally the younger fighters. They just had to hold their ground. They had enough ammo for a long fight, but the saw was about to rip through the main gate. Once that gate falls, they'll be at a huge disadvantage. Thankfully, their leader had a plan for the breach. Shiaoyang slipped out of the fortress unnoticed. Then the madman sprinted into the open as if he were bulletproof. Boss Rui's crew had already blown through half their ammunition and number 2 still hadn't broken in. He just needed a few more seconds. And with a deafening crash, the gate finally gave way. Shanshan and her team scrambled down from the tower to provide support below. Meanwhile, Boss Rui smirked. It was messy, but she was in. Time to show these rookies the terror of an evolver fed on human flesh. Using number 2 as a moving shield, she ordered her troops to follow close behind. The behemoth tossed his saw aside and used his bare hands to rip the opening wider. With a perfect line of sight, Shiaoyang gave the signal. It was Old Li's time to shine. Controlling his breath, Old Li locked onto the giant. The moment that huge head entered his view, the crosshairs snapped on like an aimbot. Number 2 roared. The sound was more beast than human. The survivors who laid eyes on the monstrosity would agree. The moment it burst through, their courage failed. They fired desperately, but the beast's skin was like iron. Their bullets were useless. Number 2 simply waded through the rain of lead. He didn't need a Kevlar vest. No matter the caliber, bullets just ricocheted off, leaving tiny scratches. And even those vanished, thanks to number 2's ridiculous healing factor. Boss Rui was loving the terrified looks on their faces. She bet these country bumpkins had never seen the power of an evolver before. The signal reached Li Hongli on the rooftop. His confidence in his aim, absolute. In his bullets, apocalyptic. The Barrett kicked back with earth-shattering force. One trigger pull was all it took to delete the monster's head, turning his face into a fine red mist. Just like that, the seemingly invincible number 2 dropped dead. Boss Rui and her goons were absolutely floored. Their one and only meat shield was gone. Who the hell were these people, and where did they get a cannon like that? With their biggest threat neutralized, Shiaoyang made his grand entrance, flanking the intruders with his trusty AK-47. He opened fire, snapping the enemies out of their shock. For him, this was basically a turkey shoot. Boss Rui knew this disaster was entirely her fault. She underestimated the enemy, and now her people were paying the price. But a woman like her wasn't going down without a fight. Grabbing a submachine gun, she fired back while making a beeline for the exit. Gritting her teeth, she desperately tried to retreat. Then she saw Xiaoyang's death glare and recognized him as the kid from the car yesterday. To guarantee her own survival, she grabbed the nearest goon. Without a shred of hesitation, she used the poor guy as a human shield. Xiaoyang clocked her insane reaction speed. She had to be an evolver, too. After making her subordinate eat a face full of lead, she yeeted the body at him, blocking the exit. Shiaoyang dodged to the side, forced to cease fire. That split second was all Boss Rui needed to bolt for her car. But Old Man Li wasn't about to let anyone just walk away after they turned his peaceful home into a war zone. He locked onto the fleeing target and declared, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one." Yeah, this dude's been watching too much anime. He couldn't land a clean headshot, so he settled for taking one of her super fast legs instead. The sudden loss of a limb sent Boss Rui tumbling just inches from her getaway car. Li clicked his tongue, annoyed he missed the kill shot. As he readied another round, Boss Rui's last loyal underling dragged her into the vehicle. Turns out these two were pros at running away, and they peeled out of there like their lives depended on it. Shiaoyang told everyone to hold their fire. He didn't mind if these morons wanted to come back for round 2. Besides, he was just happy the system mission was cleared. He got a sweet 50 points, which was a nice morale boost. On top of that, the second part of the Nemesis mission unlocked. Now it was his turn to go on the attack and raid the cannibals' base for another easy 50. The whole fortress erupted in cheers for their epic win. They had a few injuries but 0 casualties. The wounded were sent to the medbay, while the enemy corpses were sent to cold storage for Brother Chong's dinner. With the base secure again, the refugees were allowed back to their homes. As soon as he was alone, Shiaoyang checked his point balance from that single mission, excited to go on a shopping spree tonight. Meanwhile, back at the coal plant, the survivors limped home, just 3 of them and one less leg on Boss Rui. Number 3 greeted them, his face a mix of confusion and concern. Clearly humiliated, Boss Rui admitted she'd been careless, never expecting such heavy firepower. She snapped at her men, demanding human meat to refuel and heal. As she barked orders like nothing had changed, a cruel smirk spread across Number Three's face. She just kept running her mouth, calling them useless fools who weren't even worth Number Two's little toe. Number Three had heard enough. His boss was crippled and weak, yet she still had the nerve to look down on them. Boss Rui had made another fatal miscalculation. She never saw the mutiny coming. In a panic, she ordered her men to take Number Three down, but nobody moved. Even the two guys who saved her just stared into space. With Boss Rui missing a leg and Number Two 6 feet under, Number Three could easily seize power as the strongest one left. Besides, he'd already been planting seeds of rebellion for a while. The men of the coal mine had been unhappy with her leadership for a long time. Now was the perfect chance to make a change. But even then, Boss Rui delusionally thought she could still command them to stand down. But as the angry mob closed in, her whole tough girl act completely fell apart. Led by Number Three, the coal plant goons gave their cruel boss a performance review. With metal pipes, they howled with laughter as they turned her into a human piñata. They mocked her pathetic screams and cries for mercy. Since she was an evolver with a superhuman body, the party lasted a very long time. When she finally kicked the bucket, Number Three couldn't wipe the grin off his face. One of the goons made the mistake of calling him Boss Three and almost got sent to the Shadow Realm for it. From now on, anyone who doesn't call him by his new title, Big Boss, is fired, permanently. While the boys were wondering what to do next with the witch and Number Two out of the picture, the coal plant's fighting power had taken a massive hit. Their biggest fear wasn't the Eastern Fortress, but the one they called the Tentacle Man. So Big Boss made an executive decision, ditch the plant and go crawling to the West Steel Group. A merger, if you will. A day later, Zhang Xiaoyang and his best men snuck behind enemy lines. And just as he figured the pests had set up camp in the coal plant, he warned Zhang Qi and Old Li to keep their mouths shut and stick to him like glue as they snuck inside. After scoping the place out, they noticed it was a ghost town. The only thing they found was the hateful woman from yesterday's attack. It was obvious her own people had taken her out. While the other two were horrified, Xiaoyang just shrugged. He totally saw it coming. Curious, Jiangyi asked about the huge guy who had smashed the door. That beast was on a completely different level from Chen Chong. His power was just plain unfair. Xiaoyang had already given his crew the basic rundown on evolvers before. Even Old Li was curious how someone joins this exclusive evolver club. Without beating around the bush, Xiaoyang told them, the secret ingredient is people. That little bombshell sent a shiver down everyone's spine. Xiaoyang explained that to get powers like a mutant, the fastest and simplest way is to eat one. Since he's also superhuman, Zhangyi nervously asked if he'd been, well, snacking. Did they have to throw away their humanity and start eating people too? Xiao stopped his buddies before they could freak out anymore. While cannibalism is the express lane to power, it's not the only way. He then pulled something from his pocket. The young man showed them a glowing red rock. At the end of the day, evolvers and zombies are just mutated life forms, and mutants just need to absorb exotic energy to get stronger. Normal people have this energy inside them, but it's spread out. Evolvers and rare mutants, however, condense all that energy into these cores. As the apocalypse gets worse, even regular zombies will start dropping these power-up items. Even so, eating zombie jerky sounds like a guaranteed way to become one. Well, ordinary people can't just eat zombie meat. Only mutants like Brother Chong can do that to level up. As they were talking, a system notification popped up. The nemesis of Villain's quest was automatically cleared. Looks like those goons were no longer a threat. But while Xiaoyang was distracted by his menu screen, a zombie nearly took a bite out of him. Thankfully, his superhuman reflexes let him dodge out of harm's way. He calmly dealt with the zombie in a single slash. And funnily enough, the zombie he just sliced open was the perfect example for his lesson. He reached into its body and pulled out the zombie's core. Since the zombie population was growing, hunting season was officially open. With 2 cores in his hand, he offered his friends a little head start on their evolution. Jiangyi was still a bit grossed out by the idea of eating a zombie nugget, so he let Old Li take both cores. After a moment's thought, Li Hongli's desire to get stronger won out over his fear. He tossed both cores into his mouth like a kid in a candy store. Old Li immediately felt the change as the cores worked their magic. He felt more amazing than he had in his entire life. Xiaoyang had to remind him that being an evolver didn't make him invincible in this crazy world. Taking that advice to heart, Old Li promised he wouldn't get reckless. With the crisis handled, it was time to head back to camp. While the good guys were heading home, the bad guys were just arriving at the West Steel Mill. As they entered the area, one of the guards stopped them from going any further. Big Boss Number 3 casually introduced himself as the man in charge of the coal plant. The guard, still wary, told them to wait while he got his leader. After some negotiation, the coal plant boys were finally allowed inside the neighboring faction's base. Naturally, the steel mill's top dogs demanded answers. Where were Jing Rui and her giant bodyguard? So number 3 spun a sob story about being ambushed, claiming Boss Rui and the big guy were lost. This little tale caught the bald boss's attention. He ordered his crew to escort the coal plant boys to a safe house. Meanwhile, Baldy and his partner huddled up, cooking up a sinister plot. Number 3 and his lackeys found themselves stashed in this so-called safe house. And what's he doing? Obsessing over his new title, too busy with his ego to see the massive red flags waving right in his face. Finally, one of his guys pointed out the obvious, noting, this place didn't exactly scream safety. I mean, with iron bars and locked doors all around, this wasn't a safe house, it was a jail cell. But before their single brain cell could connect the dots, a guard dog stormed into the room. He barked at them to get outside. Waiting for them was an audience with the bosses, and what looked like the entire steel mill. Number 3, trying to sound important, carefully asked what was going on, but the lady boss saw right through him. She declared he'd backstabbed Boss Rui, and that betrayal has a price. Number 3 scrambled to deny everything, but his excuses fell on deaf ears. The verdict was already in. Boss Ling wasn't buying his misunderstanding act. She called over her top enforcer Li Cheng to drop some truth bombs. Turns out this guy paid a visit to the coal plant. He found Jing Rui's cold body in the courtyard, and number 2 had vanished. The weirdest part. There were absolutely no signs of a fight. The only logical conclusion was a backstabbing gone wrong. But even with the facts laid bare, number 3 kept playing dumb. In this new world, who needs evidence? You get punished first and, well, that's pretty much it. Honestly, the only thing that kept the West Steel Mill from crushing these coal boys was Boss Rui's power. With her out of the way, this idiot just waltzed right into a den of hungry lions. Suddenly, one of his goons broke down desperately, offering up intel to save his own skin. Boss Ling let him talk, looking completely bored by the whole pathetic display. The snitch spilled the beans about a settlement in the east ripe with supplies where his bosses supposedly met their end. When asked how they stacked up against the steel mill, the goon guessed they were about equal in strength, an equal threat. Now Baldy and Boss Ling couldn't just ignore that, but the snitch added a juicy detail: the eastern fortress has 0 evolvers, not a single one. Hearing this, Li Cheng seemed puzzled by the term. Baldy Pang found that hard to swallow. Jing Rui, losing to a bunch of regular Joes. So the snitch explained they had heavy weapons, the kind that could one-shot a beast like number 2. Boss Ling smirked. This was some very useful intel indeed, but she's not the type to reward a rat. When she gave the kill order, the coal plant boys' blood turned to ice. They screamed for their lives until there was only silence, and just like that, the coal plant faction was history. Now Baldy Pang was worried. A new threat to the east was definitely not good news, but Boss Ling was smarter. Attacking heavy weapons head-on was suicide. They needed to evolve further to guarantee victory. First things first, send scouts. They had to confirm if these people were really a bunch of unevolved newbies. Meanwhile, our main character, Zheng Shiaoyang, is just chilling window shopping with his 126 system points. And what does he find? A level 2 black tech supply box for just 50 points. Without a second thought, he bought everything in the shop, leaving him with a cool 71 points. The food crate hooked him up with 500 kilograms of premium powders, cocoa butter, and cooking oils. But the grand prize was a plus 20 physical enhancement serum. His shopping spree, however, was cut short by a knock. It was Shanshan. She said they'd caught a suspicious guy lurking around the perimeter. Xiaoyang finally got up to investigate. Shang-Chi and Old Li had the sketchy man pinned, who kept insisting he wasn't an enemy. He just wanted a word with the fortress leader. The moment Xiaoyang arrived, the man finally spoke. He politely introduced himself as Shu Axing from the West Wind Steel Mill. Hearing that name, Uncle Song was on high alert. West Wind was one of the biggest settlements in the whole Southwest. And just like the coal plant, it had become a survivor fortress only about 3 kilometers away. If the fortress is so far, why would this Mr. Seuss risk everything to go there? Shuxing puffed out his chest, preaching about how survivors should band together. His leader apparently sent him on a mission to recruit new settlements. But Xiaokai wasn't buying that load of crap for a second. This guy had been snooping around, drawing a detailed map. When the evidence was pulled from his pocket, Shu Axing could only manage an awkward grin. Just to be absolutely sure he wasn't being played, Xiaoyang activated his mind's eye. One look at Shu Axing's soul confirmed it. This dude was looking down on him. And our boy doesn't play nice. He whipped out a gun and planted it on Axing's forehead. In the apocalypse, everyone knows what a move like this means. This guy's disrespect was off the charts, thinking he could fool him. If Xiaoyang didn't get the truth, Mr. Shu was about to lose his mind, literally. Staring into the young man's ice-cold gaze, Axing swallowed hard. But he still tried to bluff, insisting he was telling the truth. He claimed his faction was just being extra careful. Xiaoyang pulled Zhang Qi aside to ask if Axing had seen Brother Chong yet. Thankfully, he hadn't. So Shiaoyang gave the order to let the guy go, telling him to have a nice trip. He even gave the scout back his hand-drawn map. Shu Axing was practically giddy with relief. Convinced his Oscar-worthy performance had worked, he sprinted out of the fortress before the boss could change his mind. Watching the obvious scout flee, a cunning smile spread across Xiaoyang's face. He was already calculating the system points he'd rake in from the West Wind steel mill. 5 peaceful, productive months flew by. Meanwhile, at the West Steel plant, paranoia was setting in as people started vanishing one by one. They knew who the culprit was, but were completely helpless. The tentacle monster was back on the prowl, and they had no plan. Suddenly, some guys working the trash pile heard a noise that terrified them. Before one of them could run for help, a sharp blade met his throat, ending his story right there. That watchdog from before Lai Cheng heard the desperate screams coming from the garbage heap. The lone survivor scrambled to Lai Cheng, blaming the tentacle monster for his buddy's death. Any mention of that beast demanded immediate attention, but this time was different. It was attacking in broad daylight. Li Cheng grabbed his gun, ordered civilians to take cover, and called for any evolvers with escape skills to follow him. Arriving at the trash heap, they spotted a suspicious figure. Playing it safe, Lai Cheng ordered his men not to engage, just run if spotted. But as they got closer, he realized the monster they all feared was nowhere to be seen. Looking down, he saw some fresh tracks. Maybe the creature had already snatched its prey and bolted. Ever since the mountain and southern coal plants were wiped out, the disappearances had gotten worse, before the monster spread its attacks around. Now the steel mill was its exclusive buffet. But Lai Cheng's gut told him the tentacle fiend wasn't responsible for this latest incident. Back at the fortress, the progress over the last 5 months was insane. Zheng Xiaoyang had already outlived his previous timeline. At this rate, rebuilding civilization didn't seem like a joke anymore. His community score had jumped to 38, but even after months, the system quest for the West Steel Mill refused to pop up. During that time, his core team had been grinding hard. Seeing Shanshan and the crew return from a mission, Shiaoyang showed off a little leaping from the high wall and landing perfectly. Jiang Shi reported a successful hunt. With their current power level, no one could possibly challenge or even track them. Little Shuai was now joining the adults on hunts. With Wan Wan watching his back, he was shaping up to be a real fighter. Today, he even managed to take down a zombie all by himself. As part of the Villain Nemesis Volume 3 mission, they'd been clearing zombies, helping allies, and collecting every mutant core in sight. To this day, the potential allies part of the quest still puzzled Xiang. He figured it had to be the West Steel Mill. Since the system was dragging its feet, he decided to infiltrate the mill himself. Naturally, Old Li was totally against this solo mission. Uncle Song had been dealing with scouts poking around their turf for months. It was pretty obvious they didn't want to be friends. Xiaoyang promised the old-timers that with his current strength, not even someone like Brother Chong could touch him. Besides, it was about time they figured out if these neighbors were friends or future enemies. Uncle Shang, Old Li, and the rest of his inner circle would hold down the fort and the nearby refugee town while he was away. The fortress itself is fine, but the people worry for their leader. Without him, the entire settlement would collapse. Meanwhile, back at the steel mill, Lai Chong has returned from his patrol of the trash heap. He just wanted a word with the bosses, but the guards blocked his path. Big mistake. Lai, Chong snapped, hoisting a guard into the air by his throat. Realizing his temper had flared again, he forced himself to cool down. He set the guard down with an immediate apology. Truthfully, these constant outbursts were starting to worry even him. For the past few months, his rage has been on a hair trigger. The commotion got the boss's attention, finally granting him entry. Li Chong walked in cautiously, only to find the insanely ripped Boss Ling all alone in her office. Li Chong offered a new theory on the recent disappearances. After examining a crime scene, he found a woman's footprints. He's suggesting that while they're blaming the tentacle man, another killer might be on the prowl. Boss Ling didn't shoot his theory down, but told him to keep it quiet for now. A single tentacle man already has the whole settlement on edge. They can't risk a mass panic where people are too terrified to even step outside. Li Chong tried to protest, but she leaned in close, and he immediately folded, blushing like a schoolboy. He awkwardly excused himself and made a run for it. This tough guy can fight monsters, but around his boss, his brain just shuts down. From another room, a voice rang out mocking her for being careless. She shot back that if he had a problem with her methods, he was welcome to take over the job. The voice belonged to Baldy Pang, who was currently chopping up the corpse of that boy from earlier. These days, Ling does the killing, and Baldy handles the cleanup. They toss the heads and eat the meat. Meanwhile, our boy is busy with some zombie slaying, cleaning up the streets one undead at a time. As he neared his destination, he knew he had to go incognito. He pulled scissors from his dimensional storage and did the most insane thing. This dude started giving himself a haircut with his eyes closed. Then he scooped up a handful of dirt and just smeared it all over his face. For the final touch, he pulled out the ultimate disguise, a pair of glasses. For someone trying to look awful, he actually didn't look half bad. As he got closer to the steel mill, a patrolling guard took notice. Normally, a stranger wandering the perimeter is met with hostility, but he just greeted the aggression with a smile. He claimed he saw signs of human life from afar, acting like he was thrilled to see other survivors. Believing he was a lone survivor, the guard's entire attitude shifted to excitement. First, the guard asked how he survived the deadly wastelands for so long. Shiaoyang spun a tragic tale about being part of a 10-person settlement that was overrun by a zombie horde. All his comrades died, leaving him as the sole survivor. When asked if he was strong, he claimed he was powerful enough. After all, surviving countless zombie attacks gives you a lot of experience. Of course, the guard was really just probing to see if he was an evolver. Since he never mentioned evolution, the guard gladly welcomed him into the mill. On the way, the guard mentioned he'd have to pass a little test first. From that alone, our guy knew this steel plant was a den of vipers. As they approached the mill's entrance, Li Chong spotted the stranger being led inside. The patrol guard stammered, claiming he was taking the lone survivor for a private security search. But Li Chong is a no-nonsense kind of guy. If you're doing a body search, do it here and now. Li Chong took over, ordering the stranger to hand over all his weapons. Shiaoyang played reluctant, saying he was hesitant to walk into an unknown place unarmed. Li Chong gets it. In the apocalypse, a little caution is a good thing. However, the rules are the rules. Either you get disarmed, or you get kicked out. Keeping up the act, Shiaoyang handed over his blade. Don't worry, he's got 1,000,000 more in his inventory. Afterwards, Li Chong gave him a thorough pat-down, making sure there were no other concealed weapons. Shiaoyang was honestly surprised. Someone with a conscience in this rotten dump. Seeing a stranger rocking just a single dagger in this wasteland, Li Cheng had to ask, was this guy an evolver? Xia played dumb, claiming he just felt himself getting stronger lately. Just to be safe, Li Chong hauled him off to meet the big boss. For now, Shiaoyang was stuck in the so-called reception room. Yeah, this was definitely a holding cell. He could see the reinforced doors. A total prison. A few minutes later, Boss Ping and his shiny bald head cautiously entered to ask the stranger's name. Xiaoyang fumbled for a name. Zhang Wei. That sounds an awful lot like Kanye, my dude. Baldy Ping was only here for one thing, to confirm if this Zhang Wei guy was really an evolver. The quickest test, check his reflexes. So Baldy Ping casually chucked a hatchet straight at his face. Zhang Wei just casually tilted his head, letting the hatchet slam harmlessly into the wall. For a split second, he considered fighting back, but judging by that calculating look, this was just a test from the bald bastard. So he kept up the act of a scared survivor screaming at Baldy Pang for nearly splitting his skull open. Pang just roared with laughter. That smooth dodge was all the proof he needed. The new guy was a capable evolver. If he hadn't dodged, he'd be dead. And in that case, his death wouldn't have even registered as a loss. Since they were both evolvers, Baldy Pang wanted to know his secret method for becoming one. Zhang Wei hinted that he knew about the cannibalism path, and Baldy Pang warned him to keep his mouth shut about it. Only a select few in the camp know the secret, and they want to keep it that way. If Baldy Pang hears even a whisper of a leak, he'll know exactly who to kill. To demonstrate, he lunged forward, his hands mockingly closing around Zhang Ya's neck. Good thing it was just an empty threat. If this bald man had come at him with a weapon, things would have gotten messy. It could have been a bloodbath. Still, killing Baldy now would make it tough to get the full 80 points for his mission. Pang was genuinely impressed that Zhang Ya was fast enough to draw a weapon on him. But while the kid had skills, Baldy boasted that he was on a completely different level, so any thoughts of rebellion should be buried deep. After their little chat, Baldy Pang told his men to treat Zhang Wei with respect. Get him some clean clothes and let him wash up before a meeting with the rest of the crew. After he was all cleaned up, the dapper Zhang Ya was led to the meeting room with the other evolvers. Baldy Pang introduced Huang Ling as his co-leader with Li Chen and Huang Bin as their settlement officers. The latter, Huang Bin, would be in charge of showing the new guy the ropes. Boss Ling complimented Zhang Ya's luck, finding the strongest settlement around. Here, survival was a given, but to eat well, you had to prove your worth. Zhang Ya solemnly swore he would do his best and follow every order. Everything was going smoothly. He'd even arrived just in time for Huang Bin's patrol. After grabbing their gear, the party rolled out. One of the members, Akiang, was clearly not thrilled about the new kid joining their group. But since Zhang Ya knew the evolver's secret, he had to be assigned to this troop. As they were patrolling, an old man named Axing couldn't take his eyes off the new kid. He just couldn't shake a strange feeling of familiarity. Huang Bin was actually being pretty fair to the new guy, even explaining how their settlement worked. You see, in the entire steel mill, the only ones who knew about eating human flesh were Baldy Ping, Boss Ling, and their current 4-man troop. Axing is Baldy's cousin, and Akiang is Boss Ling's nephew. They're all family, so if the secret leaks, it can only come from an outsider. At this point, Young Wei was getting seriously uncomfortable under Axing's intense gaze. He suddenly remembered this was the old man that his group had caught lurking around their fortress a few months back. Putting that aside, he learned the other officer, Li Chang, is incredibly talented and powerful, but has no idea about their evolution method. If there's anyone who absolutely cannot find out about their active cannibalism, it's him. If Li Chong ever found out, there would be 2 new corpses hanging for display in the mill. This conversation was a goldmine of info. The bosses were deliberately suppressing Li Changgung, terrified of his monstrous talent that surpassed their own. Upon reaching the outskirts of the mill, Huang Bin ordered everyone to halt. They had arrived near a small settlement that had 7 members. Huang Bin's crew had been scouting these survivors for 4 days now, and there were no signs of evolution. When asked if they were hunting, Huang Bin just laughed. Instead of hunting, he said, he prefers the term raising. Since Zhang Ya's an enlightened evolver just like them, they figured he needed a little mindset adjustment. Forget being a goody two-shoes. As evolvers, they'd officially unsubscribed from the human race. They were apex predators now, at the very top of the food chain. The plan was simple: conquer this little town, farm the locals like livestock, and then it's butcherin' time. Honestly, they didn't even need the whole village. Just grab 5 or 6 people for the road. The rest, well, they'd be dealt with right then and there. For now, the new guy just needed to sit back, relax, and watch Hangbin's crew work their magic. Meanwhile, the small settlement had been enjoying peace for months. They toiled day and night, slowly building a better life. But right in the middle of renovations, a living nightmare appeared on the horizon. A massive zombie horde had somehow stumbled upon their hidden sanctuary, and every last one was starving for a bite. The survivors grabbed their weapons, ready to defend their home from the sudden invasion. Unfortunately, having a gun means nothing if you're too terrified to actually pull the trigger. A fatal mistake in this new world. As his friends were torn apart one by one, the camp's builder could only tremble knowing he was next on the menu, and Zhang Ya's new squad. They were just chilling on the sidelines, enjoying the symphony of dying screams. Hangbin called it resource management. After all, they couldn't afford to waste food on a bunch of extra mouths. Now that the zombies had conveniently thinned the herd, it was time for Hangbin's crew to make their grand entrance. A woman screamed for her life as a grotesque monster snapped its jaws just inches from her face. Then, with a flash of steel, the flesh-eaters were instantly beheaded. The woman was completely stunned. She was sure it was over. But now her savior stood before her, offering a hand. Huang Bin, the hammer-wielding hero, and axing with his twin daggers. They were a deadly and efficient duo. After clearing out the horde, Hangbin introduced his team as the Evolvers from West Wind Steel Plant. The survivors had no clue what an Evolver was, but hey, they were alive. This one brief fight gave Zhang Ya all the data he needed. He figured Hangbin's crew was about as strong as Zhang Qi's team. But suddenly the hair on his neck stood up. A terrifying presence just made itself known. Zhang Ya whipped his head around, spotting an open room in a building nearby. Seeing nothing there, he just blamed it on an overactive imagination. Huang Bin snapped him back to reality, telling him to help clean up the mess. Still, he couldn't shake that feeling. Something was watching from that abandoned building. Little did he know, his gut was screaming the truth. An abomination was indeed lurking in the shadows. The clueless survivors, grateful for the rescue, immediately spilled the beans. Their warehouse was still packed with supplies. Zhang Ya was put on supply duty, while Huang Bin's lackeys prepped a truck for the haul. His other job, piling up the bodies of the recently deceased. Fun. Meanwhile, the lucky or unlucky survivors who were spared followed Huang Bin around like he was their new god. This whole setup was actually perfect for Zhang Ya. It gave him the perfect cover to do his own thing. On the walk to the steel mill, the survivors couldn't stop singing Hangbin's praises. One of the girls, completely oblivious, turned to Akiang and asked if their camp had a bath. The creep immediately latched onto her, bragging about hot water and fancy body wash. But just as he was laying it on, thick Axing's danger senses went haywire. Huang Bin caught the old man's sharp reaction and immediately went on high alert. He screamed for everyone to stay on their toes, trying to get the jump on whatever was coming. Akiang, however, was too busy being a creep to notice clinging to the poor girl. Axing felt the danger, but he couldn't tell where it was coming from. Akiang just sneered, telling the old man he was being paranoid. But Shu Axing always trusted his gut. And like a self-fulfilling prophecy, his gut was right. Axing was the first to go down, taken out by a silent, deadly attack. Something sharp had pierced straight through his neck. The poor guy never even saw it coming. Huang Bin started to panic. He knew that attack style anywhere. The tentacle monster was here. The tentacle vanished, leaving nothing but pure terror behind. The next thing they knew, the grotesque beast was already inside Huang Bin's personal space. While the group was getting absolutely wrecked by what looked like a hentai monster, our boy was peacefully looting mutant cores from the dead zombies. Out of the whole horde, 2 of them actually dropped cores. Not a bad haul for a day's work. He would have happily kept playing his part, but the distant cries for help were getting pretty loud. Sounds like Huang Bin was officially cooked. Slimy tentacles wrapped around his entire body. Yep, I'm sure you know where this is going. To end the poor guy's misery, the beast squeezed until he burst like a grape, snapping his leg with a sickening crack for good measure. The remaining survivors completely lost their minds. Even Akyang, who was acting all tough earlier, now looks like he's about to cry for his mommy. Sensing he was the last real threat, the monster's aggro immediately locked onto the only evolver left. Akyang stumbled backward, pure terror coursing through his veins. To save his own skin, he did the unthinkable. He grabbed the girl he just rescued and yeeted her straight at the monster as a distraction. Hey, a free meal is a free meal. The monster wasn't complaining. I know you've seen this scene before. But this time it ended with the sound of crushing bones, not other things. But this wasn't the end for our plucky survivor girl. Her true savior made a dramatic entrance, slicing through the tentacles that were crushing her. Perhaps Zhang Ya and his trusty knife had a shot against this nightmare creature. Zhang gave the tentacle freak a quick once-over from head to appendages. He wasn't scared. Not even a little. Why? Because this was just one of the tentacle monster's sons. At least that's the nickname the steel mill crew gave them. Turns out the main monster mumbles the word son a lot and has the nasty habit of turning regular zombies into these tentacled freaks. Akyang knew even Boss Baldy Pang and Boss Ling would have trouble with one of these things, so naturally, he was just looking for a chance to bolt. Hey, you hold it off while I get back up, he yelled, before sprinting away like his life depended on it. Taking the hint, the other terrified survivors followed suit, scrambling away from the battle. Zhang Ya could almost taste the bitter betrayal in Akyang's cowardly words. That spineless jerk really just left him for dead. The tentacle son, now fully recovered, was furious about the cuts. Its regenerated limbs shot out and wrapped around Zhang Ya, who didn't even bother to resist. He was actually more curious than anything. An evolved mutant that could create offspring. Fascinating. He could afford to act this casual for one simple reason. He had the power to back it all up. He decided to test this disgusting yet interesting specimen. And so began a bizarre game of tug-of-war, with tentacles as the rope. It suddenly dawned on Zhang Ya that he'd never really used the ability he awakened months ago. Today seemed like the perfect opportunity for a little field test. He planted his feet, becoming an immovable object. Then he activated it, physical overload. In an instant, his stats skyrocketed to an absurd level. The power boost was absolutely broken. A second ago, their tug-of-war was a stalemate. Now he was dragging the ugly creature across the concrete like a sack of potatoes. Once it was close, he stopped it dead with a single stomp. The beast couldn't form words, but its roars of fury had turned into whimpers of fear. The only survivor who stayed behind watched the whole thing. Her eyes were wide with shock. This normal-looking guy just demolished the monster that wiped out her entire team with his bare hands. By the time Zhang Ya was done, there wasn't much left of the creature. Its limbs and head were torn apart and scattered like trash. Zhang approached the woman casually, asking if she was okay after, almost dying. But seeing his face covered in monster guts, the woman let out a terrified scream. After witnessing what he could do, she knew. He was the real monster here. Zhang Ya just wiped his face, smiled, and told her not to worry. Meanwhile, the rats led by Akyang finally scurried back to the steel mill gates. There they were met by the big bosses, Baldy Pang, Boss Ling, and Li Chen. They were confused. Why did Akyang look like he'd seen a ghost, and where was everyone else? Akyang quickly explained how Huang Bin and Axing were annihilated by a tentacle son. Only Li Chong thought to ask about the new guy. Akyang just scoffed, saying there was no way a rookie like that could have survived. Hearing his cousin was dead, Baldy Pang snapped. He needed someone to blame, and his rage landed squarely on the terrified survivors. With his hatchet singing, Baldy massacred the entire group of runaways on the spot. Well, that's one way to blow off steam. A few dead randoms later, he finally calmed down. Suddenly, a bloody bundle of tentacles slammed onto the ground, interrupting the chaos and grabbing everyone's attention. They looked up and saw a familiar face. Zhang Ya and the woman he'd rescued had arrived just in time to catch the end of Baldy's little temper tantrum. Li Chung was both shocked and impressed that the rookie actually came back alive. Not only that, the kid rolls up, flexing a girl on his arm and a bundle of tentacles as a kill trophy. He explained how he slayed the tentacle spawn and avenged the boss's relatives. After a stunt like that, the leadership started seeing the new guy in a whole new light. Breaking the silence, Zhang Ya requested a few vehicles and some men to go clean up the battlefield. And while he was out doing the grunt work, the bosses were interrogating Akyang about what really went down. But this stubborn roach still couldn't believe Zhang Ya soloed a monster that one-shotted their entire elite squad. From what Akyang knew, even if Baldy and Boss Ling teamed up, they'd be lucky to survive a bloodbath with that thing. Baldy, meanwhile, was stuck on his first impression of the kid. Someone who didn't even have a proper fighting stance during the test shouldn't be this powerful. So Boss Ling rationalized that the tentacle beast must have been killed in an ambush. But either way, they can't let a powerhouse like the new guy stick around, especially since he's getting so chummy with Li Chung. Suddenly, Boss Ling heard a distinct footstep and shushed the room. Li Chung knocked, then entered with a few ideas. First, he offered his condolences for the recent deaths. At this point, sudden death was just another Tuesday. Anyway, Li Chung's real proposal was to make Zhang Ya an officer for his insane strength. Baldy Pang immediately shot the idea down. They don't even know where the kid came from. Boss Ling silenced the bald fool before he could spout more nonsense. She agreed that, based on strength, Zhang Ya was definitely officer material, but the kid would have to prove his worth to the entire steel mill. Li Chung argued back, saying killing a tentacle spawn should be more than enough proof. Well, since they were on the topic, why not let the kid have a crack at the real deal? If Zhang Ya could kill the mother monster, it'd be 2 birds with 1 stone. Li Chung exploded, yelling how unfair that was. Even the 2 bosses combined couldn't pull off a feat like that. But Boss Ling assured him this wasn't some suicide mission. The entire steel mill would mobilize for this operation. It was time to exterminate that threat for good. The moment he got back from hauling loot and corpses, the bosses gave Zhang Ya the mission briefing. He was genuinely surprised they'd build a whole strategy around him, a guy who'd been here for less than a week. Boss Ling tried stroking his ego, calling him the strongest fighter in their entire settlement. Baldy Pang added that if the mission was a success, they'd give Zhang Ya the 3rd leadership seat. He then sarcastically asked Li Chung if he was okay with the newbie outranking him. Li Chung just gritted his teeth and nodded. With that settled, the plan was a go in 2 days. Zhang Ya had to admit their acting was top-notch. He might have actually fallen for their sincere offer if he didn't have the ability to read their scheming souls with his mind's eye. Meanwhile, back at the Eastern Fortress, everyone was losing their minds. Their boss, currently deep undercover, was ringing them on the radio. Old Li and the crew huddled around the walkie-talkie. Our boy Shiaoyang was posted up on some heavy machinery, striking a pose for maximum dramatic effect while he laid out the plan. In 2 days, they'll all meet at the South Suburban Park. It was finally time to wipe out the last major threat in the region. Old Li immediately took charge of the details. Everyone agreed that Uncle Shang was too old for this kind of high-risk mission. Besides, they needed him to hold down the fort. This operation was on a whole other level than their usual runs. Their best fighters had to bring their A-game. Brother Chong Shanshan and Jiang Qi were going to be absolutely crucial. From the corner of the room, little Shui piped up, insisting he wanted to come fight too. His mom instantly shut that down. War is for grown-ups. A kid had no business in this mess. But she'd never seen her son in action on their hunting runs. Little Shui was no joke. Even among their core members, the kid was far from the weakest link, and Old Li needed every fighter he could get. Besides, in an age like this, getting combat experience early wasn't a bad thing. 2 days flew by, and the day of the hunt finally arrived. Baldy Pang and Boss Ling led the steel mill crew to the monster's last known location. A disguised Zhang Ya asked how they planned to lure the beast out. Baldy just told him to relax. They had a brilliant plan. Of course, Zhang Ya had already scanned the entire area without anyone noticing a thing. That was a refreshing change from the savages back at the coal plant. He glanced at a building nearby, spotting the signal he'd arranged with his crew. Up on the roof, his team was armed to the teeth, watching the whole scene unfold from above. They couldn't get closer. The boss's orders were clear. Don't approach the park until the show starts. For now, they could only prep the ropes. The moment things kicked off, they'd storm in from the high ground. Down below, Boss Ling called over a scrawny porter. The kid looked up at the terrifyingly muscular woman and asked what she needed. With a wicked grin, she ordered the boy right into the park. Porters were just here to carry supplies after all. But Li Chong couldn't just stand by while the boss was clearly up to no good. In Boss Ling's mind, a little boy was the perfect bait. The creature was always mumbling about a son, so why not give it one? She even promised she'd save the kid the second the big fish took the bait. The poor porter was shaking in his boots. Nobody wants to be monster bait. Would you? Just then, Baldy Pang had to interfere. He snatched the kid's collar, threatening some bald-on-bald violence if he didn't cooperate. Then, using his evolver strength, he launched the poor boy deep into the dark park. That throw definitely left a mark. Up on the roof, Old Li saw the plan was in motion. He gave the signal and his team began rappelling down the building. In the park center, the terrified boy staggered to his feet, crying for help, but his cries were met with silence. Until a deep, roaring voice echoed, "Son." And there it was. The final boss had arrived. This tentacle monster looked a bit like the one Zhang Ya fought before, but much more human. Its eyes glowed with raw, murderous intent. Li Chong immediately yelled at the bosses to stop messing around and save the boy now that the target was here. When nobody moved, he started to charge in himself, but a strong hand stopped him cold. Boss Ling blocked his path, claiming Zhang Ya had to make the first move. Anyone else would be stealing his glory. Zhang Ya just smirked at how ridiculous that sounded. The masks of heroes and villains were finally coming off. Before a single tentacle could touch the kid's shiny head, Zhang Ya blurred into motion with inhuman speed. He snatched the boy right out of harm's way, tossing the little cue ball back toward his allies. Li Chong caught the incoming alley-oop. Guess he mistook that bald head for a basketball. The beast was furious at Zhang Ya's interference. With his disguise off, Zhang Xiaoyang was officially back in the game. The monster's tentacles wrapped around his body, pulling him close. But as he got a better look, Xiaoyang noticed something strange. With the kid safe, Li Chong was ready to jump in. But before he could help, the twisted bosses cornered him. If they didn't do something, Zhang Ya was going to die. What Li Chong failed to grasp was that this was the entire point. Boss Ling actually found his cluelessness amusing. She really thought the young man might at least fight the creature to a stalemate. Seeing him trapped and crushed, she figured his last kill must have been a fluke. Li Chong's dense head never saw the betrayal coming. Seriously, what a blockhead. But instead of letting the villain's monologue, Zhang Xiaoyang decided to speak up. He didn't pull any punches, exposing the steel mill boss's cannibalistic little secrets. And once again, Li Chong had no idea what was going on. Like I said, a blockhead. As if on cue, the Eastern Fortress crew opened fire on the enemy evolvers. Automatic rifles lit up the night, catching the steel mill goons in a perfect crossfire. They split into two teams. One pinned down the evolvers, while the other rushed to help Xiaoyang with the monster. Little Shuai led that second group, a Molotov cocktail already in his hand. This kid is a menace. He chucked it with all his might, and the monster instinctively slapped it out of the air. Big mistake. The bottle shattered, dousing the beast in fuel and flames. But instead of roaring in pain, it just stared at the boy who threw it. It was as if seeing Little Shuai flooded its brain with a wave of lost humanity. It completely forgot about the man caught in its tentacles. Meanwhile, the kid was busy cursing out the monster for shrugging off his firebomb. Hearing Little Shuai's foul mouth seemed to enrage the creature more than the fire. And since it could speak clearly, they were definitely dealing with an evolved mutant. Luckily, they had one of those on their side too. Brother Chong finally sprang into action. His footwork was insane. The tentacles could only kiss the pavement. Meanwhile, the steel mill thugs were sent scrambling, forced to hide behind some trees. Their jaws dropped as a different mutant went head-to-head with the monster they feared. A mutant fighting for other mutants. The idea was breaking their brains. Brother Chong was a blur of motion, dodging every strike, but he couldn't find an opening to attack. For a split second, he was cornered inside a prison of tentacles. With pure brute force, he tore the flimsy limbs to shreds. But it turns out all of that was just a distraction. The real attack was coming from behind. If not for his friend's warning, a tentacle would have punched a hole through his skull. After that intense clash, both sides fell back to catch their breath. Seeing his buddy having a hard time, the captured Xiaoyang just laughed and started teasing him. Baldy Pang's mind was blown. The kid they snatched is casually joking around with a terrifying mutant, as if to completely shatter their reality. Xiaoyang then ripped his bindings apart like they were wet paper. Aqiang finally made himself useful, pointing out that one of the enemies called the monster Xiang. Old Axing had once said the Eastern Fortress leader had that exact same name. Suddenly, it all made sense. This kid played them like fiddles. This hunt was actually their trap. This meant the steel mill crew was being hunted by the main force of a major stronghold. The boss lady frantically scanned the enemy lineup, searching for a way out. She figured their strongest fighter was only about as powerful as Lai Cheng, but when it came to sheer firepower, they were completely outmatched. Plus, the biggest threat was Zhang Xiang himself. And the cherry on this disaster sundae was the masked mutant who seemed just as strong as the tentacle monster. Boss Ling did the math. Their chances of victory were basically zero. Fighting back would mean massive casualties, but she had one last desperate idea. For now, Baldy Pang had to hold them off. This duo had worked together for years. Covering for each other was what they did best. Baldy launched his hatchet with inhuman power, making it glow like a meteor. When it hit the ground, it caused a huge explosion, kicking up a thick smokescreen of dust and debris. Baldy Pang didn't let up. He kept launching powerful attacks while his grunts provided cover fire. This chaotic assault was surprisingly effective, forcing Old Lee's group to scramble for cover. While everyone focused on the fight, Boss Ling had her eyes on a different target. The youngest member of the fortress crew. That kid on the front lines, Xiao Kai, was the only one who saw her coming and threw his massive body in front of the boy. He tried to block the attack, but the muscle mommy's powerful legs were just too quick. Fatty Kai was sent flying. He was no match for an elite evolver. Boss Ling's evil plan was finally coming together. The final piece was within her reach. She snatched Little Shuai by his collar, and everyone froze. I know she's a villain, but she's got style. This was the worst-case scenario. Little Shuai refused to be a burden to his team. He struggled with all his might, but he couldn't break free from Muscle Mommy's iron grip. To stop him from squirming, Boss Ling slammed a fist right into the kid's face. The one who reacted most violently was the tentacle monster. A furious roar erupted from him as he screamed his son's name. Brother Chong saw his opening. He instantly closed the distance, getting into the perfect attack position. But as he perched on the monster's shoulders, he felt something was off. The beast was completely ignoring him. Xiaoyang yelled out, telling Brother Chong to leave the big guy alone, which only confused the mutant more. But Xiaoyang could see it. The monster was ready to risk it all for something incredibly important. Getting in his way now would be a death wish. With her hand around little Shuai's neck, Boss Ling hissed at them, threatening to pop the kid's head off if they didn't drop their weapons. The ever-noble Li Heng immediately pleaded to trade places with the boy. Seeing the panic and desperation on their faces, Boss Ling knew her hostage plan was a massive success. If anything happened to little Shuai, how in the world could they ever face his mother again? Boss Ling repeated her terms. A full surrender of weapons, and the ambushers had to retreat at least 100 meters. Old Li knew they had lost. He lowered his gun and told everyone to do the same. They had no leverage. And Muscle Mommy wasn't done barking orders yet. Next, she orders the masked mutant to finish off the tentacle beast, but she was so high on her own power, she never saw the attack coming. The monster locked onto her position like a biological cruise missile, forcing the boss to ditch the hostage and dive for safety. A few of her worthless goons were in the tentacle's path. They were promptly turned into red mist. Baldy Pang watched in horror as another of his evolvers was reduced to a gory puddle. Boss Ling genuinely thought the masked mutant was busy fighting the main threat. But when she looked at Zhang Xiaoyang, he was just smiling at her. He and the other mutant were just standing there enjoying the show. Li Hongyi screamed at little Shuai to make a run for it, but swirling tentacles had already surrounded him. Xiaoyang calmly told everyone not to panic. He said little Shuai was in safe hands. Or safe tentacles, rather. Of course, no one had any idea what he was on about. All they saw was a boy being grabbed by the killer monster. But something felt different. This time, the beast was holding the child with incredible care. It even called the kid son. Xiaoyang then chimed in, bragging he'd kept his promise to protect Jiang Shenjia's family. Turns out they'd met this terrifying monster before. Jiang Shangji had the same mutation as Brother Chong. Seeing the traces of his dad still in the monster's face, little Shuai began to cry. Watching from the side, Baldy Pang cursed this K-drama plot twist. They had to get out of there. So he ordered a full retreat. Too bad for his shiny head, they'd just angered something from a whole other world. While holding his son with absolute tenderness, Shangji's tentacles shot out hungry for bloody revenge. Baldy Pang was the first to be caught and squeezed. He screamed for Boss Ling to help cut him free. They were supposed to have each other's backs, but not today. The coward Huang Ling made a beeline for the woods, ready to sacrifice everyone to save herself. She was painfully aware of the power gap between them and the monster. Her only shot was using Wang Pang as bait, hoping he'd last long enough for her escape. Too bad for Muscle Mommy, that plan was doomed from the start. She was too slow, and those tentacles had incredible range. Her ankles were suddenly snatched, sending her face planting into the pavement. Boss Ling's glasses shattered, and so did her nose. Right then, she knew the next few moments were going to be horrible. She was dragged back into the park. The tentacles had zero concern for her comfort. Baldy Pang watched this with a smug grin. The witch tried to ditch him, so he felt pretty vindicated now that they were both trapped. Still, Pang tried to use his last resort. He turned to Li Chong for help, before the loyal watchdog could help the boss that just betrayed him. Jiang Xiaoyang appeared behind him with a simple offer. Don't move a muscle, and he'd be allowed to walk away from this mess alive. At this point, Xiaoyang was just letting the tentacle monster do its thing. Pure massacre and mayhem. It started by slamming Baldy Pang's shiny dome into the concrete. The first slam left poor Pang dazed. That had to be a serious concussion. After that, Shangji's tentacles made short work of the bald man, whipping and tearing him limb from limb until he was just a pile of gore. With Baldy Pang taken care of, Boss Ling was next on the list. The tight grip of the tentacles really highlighted her muscular build. But all those gains in the gym couldn't save her now. Her fate was in the hands of Shangji's dark, slimy appendages. Boss Ling's death was slow and cruel. Slowly and painfully, the tentacles squeezed tighter and tighter until she was bleeding from every orifice. The pressure increased until she was reduced to what could only be called meat paste. Shangji punished her with the worst death for daring to take his son hostage. With the final boss dead, Nemesis of Evil, Volume 3 has been completed. With another 80 points earned, Xiaoyang's total savings are up to 151. Now he finally understood why the mission mentioned a potential ally. Who would have thought he'd recruit another mutant to the team? He then turned to Liang, knowing the confused guy needed answers. First, he confirmed if Xiaoyang was the leader of the East Fortress. Next, the question burning in his mind was about the mention of cannibalism during the fight. Xiaoyang didn't sugarcoat it. People don't just get lucky and evolve. Slowly, the rusty gears in Lai Chong's brain began to turn. He remembered his time at the steel mill, looking after a certain woman and her daughter. One day, the little girl asked for his food rations. A can of what he thought was meat. He gave it to her without a second thought, figuring it was no big deal. Then realization hit him like a freight train. Cue the dramatic world-crashing anime pose. A few days later, he'd given the girl his meat again. Wait, hold the phone. Then the first so-called tentacle monster attacks began. The woman he'd been protecting suddenly lost her child. It was all clicking into place. The monster attacks were a lie. An excuse to thin the herd by slaughtering their own. A wave of nausea washed over him. The canned meat, given to the top fighters, was filled with human flesh. The steel mill bosses had turned him into an evolver by tricking him into cannibalism. A primal scream of rage tore from Lai Chong's throat. He hammered his fist into the bloody paste that used to be his boss. He punched and roared, letting the crimson spray cover his body. When he was done, he looked like a bloody newborn. He turned to Shiaoyang, fangs bared, and demanded to know if this was how he got his powers too. Li Hongyi stepped between them, trying to defuse the ticking bomb. We are not cannibals. We know far more than the average survivor. With Xiaoyang's knowledge, we found other ways to get strong. He tossed a mutant core to Lai Chong. It was better to show him than to tell him. Mutant cores aren't as easy to find as human flesh, but they're way more powerful and have zero side effects. And speaking of side effects, Lai Chong must have been feeling them by now. Evolving through cannibalism makes it hard to control your emotions. You become prone to violent, explosive outbursts. Unfortunately for Lai Chong, there was no cure. All he can do now is stay off the human meat so the twisted urges don't get worse. As for Shangji, Xiaoyang was just happy to see the father and son reunited. When asked if he could speak, Shangji answered with a stream of garbled nonsense. He could only manage vague words. But somehow Xiaoyang seemed to understand him perfectly. Like Brother Chong, the mutation may have fried his voice box. But Shangji's mind was still very much intact. Still, bringing a giant friendly tentacle monster back to base would probably cause a few heart attacks. Thankfully, Shangji was content with his new home in the city. Seeing his son safe brought him all the peace he needed. He called Xiaoyang super high IQ, his personal way of saying someone's pretty clever. With all the threats gone, the steel mill was left without a leader. Perhaps Lai Chong should step up, but he couldn't trust himself to lead. Not after learning he was a cannibal. As a compromise, Xiaoyang put Li Hongli in charge of the steel mill, and the cop gladly accepted. As for Lai Chong, he swore to keep his inner demon on a leash, as long as he could join their fortress. While they were cleaning up that bloody mess, something intense was kicking off on the border of City S. A group of survivors was running for their lives. They were being hunted by bizarre creatures through a city shrouded in a sickly green haze. They had to make impossible choices, leaving behind anyone who was beyond saving. When those twisted vine monsters are on you, running is your only move. So they ran, and they didn't look back. Those left behind met an agonizing end. As the thick green smog rolled in, the plants began to take over. When they were finished with their victims, the poor souls were completely unrecognizable. A few moments later, a corpse infested with sentient plants lurched to its feet. City S really needs a gardener. The group of survivors was getting smaller. The last remaining woman's lungs were about to burst. Her man screamed at her to keep running or be torn apart. Suddenly, an eerie sound echoed from up ahead. They listened closer. It was the sound of wind. That meant they were close to the edge of the forest. The exit was in sight, but the mutants were hot on their heels. They couldn't afford to waste a single second. The couple at the back tried to psych each other up. Victory and safety were just within reach. After a few more minutes of sprinting, the light from the forest's edge was finally visible. Then a stray vine shot out as if it had eyes, wrapping around the woman's neck and hoisting her into the air, choking her. That green tentacle belonged to a giant mutant Venus flytrap, and it was hungry for much bigger prey. It all happened in a flash. She was split clean in half. Her lower body just dropped. On the bright side, she'd save a ton on shirts. Her boyfriend completely lost it, screaming about his pure maiden or something. Total creep, that guy. But there was no time for a pity party. The gurgling sounds of plant freaks were getting closer. The group leader had to literally slap some sense back into the grieving boyfriend. Xiaoyang was gone. Crying about it wouldn't change a thing. Now, the weirdo had to decide if he wanted to join her. Somehow, the group managed to escape into a new city. The plant zombies kept coming shuffling along like classic movie monsters. What they lacked in speed, they made up for in numbers. Low-key, they looked a lot like clickers. The leader kept them moving until he finally spotted a landmark. He was sure of it. They'd stumbled into M City's Wilderness Park. But something was wrong. The park was eerily silent, like it was completely untouched by the apocalypse. After the catastrophe back in S City, it wasn't surprising that this area was evacuated too. Then, behind a random street pole, they spotted someone doing a terrible job of hiding. Since it wasn't trying to eat them, they figured it was human, so they walked right up and asked for directions. Turns out the guy was about as human as a squid. It was Zhang Shenhe, the tentacle monster. The dark skin, black eyes, and wiggling tentacles were a dead giveaway. They were absolute idiots. They'd mistaken a Lovecraftian horror for just another brain-dead plant zombie. And so the marathon from hell continued until they were sure the beast was gone. They started to wonder if anywhere was safe. That's when the plant mutants showed up again. The universe really had it out for these guys. It was just one sprint after another. This time, it was a perfectly coordinated trap. Every escape route was blocked. It was hopeless. Their morale finally shattered. If they'd just stayed in the forest, they might have lasted a few more months. Maybe Shiaoyang would still be alive. As the monsters closed in, the survivors faced a grim choice. It looked like their leader was about to take the easy way out. Better to do it himself than get torn apart. But luckily for him, that wouldn't be necessary. Tentacles sliced through the air, popping zombie heads like they were nothing. This was Shangji's territory, and trespassers were not welcome. Meanwhile, at the eastern fortress, Zhang Xiaoyang surveyed his kingdom. His little apocalypse project was going great. His community score had hit 62, and he had 231 store points. By apocalypse standards, he was loaded. With points to burn, it was time for some retail therapy in the daily shop. He could get a level 2 armed box for 20 points, a tech box for 50, or a level 3 superpower awakening box for 100. Shiaoyang was rarely shocked, but that last item made his jaw drop. Without a second thought, he bought out the entire shop. The armed deterrence box gave him an armored jeep. The black tech box had another physical enhancement serum. And finally, the superpower box contained a level 1 enslavement mark. The skill let him completely enslave one life form. He didn't need it yet. His crew was still loyal. Just as his point balance was looking grim, a new mission popped up. Weed Control Volume 1 had officially begun. For a moment, he thought it was an actual gardening job. But then reports came in about an approaching army of plant mutants. That night, the fortress residents gathered at the wall, staring cautiously at the tentacle monster below. Shangji had escorted the survivors he'd just saved. He was also dragging a mutant corpse for show and tell. From the crowd, Shangji's wife and son ran to him. He can say son just fine, but wife isn't in his vocabulary. He just calls her, "Marry me." To this day, Shiaoyang is the only one who understands his broken speech. It was a bizarre but sweet family reunion, full of tears, hugs, and general confusion. Shiaoyang, ever the professional, got straight to business examining the shriveled corpse. Shangji tried to explain what happened, but his vocabulary was too limited. So the survivor leader stepped up to elaborate. They were refugees from City S, forced to run for their lives from these mutated plant creatures. City M is a death trap, but it's a paradise compared to City S. On their way to the fortress, the new crew weaved through hordes of zombies roaming the streets. Shiaoyang sent one of his men to grab his new armored jeep, parked just 2 blocks from the base. Tonight, he wanted to see the border between the two cities for himself. Thanks to the armored jeep and the survivors' guidance, they reached the spot without a problem. But in just a few hours, the vines had grown insanely tall, swallowing even more ground. To get a real sense of the danger, Shiaoyang knew he had to venture deep into that jungle. But the survivor who just clawed his way out of that hellhole, understandably, he was against the idea of going back in. Still, ignoring the problem wasn't an option. At this rate, the nearby Westwind steel mill would be vine food. And when that happened, their quality of life and production would plummet. Before diving in, maybe there was a smarter move. Shiaoyang figured it'd be better if his people powered up enough to handle these crises on their own. Old Li and his steel mill crew were in. For the next few days, everyone was going on an all-out hunting spree. It was grinding time, baby. Speaking of the steel mill, there was another nasty mutant lurking nearby, and this one ate zombies for breakfast. Thankfully, we won't have to look at this ugly freak for long. Shiaoyang went full Assassin's Creed mode tonight. In one clean slash, he dispatched the troublesome zombie-eating mutant. With the big guy out of the picture, the rest of the crew was free to go absolutely nuts with their firearms. They didn't spare a single bullet, letting lead rain down on the zombies marching aimlessly through the city. Under Xiaoyang's leadership, they hunted, killed, and retrieved mutant cores. They repeated this over and over, steadily growing stronger. But little did they know, an overfed evolver had been stalking the city, searching for fresh human meat. To this monster, regular zombies were a complete joke. He could tear through them without breaking a sweat. But since the human population was dwindling, Mr. Evolver here had been stuck roasting zombie meat. All he wanted was a single bite of some pure, untainted human flesh. And lucky for him, the scent of his favorite meal was blowing right into his nostrils. Back at the mill, things were running smoothly under Li Hongle. However, the new guns in their arsenal were making some of the guards a little too confident. A few of them were wandering too far from the perimeter just to pop zombies for fun. And their scent is exactly what the buff Evolver caught. He was licking his lips. The best kind of meat came from those who hadn't eaten their own kind, the so-called pure humans. But this buff Evolver wasn't dumb. He could see those people were armed with some serious firepower. Going in alone would be extremely risky. He knew he should wait a few more days to hunt properly, but the very thought made him drool and tear up like a starving dog. Back in the fortress, Shiaoyang was busy tinkering with his system shop. Afterwards, he called an all-hands meeting. They had been on a coordinated hunt for 3 days now. He gave all the harvested cores to Li Hongli and Zhang Qi to split. Old Li protested, saying they couldn't hog all the resources when everyone had contributed to the hunt. But the big boss waved off their concerns. Everyone else would get plenty of weapons and ammo. What they needed now was to create a few top-tier fighters. It was a way better plan than distributing the cores evenly and having everyone end up as a half-baked evolver. Besides, the group trusted their boss's judgment. Xiaoyang had never made a bad call. As for Shanshan, the boss had something else planned for her. He invited her to an isolated room with just the two of them inside. A little nervously, she asked what was about to happen. Outside, little Shui Wanwan, Zhang Qi, and brother Chong were shamelessly eavesdropping. All they could hear was their boss telling the lady to just bear with the pain. After a few minutes of very suspicious noises, the door swung open, exposing the nosy bunch. Zhang Qi gulped awkwardly and commented on how fast brother Xiaoyang finished. They really thought he was in there clapping cheeks. Well, it was a good thing Zhang Qi was there anyway. Right now, Shanshan was gently holding her arm while an empty syringe sat on the table, so she really did get penetrated in a way. After absorbing so many mutant cores, Zhang Qi was basically one of the settlement's top fighters. So now, Xiang wanted to see a spar between the humble Zhang Qi and the feisty Shanshan. Zhang Qi was totally against the idea. He refused to hit girls. Hearing that, Xiaoyang gave Shanshan permission to slap the boy right across the face. No need to hold back. When it came to taking hits, Zhang Qi was pretty confident in his durability thanks to all those mutant cores. Before he could even finish bragging, Shanshan unleashed a slap that nearly dislocated his jaw and sent him flying. Brother Chong and Xiao Kai had to jump in just to stop his momentum. Shan Chan was reeling from her sudden surge of power. Apparently, Xiaoyang hooked her up with an enhancement serum, boosting her to just below Brother Chong's level. Zhang Qi, however, still thinks he's the top dog. Of course, Xiao Kai couldn't resist roasting his buddy for being such a downer. With preparations complete, Xiaoyang assigned roles for their little trek into the killer woods. Alongside his best fighters, he picked the new troop's leader as their guide. But Mr. Leader gave that a hard pass. He'd already escaped that hellhole once and swore never to return. Li Chun called him a chicken, but the guy had a point. He didn't have any family or friends left in the neighboring city. He'd rather work as a janitor in the fortress than face that danger again. So the guy with the broken heart stepped up, volunteering to guide them. Meanwhile, in the western suburbs, some jacked-up evolvers are tearing through buildings, hunting for something. Day by day, this one's brain turns to mush. If he doesn't get fresh human meat soon, it's going to get much worse. The pounding in his skull was interrupted by a different kind of pounding in the distance. He immediately followed the lustful sounds. Ripping open a metal door, he walked in on two couples, going at it like animals. The buff evolver cleared his throat, bringing the wild party to a screeching halt. The foursome recognized him instantly, and they were not happy to see him again. The big guy swore he wasn't there to steal anything. In fact, he came bearing information. The women didn't trust him one bit. But everyone here had embraced being a half-monster. There was no point in lying anymore. He swore on his life he wasn't lying. He'd found a community of pure humans armed to the teeth, and now he needed help with the hunt. The half-monsters crowded around him, their massive bodies closing in, judging his every word. In the end, they decided to trust the thief. Just this once. If the bastard lied, he'd become their next meal. And just like that, he was in the group. The redhead of the crew gave the new guy a very warm and personal welcome. Our buff half-monster wasn't one to refuse such a generous offer. While things got freaky in the city, Xiaoyang's group crossed into enemy territory. Their guide for this lovely expedition is the heartbroken Zhu Xingkai. Xiaoyang praised his bravery, but Xingkai made it clear he only wanted revenge on the plant mutants that killed his girlfriend. Besides, his parents are still trapped in that jungle. The boss took the lead. Li Cheng covered the rear, Brother Chong and Shang Jie took the flanks, and Xingkai was kept safe in the middle. Xiaoyang's real mission was to stop this jungle from consuming his own territory. The rescue was just a nice little bonus. Suddenly, a wet vine dropped, splashing sticky goo all over his face. Xingkai went on high alert. He'd seen that goo before. He screamed for the boss to move, but it was too late. The slimy vine wrapped around Xiaoyang's neck like a hungry python. A giant Venus flytrap emerged, the exact same monster that ripped Xiaotong in half. No one had ever escaped its jaws alive, but that record was about to be shattered. Xiaoyang fearlessly grabbed the vine and pulled with all his might. He yanked so hard the creature's disgusting guts came flying out. Xingkai was too stunned to even speak. The innards hit the ground with a wet splat, wriggling like a bag of slimy grapes in front of the boss. The Venus flytrap knew it was outmatched and immediately tried to flee. Xiaoyang couldn't be bothered to chase it, so he delegated the job to Shang Jie and his tentacles. And that mutated freak did not disappoint. His tentacles shot out and snatched the plant. After getting a firm grip, he slammed the pesky target back down. But much to everyone's shock, the flytrap activated a defense mechanism, releasing a strange green gas. For some reason, the fumes didn't seem dangerous at all. In fact, they smelled amazing. Xiaoyang was instantly on guard. A scent this alluring couldn't be a good thing. As he was about to warn everyone, the world around him faded to black. Everyone else was trapped in their own bizarre illusion. For Xing Kai, a strange pressure was pounding in his skull. He looked around and saw his entire crew standing motionless like statues. Then, a rustle in a nearby bush grabbed his attention. A woman's figure emerged from the grass, calling his name. Looking closer, he saw it was his girl, Xiao Tong, but he'd watched her die. Seeing her in the flesh again completely short-circuited his brain. He drifted toward her, pulled by an invisible string, a mix of relief and utter disbelief swirling in his head. Xiao Tong beckoned him closer, whispering that the other survivors were just up ahead. Completely hypnotized by her face, Shang Kai followed her voice without question. As this was happening, the raid on the steel mill was just getting started. The half-beasts had reached their target, an entire factory packed with fresh, pure human meat. One of the guys started drooling just from the scent. Nothing gets the appetite going like grade A free-range human. The others told him to chill out, but his vision had already gone blood red with ravenous hunger. Before they could restrain the moron, he took off. Unable to hold back, the dumbass charged in, ready to feast with absolutely zero plan. The guards spotted him the second he broke cover, but these scrubs were way too slow on the draw. Before they could raise their rifles, one of their buddies was already half-eaten. When the gunshots rang out, Li Hongyi was instantly on alert. His guards had never faced a half-beast before. They could handle mindless zombies, but this was way above their pay grade. The bullets from their AK-47s were totally useless. Every solid hit he took just healed in a flash. Ignoring the hail of lead, the hunter did what he does best. He probably would have wiped out the entire guard post if old Li hadn't shown up to plant a boot in his stomach. A single kick sent the hunter spinning like a twisted ballerina. Halfway through, he regained his balance and stuck a perfect landing. At this distance, old Li could just plink him with high-caliber rounds from afar. The dumbass had no choice but to retreat. From far away, he eats lead. Up close, he eats a knuckle sandwich. Old Li yelled for his men to get the injured to the infirmary and stop the bleeding. The idiotic half-beast limped back towards his crew's hiding spot. Humiliated and injured, he couldn't even make it all the way back before he collapsed. Instead of helping, his group just stared at him with contempt. They told him to be patient, but he was too stupid to control himself. The dumbass snarled at his crew to stop messing around and give him meat to recover. But that's not how this team operates. If you're too stupid and weak, you get left behind. He was a conceited fool until the very end. Tired of his whining, one of the girls just stomped on the back of his neck until he stopped breathing. One less mouth to feed is always a plus, and it means more meat for everyone else. So the 4 remaining half-beasts started planning how to get the goods inside. While the guys were struggling to come up with a decent idea, the girls had already cracked it. They might be flesh-craving monsters, but from the outside, they look perfectly human. All they had to do was walk right through the front door. Back in the woods, Shang Kai hesitated, feeling an unnatural force pulling him towards the image of Xiao Tong. The creature impersonating her was growing impatient, its disguise starting to slip. But before it could do anything to Shang Kai, the shapeshifter was decapitated by a flying knife. For the second time in just a few days, the poor guy had to watch his girl die a brutal death. The person who threw that blade was Xiaoyang. Even he was mesmerized by the illusion for a second. Still reeling, Shang Kai aimed all his rage at his leader. Xiaoyang then forced the poor bastard to look at the bushes again. Slowly but surely, the bloody mirage dissolved, revealing the truth. The girl of his dreams was nothing but a tangled bundle of vines. Though that plant was seriously stacked. I wouldn't mind getting hypnotized by that at all. Afterwards, Xiaoyang went around waking everyone else from their mental prisons. Li Qiang felt like years had passed, and even the 2 mutants were affected. Xiaoyang guessed that the flower must have released some kind of hallucinogenic gas. To learn more, he started dissecting the bundle of vines. Maybe there was a mutant core inside. Unfortunately, the thing he'd killed was just a puppet, not the main body. The vines obviously ran deep underground, with the real body probably far away. Just for kicks, he followed the roots and dug up something strange. It looked like a taro root potato, like some kind of nutrient storage for a bizarre creature. Just in case, he tossed the thing into his dimensional space. Hey, maybe it's edible. Who knows? He then turned to Shang Kai for info on these plant monsters. Well, he only knew that they were incredibly dangerous. However, Old He might know a little more. Old He is an expert from the Agricultural and Forest Research Institute. Before Shang Kai and his group escaped, that old man was stationed at a high-rise settlement. Eager for information, Xiaoyang changed their route to meet this Old He fellow. Back at the steel mill, the half-beasts finally put their brilliantly simple plan into motion. Red hobbled in putting on a masterclass of being exhausted and terrified while making sure her valuable goods were in plain sight. To really sell the act, she took a dramatic tumble right near the front gate. And wouldn't you know it, a guard on patrol spotted her. The guys immediately rushed over, thinking a survivor was making a mad dash for the settlement. As guards, they have protocols for strangers. But one look at Red, and their brains just short-circuited. One guard tried to follow procedure and report it, but another just wanted to play the hero and pull her inside. Red wailed for help, and Simgard bought every last word. From a distance, the half-monsters watched, totally amused. Even they had to admit Red's performance was top tier. Of course, her rival wasn't about to be upstaged. She claimed she could do it even better. Red had just secured a VIP pass into a fresh meat buffet. Meanwhile, back in the woods, the main crew was struggling through the pitch-black jungle. Thankfully, they made it to the next city without any more disasters. As they neared the old base camp, a voice called out Xingkai's name. Peeking from behind a wall was his Aunt Yang. Any other time he would have run right into her arms, but that kind of thinking almost got him killed earlier. He blinked, his eyes clear as Shiaoyang chuckled, assuring him they were no longer high on hallucinogenic gas. On the other side, Aunt Yang's camp was also freaking out, assuming anything coming from the woods was an enemy. Some wanted to snatch Xingkai and pull him to safety, but others weren't even sure it was really him. Aunt Yang's philosophy, shoot, first ask questions later. She led a small squad to launch a surprise attack with whatever weapons they had. Shangji could have easily erased them from existence, but Xiaoyang told everyone to chill. When a few arrows flew their way, the big boss just casually slapped them out of the air. With a voice that commanded attention, he ordered the attackers to stand down, and surprisingly it worked. Xingkai then jumped between them, insisting his new friends weren't a threat. Aunt Yang seemed convinced enough, telling her boys to stop wasting arrows. Xingkai explained that Xiaoyang and his crew were from outside the jungle. But when asked about his own friends, he had to break the news that half were dead or injured, including Xiao Tong. Letting them inside was a tough sell, mainly because of the two giant mutants, Brother Chong and Brother Shenhe. The big boss stepped in, offering assurances. He even asked the mutants to say a few words to lighten the mood. Brother Chong removed his mask, declaring that despite his face, he was actually a big softy. Shangji, on the other hand, just started flexing for the crowd. Xiaoyang was so embarrassed. He really thought they could act normal for once. After a long pause, Aunt Yang finally gave them permission to enter. Back at the steel mill, Shanshan made her way to the front gate to check on the West team. She radioed old Li to open up. Before stepping inside, her sharp senses caught a hint of hostility lurking nearby. It was a faint flicker, gone in an instant. The half-monsters immediately suppressed their bloodlust and stayed hidden. Old Li opened the door for Shanshan himself. The moment she was inside, the monsters could finally breathe again. That was way too close. All three of them sensed it immediately. The girl was an evolver. A pure evolver at that. They never imagined it was possible. Regardless, one thought echoed in their minds: how delicious she would taste. Besides, eating an evolver would grant them a massive power boost. Shanshan headed to the infirmary to check on the victims of the earlier attack. Xiaoyang had given Shanshan the infection inhibitors just in case something like this happened. But old Li was hesitant. His men had been bitten for hours with zero symptoms. It was very likely their attacker wasn't a zombie. With questions hanging in the air, Red stepped up, claiming she had all the answers. She alleged that in the western suburbs, mutated people had formed a group to hunt humans. Old Li had never seen this woman, but she sounded like she knew what she was talking about. Through her tears, she added that these mutants were smarter and more vicious than any zombie. She said she'd only escaped by finding a bike. To old Li, it just sounded like she led the wolves right to his doorstep. Red apologized profusely for the trouble, and the simp guard immediately defended her, scolding old Li for placing blame. Li Hongli shot back that he just wanted to know everything about the enemy, so Red warned everyone to prepare for the next attack. Seeing the poor woman had almost no clothes, old Li suggested she get some rest first. As the others began to file out of the room, but Shanshan was the only one giving her the side-eye. She couldn't explain it, but her gut screamed that something about this newcomer was totally off. In the end, she just sighed and blamed it on the stress of her massive responsibilities these days. Meanwhile, back in City S, the squad had finally reached a tall building shrouded in a nasty green fog. Xiaoyang asked why the survivors didn't just pick a stronger, more convenient spot. Well, that's because hanging out on the ground floor is a death wish here. The lower you are, the thicker that green poison gets. Breathe that junk in for too long and you'll turn into a weird plant person. Only buildings with 10 floors or more are high enough for the air to be safe. So they hit the stairs and kept the conversation going on the way up. At the very top, Xiaoyang finally met the settlement's leader, Professor He. They delivered the grim news from the outside world, instantly killing the mood. After explaining the mutant situation, Xiaoyang brought in Brother Chong and Sheng to meet everyone. As for the other cities or any outside help, there was zero information. It seemed like organized rescue wasn't coming. They were completely on their own. At that moment, Shiaoyang pulled out the weird potato he'd found and asked the professor what it was. Professor He calmly identified it as the tuber from one of those plant mutants. He said it was edible, and in fact, it's what his people had been surviving on. If they weren't so desperate, they never would have touched the freaky-looking thing. Still, finding a reliable food source in this hellscape was a huge win. Their chat was rudely interrupted by an emergency outside. Looking down, they saw a massive swarm of plant mutants surrounding the building. The locals identified the big ones as something called flower carts. Just hearing that name made Professor Hay's face darken. Those things could be the death of them all today. The professor roared, demanding everyone's attention. Women and kids get to the top floor and seal the rooms. Everyone who can fight, grab a weapon. He'd rather a few survived than everyone die together. His people didn't hesitate, ready to lay down their lives. The professor figured Shiaoyang was just a kid and told him to go hide with the others. Our main character just scoffed, assuring the old man he would be just fine. In fact, he was a little curious to see what kind of monster could scare everyone this badly. The professor warned them that if they didn't find the flower cart's main body soon, it was game over. You see, the flower cart can control other plant mutants, probably using some kind of pheromones to launch organized attacks. Its main body had to be close, and it was seriously angry. To the professor's absolute horror, Shiaoyang simply opened the window. He then summoned a rifle from thin air, planning to test the enemy's strength. From the top floor, he started sniping the approaching mutants. And as expected, those things were incredibly tough. They could regenerate from fatal wounds in an instant. Still, Shiaoyang wanted to see just how far that healing factor could go. He focused all his fire on one mutant, turning its body into Swiss cheese from a distance. Like the others, this bullet-riddled insult to nature stood strong. But only for a moment before it finally collapsed. Based on that little experiment, it would take 2 full magazines just to kill one of those freaks. That was a terrible trade-off, so no wonder everyone was terrified. However, Zhang Xiaoyang had an almost infinite supply of guns and ammo in his pocket dimension. Pulling out dozens of crates was shocking enough. But when the young man pried the nailed-shut wooden crates open with his bare hands, the survivor's jaws hit the floor. The crates were full of the plant's natural predator, Molotov cocktails. Xiaoyang told them to use the firebombs on any mutants that managed to slip past his team. Without another word, the young man leaped out of the window. His mutant brothers followed right behind him. 3 absolute madmen jumped from the 16th floor like it was nothing. At least they landed in style. Each one struck a dramatic pose, taunting the ugly plant monsters. As soon as they were in range, the creatures rushed in. They were immediately met by Xiang's hand, which dug deep into one of their skulls. With one powerful yank, our main character tore the first enemy's head clean off. Brother Chong was no slouch either. He was a whirlwind of speed and strength, his fighting style just as brutal as the boss's. As for Shenj, that dude was just pure hype and cool moments. His tentacles did the dirty work. It was a symphony of glorious bloodshed. The professor realized he sounded like a total idiot telling Xiaoyang to hide earlier. Luckily, Lai Chung was there to rally everyone against any stragglers. He took charge, handing out Molotovs to anyone brave enough to guard the stairs. For the first time in months, they actually felt a glimmer of hope. The building's morale shot through the roof. Downstairs, Xiaoyang was just finishing off the last mutant plant. As usual, he sent his mutant bros to loot the bodies for cores. As for him, he had to see this legendary flower cart everyone was screaming about. The few monsters that slipped past were quickly barbecued. Thanks to Xiaoyang's crew, there were 0 casualties. While everyone else was securing the building, our boy followed a gut feeling deep into the forest. Moving like a shadow, he finally found the twisted thing. The source of everyone's nightmares. The flower cart, casually spewing out toxic green fog. Suddenly, every instinct screamed at him to jump back. Now, Xiaoyang dodged what would have been a one-hit kill. That thing packed a punch as strong as Zhang Shenha's tentacles. But hey, our main character is a veteran when it comes to fighting tentacle freaks. All he had to do was overwhelm it with pure raw power. Feeling cornered, the flower cart blasted out a thick cloud of spores. Too bad for it, Xiaoyang doesn't fall for the same trick twice. He took a deep breath right before the cloud hit, and just held it. As the fog spread, the flower cart began to squirm. It dropped its giant balls, and creepy legs sprouted from underneath. The flower cart was trying to bolt on its many disgusting limbs. A pathetic escape attempt that was never going to work. He simply flicked his fingers and activated the slave mark. His power enveloped the mutated beast. Minutes later, the survivors watched in horror as the flower cart's main body rolled up to their front door. The professor was freaking out. He could never forget how monstrous that thing looked. After parking his new pet out front, Xiaoyang walked in like nothing happened. In his signature broken speech, he asked if they'd grabbed all the mutant cores yet. Shang Jie reported a pretty good haul with Brother Chong, translating perfectly. Seriously, one of his mutant buddies gargles rocks and the other just speaks gibberish. It's a miracle they understand anything. Finally, the professor addressed the elephant in the room. Why was that nightmare machine parked in their driveway? Xiaoyang nonchalantly replied, "Oh, he's one of us now." To prove his point, he led everyone outside to show them the beast was harmless. The old professor nervously approached the veiny creature. He touched it cautiously and asked how on earth he managed to tame it. Completely ignoring him, Xiaoyang asked for the professor's professional opinion on the plant. The old man figured that even though it was horribly mutated, it should still have its basic plant instincts. After all, the plant world is just as brutal as the animal kingdom. Instead of fighting over prey, they're in a constant war for sunlight. Trees evolved to grow taller for more sun, while smaller plants had to adapt or die. That's why you see less grass under a thick forest canopy. He guessed the flower cart became so aggressive because it had to find a new food source besides sunlight. Suddenly, the flower cart shot out a vine, heading straight for Xiaoyang. Lai Cheng instantly reacted, pulling out a tiny knife to protect his boss. Totally unfazed, Xiaoyang told him to stand down. With the slave mark active, the plant couldn't possibly disobey. The vine wasn't attacking. It was connecting directly to his spine, sending information straight into his brain. The flower cart was confirming the professor's theory was 100% correct. The entire city had become a battlefield, where mutant plants devoured everything for nutrients. And now that this giant tumor plant was his servant, its survival was his responsibility. To show its gratitude, the flower cart opened up, revealing its glowing, radioactive-looking core. As a sign of ultimate trust, it offered the spongy core to its new master. The core touched Xiaoyang's palm and just vanished into his body. As usual, Li Chong started to panic. But this was just a simple master-servant pact. To test his new toys, Xiaoyang flicked his wrist. Instantly, a barrage of vines erupted from the ground, shooting forward with deadly force. They coiled around a huge tree, squeezing it tight. Then with a single thought, the vines snapped the trunk in two. Shangji's mind was blown. He had to admit those vines looked way stronger than his own tentacles. Just then, a notification popped up. Xiaoyang unlocked the gardener achievement, netting him a cool 150 points. While City S celebrated its freedom, the Western steel mill was facing a new kind of horror. A certain cannibal redhead was setting honey traps, and the mill's survivors were falling for it every single time. Hearing a knock, she slapped on her best damsel in distress face and opened the door to a guy offering a midnight snack. And he looked pretty tasty himself. She was a master of playing the helpless little victim. The dude, of course, was trying to be Sir Galahad, all concerned for the poor new girl. Red leaned in close, whispering her sincerest thanks. He took that as a green light. The horn dog lunged at her like a man dying of thirst, but she quickly dodged back into her room, acting all startled. To his credit, the guy actually apologized for misreading the signals. Except, he hadn't misread anything. Red just didn't want to get busy inside. The walls were paper thin. Naturally, the poor simp followed her out. Hook, line, and sinker. Just outside the mill, the two got down to business, making as much noise as possible. When it was over, his soul had practically left his body. He was completely mesmerized by her beauty and skills. They'd already swapped every bodily fluid imaginable, and he hadn't even asked for her name. Suddenly, the mood shattered when he spotted something weird. It was a ripped sleeve from his friend's jacket sticking out of a grimy plastic barrel. He lifted the lid and was greeted by a gruesome soup of guts and gore. In that instant, Red pounced on her prey, her claws sinking into his neck. At least he died happy. Meanwhile, Red's crew was still hiding outside the mill, getting restless. Musclehead was caught snoozing and got a solid smack to the back of the head. He was supposed to be on watch, and Baldy does not play around when it comes to slacking off. This mission was critical. They had to be ready to strike the moment Red gave the signal. As the guys bickered, Blondie got a bad feeling. Red was taking way too long. It felt like she was keeping all the fresh meat for herself. So the three of them decided to sniff around the factory for clues. Their mutant noses led them straight to the leftovers. They found the barrels filled with discarded blood and entrails. Yep, Red had definitely gone rogue. But Blondie told the boys not to worry, she had a simple fix. If Red can sweet-talk her way in, then so can I. What's one more betrayal tonight? Baldy immediately shot down the idea. They already had one greedy traitor. Sending in another was just plain stupid. Musclehead had to step in and separate them. Blondie wasn't wrong, though. She was their only way in right now. Baldy knew he was right. He agreed, but gave her a stern warning. If she pulls the same stunt as Red, he'd storm the place and kill them both, even if it cost him his life. So after a bit more arguing, they recycled the plan that worked before. Blondie put on her most pathetic face and knocked on the gates. At first, the guards raised their guns on high alert. Blondie, on the verge of tears, spun a tale about being chased by zombies and barely making it out alive. The moment they saw her. Assets. The guards thanked their lucky stars. Another hottie right after the last one. Some even thought Blondie had a way better figure. But just as they were about to let Blondie in without a proper check, Red burst out of the mill screaming for them not to trust the witch. She claimed Blondie was a mutant in disguise who tried to eat her. Red shrieked at the guards to shoot the flesh-eating monster, believing the newcomer. They unloaded their entire magazines into Blondie, blasting her out of the gate. She felt every bullet tear through her. Now full of holes, she tripped, and her short dress flew up, giving everyone a show. The guards ran back for gasoline to torch the body. This gave Blondie just enough time to recover and drag herself away. Wow, these guards were completely useless. 3 of them, and not one stayed to watch the body. As they were snitching to their leaders, Blondie was already crawling back to her own crew. Completely drained, she collapsed at their feet. Knowing she was just damaged goods now, Blondie begged them to let her live, swearing she'd be their loyal dog. But Baldy's face was stone. They were the same kind of monster. He knew a liability when he saw one. He casually hoisted a huge boulder over his head. Besides, they could always find a new source of food. But before he could smash her head in, it was Baldy's blood that spilled first. Musclehead appeared from behind, slitting the bastard's throat. His bald head hit the dirt and the rest of him followed. Musclehead licked his blade clean, savoring the taste. Blondie couldn't thank him enough. He promised her Baldy's arm and leg for a quick heal. As for the rest, that was Musclehead's feast. Blondie saw it clearly. This wasn't charity. It was a hostile takeover. If she had died, Musclehead would have gotten scraps. This way he gets the best cuts of meat. Back at the steel mill, the higher-ups were finally noticing their members were disappearing. Li Hongli was fuming. What kind of leader lets his people vanish right under his nose? Fed up with waiting, Shanshan decided to handle it herself. She scouted the outskirts, and it wasn't long before she found the gruesome, bloody drums. She called for backup. Inside the slop, they confirmed the worst, a torn jacket from one of their own. They even spotted another guy's shoe floating in the muck. Shanshan felt the pieces clicking into place. She figured Baldy's gang must have left this mess behind, but there were no signs of a struggle. The night had been too quiet. She turned to the newcomer, her eyes sharp. "Explain." A shiver went down Red's spine. Oh no, her usual tricks wouldn't work on this one. Without a word, Sister Shan's blade was out and flying straight for Red's vitals. The cannibal's life flashed before her eyes, reflected in the deadly steel. Just before it hit, Red moved with inhuman speed, dodging the blade as it shredded a nearby tree. Shan knew it. Her gut feeling about the newcomer had been right all along. Red realized the gig was up. Well, the all-you-can-eat buffet was fun while it lasted. Cornered, she lunged for the nearest schmuck she could grab. She whipped out a knife from God knows where and took the poor guy hostage. "Don't move," Shanshan just glared. "If you kill another one of my people, you're not leaving here alive." Caught by some young girl, Red would rather die as long as she could take a few of them with her. Slowly, she backed away, threatening to open her human shield's throat. Once she was far enough, Red snatched the hostage's gun and kicked him to the ground. Just to be petty, she shot the poor guy in the butt before making a run for it. Staying perfectly calm, Shanshan raised her pistol and fired with chilling precision, hitting the cannibal multiple times. But Red just grunted, powering through the new holes in her body as she fled. Refusing to let her go, Shanshan ran for her bike, but Li Hongli quickly stopped her. "What if she has a crew waiting?" he warned. "We need to lock this place down." He had a point. Shanshan immediately ordered her men to ramp up security for all new survivors. Newcomers would be quarantined. For now, she had to report this new threat to the main fortress. To be honest, Li Hongli was incredibly impressed by the young woman's decisive command. Meanwhile, in the woods of S-City, mutated plant zombies were just vibing. Not for long, though. To practice his new skills, Zhang Xiaoyang led the charge, clearing a path with twisting vines and tentacles. For these two overpowered mutants, wiping out zombies was as easy as breathing. This left Brother Chong and Li Cheng free to harvest the cores and burn the bodies. They built a pretty sweet bonfire using zombie corpses as firewood. The professor just watched, not sure if he should feel safe or absolutely terrified of his saviors. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang's Utopia mission is booming, netting him tons of points to spend. His crew is on fire, making the plant mutants look like a total joke. So it was a smooth ride for his team and the S-City survivors to the main fortress. Uncle Shen greeted them and gave the young boss the full rundown. While he was gone, Xiaoyang introduced the S-City folks, led by a top-tier botany expert from the Agricultural and Forestry Academy, Professor He. For now, the S-City refugees will crash at the fortress. Once preparations are done, they'll move to the city jungle's edge to establish a third settlement. Just then, Shanshan zoomed up on her bike, urgently reporting the chaos at the Western Steel Mill and demanding better security for the fortress. That strict screening process, however, doesn't apply to Professor He's people. The boss already vouched for them. And when he heard they lost a few people at the mill, Xiaoyang didn't even flinch. In fact, he treated it as good news. The more threats to his utopia, the more mission rewards he can farm. Speaking of which, the 4th Villain Vanquisher mission just dropped. Wiping out the Western threats would score him a sweet 120 points. Elsewhere, Red, who barely escaped with her life, finally reached the hideout. She heard footsteps and her black heart skipped a beat. It was the newly recovered Blondie looming over the traitor and laughing at her miserable failure. Injured, forced to crawl back to the very people she betrayed. Red tried to play it off as one big misunderstanding. She nearly got Blondie killed, so a death sentence was being generous. Blondie urged Muscle to smash Red to bits so they could at least eat. In response, Muscle raised his rusty pipe and swung it at Blondie. Just like last time, a sneak attack on a teammate from behind. At this point, it was Blondie's fault for turning her back on a certified scumbag. Musclehead has zero problems using the same trick twice. Knowing she was done for, Blondie warned Red not to trust him. He only looks out for himself and would betray anyone in a heartbeat. Red didn't really care as long as she wasn't the one getting whacked. As a last resort, Blondie tried reminding Muscle how Red betrayed them all. For cannibal mutants like them, words are cheap. When that failed, Blondie tried offering Musclehead her body. Unfortunately for her, Musclehead prefers redheads. Using his bare hands, he finished her off. Then came his signature move. He offered Red an arm and a leg to recover while he feasted on the rest of Blondie. Back at the main fortress, the higher-ups were debating how to handle the cannibals prowling out west. Lai Chung himself had been an accidental cannibal not long ago, but based on Shan Shan's report, these mutants were way worse. These people had lost every last shred of humanity. They were selfish, reckless, angry, gluttonous, bloodthirsty, and totally addicted to human meat. Shiaoyang put deal with Western freaks on his to-do list, but he had more urgent matters to handle first. Lung would head back to the steel mill for backup and to get security back in order. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed peacefully. But deep in the woods, a group of survivors was weighing their options. If they stayed in their hideout, they were all dead. So they packed what they had left and braved the woods, choosing the night since the plant creatures were active during the day. Big mistake. The time didn't matter at all. They were spotted by an entire battalion of mutant plants. On first contact, many were instantly captured and turned into plant food. The rest ran for their lives, only to end up trapped in a deadly encirclement. There was one path left, but some very spooky noises were coming from it. They were dead either way, so they risked the creepy route. After running for miles, the survivors were completely exhausted. Their run was interrupted by a massive tree crashing down right in front of them. The group dove for cover, wondering what kind of monster could just knock over a tree. When the dust settled, they saw a group of people. And 40, and Birdie, with chainsaws. One of the survivors actually recognized Zhu Xingkai among them. Xingkai was shocked to see a familiar face, a guy named Liang. He started to explain how they settled in M City, but their reunion was cut short by the sound of approaching plant mutants. Liang was losing his mind, but Kai just chuckled. This was hardly the time to panic over a few walking salads. Xingkai casually hopped on the radio to report some hostile weeds in his sector. Call done, he told Liang's crew to kick back and watch the show. Seconds later, the anti-weed squad rolled in, armed with flamethrowers, leaving Liang and his boys completely stunned. The squad took their positions and fired up the grills. Time for a mutant barbecue. Flames engulfed the monsters as they shrieked in agony. Li Chong, Brother Chong, and Shang Xi even stopped by to watch. At this point, minor pests like these weren't even a warm-up. Liang couldn't process it. A human force this overwhelmingly powerful actually existed, and it was all thanks to Chief Shiaoyang. But when Liang saw the two friendly mutants, he nearly jumped out of his skin. Xingkai's team was used to them. He just laughed and invited his buddy to join their settlement and meet the legend himself. Their third settlement, built right on the jungle's edge, was already thriving. They even had a massive farm. Leon thought he was hallucinating. While everyone else was hiding, these guys were farming in a monster-filled jungle. And this wasn't normal farming. They were growing mutated crops. The second Liang held a mutant potato, he yelped and threw it away. Xingkai explained that they'd basically bioengineered the monster plants into high-yield harvestable supercrops. Another miracle brought to you by Chief Shiaoyang. For this project, Professor He was the genius who turned monsters into munchies. Thanks to Xiaoyang's special connection with Flower Cart, modifying these crops was a piece of cake. They were already nearing harvest, and the land reclamation was going perfectly. The old professor handled the expansion, and Li Chang took care of security. With the third settlement stable, it was time to deal with the cannibal problem out west. In M City, two men walked like they owned the streets. Naturally, it was our main character, Xiaoyang, and Brother Chong. The muzzled mutant suddenly growled. They were being followed. Xiaoyang sensed a group on par with Zhang's old team. The plan was simple: let Brother Chong eat. As expected, it was Red and Musclehead, hunting them eager for a fresh meal. But just as the impulsive Red was about to leap, Musclehead held her back. From their perch, he could see they were a moment too late. Another group had already claimed their prize. A huge pack of cannibals, a mix of bulky guys and women in ridiculous outfits, had surrounded Xiaoyang and Brother Chong. They were practically drooling over such a top-tier catch. "Oh, you poor, foolish cannibals." This feral mob had never laid eyes on a pure evolver like Shiaoyang. One taste of his flesh could mean an insane power-up. Seeing Brother Chong, they wrongly assumed the young man could control mutants, an ability they figured they could steal just by eating him. With that power, they'd be unstoppable. Meanwhile, Red clicked her tongue, forced to let the bigger crew go first. Musclehead, however, wanted to stick around and see how this played out. Not even a minute later, all hell broke loose. Brother Chong went berserk, tearing through the cannibals like they were paper. Jiang Xiaoyang, however, was a storm of calm and deadly finesse. Every swing of his blade claimed another head. The survivors finally realized they were the prey and bolted. One desperate cannibal scrambled up a building, the very one Red and Musclehead were hiding in. Well, this just got awkward. If that young man looked their way, they were absolutely cooked. And just their luck, Xiaoyang effortlessly lifted a massive steel beam like it was a twig. With perfect form, he launched it like a javelin, sending it screaming through the air. The beam instantly vaporized the fleeing cannibal from behind. Nobody takes Xiaoyang's pipe and survives. Red and Musclehead were inches from becoming collateral damage, getting a fresh new paint job of blood and guts. Sheathing his blade, Xiaoyang just smiled at the unexpected windfall. These cannibals pack a punch. Their variant cores must be fully developed. Meanwhile, upstairs, Red and Musclehead were playing statues, not daring to breathe until that Omega-level nightmare was gone. Once the coast was clear, they surveyed the damage. Turns out only 3 of the corpses had been eaten. Their patience had paid off big time. Now they could feast on all these premium-grade leftovers. While patrolling the west, Xiaoyang ragged on Brother Chong for his bird-like appetite, calling it a waste of good meat. Suddenly, he sensed movement inside one of the rundown buildings. His eyes snapped in its direction as he summoned his blade in a flash. Busted. Some random guy popped out of the shadows with a crossbow, warning them to stay back. Xiaoyang sized him up in a second. Just a normal dude, a totally unevolved civilian. Even though Four Eyes was trying to act tough, you could see him shaking. So Xiaoyang decided to try the friendly approach first. But the guy was totally freaked out, startled by every little move. Four Eyes anxiously fired a bolt with a nervous twitch. A toy like that couldn't even tickle our main character. Xiaoyang casually plucked the puny thing out of the air. Seeing that Four Eyes' courage completely vanished. In the blink of an eye, the man he tried to shoot crossed dozens of meters in a single step. To stop any more nonsense, Xiaoyang snatched the weapon away. Ignoring the stunned civilian, he yelled for the others inside to come out, promising he wasn't a cannibal. And just as he expected, about a dozen civilians were hiding in there, all of them absolutely terrified for their lives. At this stage of the apocalypse, Xiaoyang found it pretty admirable they'd survived without eating each other. He decided to tag along with them for a bit. Four Eyes said they were heading to a steel mill in the south called Shiaoyang. Apparently, they'd heard a radio broadcast about a survivor settlement taking people in there. At least that was the plan. They quickly realized that regular humans couldn't survive the cannibals roaming these parts. During their journey, the group heard whispers of another human settlement up north, one that actively hunted those bloodthirsty cannibals. The rumors were solid. Word on the street was that its leader could fight 5 or 6 cannibals by himself without even breaking a sweat. Still, the western outskirts alone had at least 1,000 cannibals roaming around. A single guy can't protect everybody. Four Eyes insisted that cannibal evolvers were lone wolves. Some of the others in his group thought he was dead wrong, though. He firmly believed if cannibals ever teamed up, they would have already killed each other in petty squabbles. One dissenter in the group just wanted to hit the Xiang steel mill, hoping to find his brother, even when the chances of his brother still being alive were practically zero. Besides, who's to say the people at Xiang weren't cannibals? Four Eyes was partially right about that. The old leaders of the steel mill were absolute monsters, but the new chief was standing right in front of them. Xiaoyang casually explained how he offed the evolvers who used to run the place and fixed their whole bloody system. As for the dissenter, he tearfully shared that his brother's name is Li Cheng, a former deputy officer in the southern suburbs.